The last thing I see in my first life is a warning light the color of arterial blood. My spaceship is coming apart around me somewhere inside a magnetic storm, sirens screaming, hull plates peeling off like cheap stickers, and I have exactly enough time to think, so this is how a super S-class mech great master dies. Not in glorious battle, not saving the Federation, hunting rare mech materials in a black hole zone because I got greedy. The explosion doesn't even hurt. The universe just turns the lights off, then somebody turns them back on, and everything hurts. I'm lying face down on a riverbank in a body that is not mine. Cold mud, river smell. A wound in my back deep enough to park a shuttle in, and pain arriving in waves with no medic and no morphine anywhere in this century, and a gorgeous young man is standing over me with a face full of disgust, which is a strange first sight for an afterlife, so I file it under concussion until his name floats up from memories that also are not mine. Wei Jun, the love of this body's short miserable life, and he's currently accusing me of faking my own stab wound to seduce him. Let me say that again, because it took me 2 tries as well. I jumped in front of a blade for this man. The blade is still recent enough that I'm leaking, and his working theory delivered to my bleeding body with a curled lip is that it's a pickup strategy. Even this trick, Lanyue, how shameless can you get? He shoves me off, and my blood soaks into the dirt while he walks away, all wounded dignity, like he's the victim here. Get out, I tell his back, and my new voice cracks on the words, half from the wound, half from the previous owner's heartbreak, still echoing in this chest. Here's what the memories tell me while I'm bleeding. This body also belongs to a Lan Yue, which is either fate or the universe's idea of a filing system. She's the young prince of the Lan Royal Mansion in Yin Country 17, famous across the capital as its #1 playboy, wine, beauties, gambling, the whole starter pack. Small detail, she's a girl, raised as a boy since birth, hidden behind a seal her mother left her, a spider lily mark on her chest that flattens everything that needs flattening and even fakes an Adam's apple. Nobody knows. Not the servants, not the relatives, not the man she just bled for. She loved Wei Jun in secret, got despised for her wastrel reputation, took a blade meant for him, got accused of scheming, and just let go, lost the will, died of a broken heart with a hole in her back, and I slid into the vacancy. So now there are 2 of us in here, technically. Her memory is my mileage. In my old world, I was heir to a land family too, built war mechs that entire star fleets lined up to buy, ran the 1st Legion as its youngest major general, and moonlighted as the #2 of the biggest pirate crew in the sector because a girl needs hobbies. I have killed things with more legs than this continent has kingdoms. And the one ability that followed my soul through the explosion, through the void, into this bleeding teenage chest is my repair ability. It fixes broken things, weapons, armor, artifacts. It leveled up every time I repaired something. Back home it could rebuild a flagship. Right now it's been reset to level embarrassing, but it came with me. It's the only luggage that survived the flight. The previous owner's last feeling wasn't even hate. It was tiredness. Being sneered at by the man you love, robbed blind by your own relatives, mocked by a whole capital, and too gentle to bite anyone back. I'm not gentle. I lie there on the riverbank, and I make her a promise with what's left of our shared blood. Everyone who stepped on you is going to learn, one by one, in public, with witnesses, what stepping on Lan Yue costs from now on. Then I pass out, which ruins the drama a little, but the promise stands. 2 weeks later, I'm on my feet, and the first thing I do with my new life is commit robbery in broad daylight. In my defense, the pendant started it. I'm walking through the capital, testing this body, when my repair ability wakes up and points like a hunting dog. Across the street stands a man in dark robes, and I want to be professional about this, but he's the single most beautiful human being I have seen in 2 lifetimes, and I've seen hollow idols engineered by committee. Cold face, black eyes, the temperament of a drawn blade. On his belt hang 2 jade pendants, a dragon and a phoenix, clearly a pair. The dragon is pristine. The phoenix is damaged, dull, cracked along the wing, and my ability is screaming at me. Fix it, fix it, fix it. So I do what the capital's #1 playboy would do. I stroll over, block his path, and give him my best smile. This young master has never seen a beauty like you. Those pendants, are they for sale? Name any price. He looks at me the way you look at gum on your boot. Get out of the way or die. Great voice too, wasted on threats. A rider comes galloping up, whispers something urgent, and my beautiful stranger turns to leave. He swings onto the horse, and that's when I move. 2 lifetimes of combat, reflexes against 1 distracted moment. My hand flicks out and the phoenix pendant comes off his belt into my palm. I'll keep this as a token. I call up at him, backing away with the grin of a man who has already calculated the exit routes. Find me when you're free. We'll drink under the moon. For 1 heartbeat, his eyes promise me a slow and educational death. Wait, he says quietly, which is somehow worse than shouting. Then the rider says something else, and he's gone, dust and hoofbeats, leaving 2 of his servants staring at me like I'm already a corpse that just hasn't finished the paperwork. Up in the restaurant above the street, half the capital's young nobility watched me do this, including Wei Jun, including 2 of his friends, a general's son, and a marquis heir, who are currently explaining to him, in whispers the whole floor can hear, exactly who I just robbed. The manager of the Longyin Pavilion, the information brokers, the organization from an upper-class country that sells secrets to emperors, whose local branch could buy our whole kingdom out of petty cash, whose junior staff our own royals bow to. It's over, someone says. The Lan Royal Mansion is finished. Wei Jun comes storming down the stairs to save the day. His version of saving the day is demanding I hand the pendant over to him so he can return it and apologize on my behalf because obviously the family disgrace can't be trusted with diplomacy. I look at this man, genuinely look, maybe the first time either Lan Yue ever has. Good bones, good rank, good family, and underneath it, nothing but the smug certainty of someone who has been loved his whole life without once checking the price tag. The previous owner's heart does one last little flop in my chest, muscle memory, nothing more. Time to close her account. Want it? I hold the pendant up, let it catch the light, let the whole balcony crowd lean in. You think you're worthy. And then, in front of the assembled cream of capital society, I give the eulogy this relationship deserves. That I chased him for years, yes, let's say it plainly. Everyone here watched it and laughed. That I wasted a fortune of sincerity watering a worthless weed and called it gardening. That the blade I took for him, and here the balconies go very quiet, because most of them are hearing this detail for the first time, was the stupidest purchase of my life, and I'm writing it off as a loss, no refund requested. That from today the account is closed, the ledger burned, and what Lan Yui's open eyes see when they look at Wei Jun is nothing, not hate. Hate is still attention, nothing at all. Somewhere above us, a teacup sets down too hard. The capital has watched me humiliate myself over this man for years. It has never once watched me stop, and it turns out stopping is the better show. He goes white, then red, then reaches for me, which is the part I was waiting for. I beat him up, publicly, thoroughly. With the polished technique of a major general and the sincere enthusiasm of a heartbroken girl's unpaid grievances, the crowd is speechless because the Wastrel prince isn't supposed to be able to fight, except the Wastrel Act was covering a cultivation talent the family worked very hard to ruin, and I've had 2 weeks to start unruining it. He's down 2 ranks against me. It's not a duel, it's a product recall. His 2 noble friends jump in to save him, so I whistle, and 4 of my 18 guards melt out of the crowd, hereditary blood-packed guards who have been waiting years for this house to grow a spine. Beat them too, I say, gently, they're expensive. Somewhere in the middle of this, one of my own attendants tries to slip away to report to my dear 4th uncle, because of course half my servants are spies. My guards catch him. I have him delivered to the 4th master's courtyard as a message, special handling, signature required, and standing over Wei Jun, watching him bleed on the nice clean street, I announce the severing of all ties between him and the Lan Royal Mansion loudly, formally, forever. The strange thing is the look on his face, not relief. Something almost like loss, arriving exactly as late as it possibly could. My back wound reopens on the walk home. Worth it. Now, about the family I've inherited. Sit down. This is a whole crime documentary. The Lan Royal Mansion used to mean something. My grandfather was a war god who held the border for decades. My father was Lan Kangming, the strongest war beast master this country ever produced. My mother a legend beside him. Then grandfather and my 2nd uncle died in an ambush that smelled wrong from a mile away. My parents vanished on a campaign, bodies never found, and the mansion fell to the leftovers. A step-grandmother with a smile like cold grease. A 3rd master and 4th master, my father's half-brothers, who took one look at the orphaned heir and made a business plan out of her. They ran the household funds, stole everything not nailed down, and, this is the artistic part, deliberately raised the little prince to be a wastrel. Best wine, worst teachers, applause for every vice. You don't need to murder an heir if you can just compost her. They even steered the original into a flawed cultivation technique. Keep that detail. It's a loaded gun on the wall, and it goes off later. What they don't know is that the vacancy has been filled by new management. I have 4 maids named after seasons, blood-packed loyal, each one a specialist, information, medicine and poison, needlework and cooking, protection. I have 18 guards aching for permission, and I have a plan so simple, it's beautiful. Everyone already thinks I'm an idiot. Idiots are invisible. You can walk an army through a capital single file if the capital is busy laughing at you. Step 1. The crown prince, Wei Yi, my cousin, drops by. The whole court thinks he's mediocre. The whole court is wrong. It's camouflage. We recognize each other's masks in about 4 minutes and become genuine allies. Through him, I send the emperor a message. All those imperial gifts in our vault, take them back into palace custody. Feeding treasures to this household, I tell him, is meat buns to a dog. Besides, I'm actually poor. That sentence is a fishhook. Watch what it catches. Step 2. I go to the mansion steward, the uncle's creature to his boot soles, and ask for 10,000 taels of pocket money. He gives me the rehearsed sob about empty accounts. The estates run at a loss, young master. The granaries echo, young master. There's barely 1,000 taels of liquid silver left, and here he sighs the sigh of a man burdened by other people's extravagance, while behind him, through the window, the fourth master's courtyard is having its third rockery this year installed by a crew of 12. 1,000, I repeat, wounded. But I wanted to buy things. Well, nothing for it. Pawn the emperor's gifts. The steward nearly swallows his own beard. Pawning imperial gifts, young master, is scandal, disrespect to the throne, possibly treason flavored. He begs me to reconsider in front of the household staff, which is exactly where I wanted this conversation held. I insist, whining in my best spoiled register. The playboy needs wine money. The playboy will make scenes. What could he do, the poor man, caught between the heir's stupidity and his master's orders never to release real funds? He pawns them, documents the whole thing to protect himself, and reports it up the chain where my dear uncles read it and toast my idiocy. Every piece of that paper trail is a plank in the gallows I'm building. They're storing my lumber for me. Any minute now, some upright official is going to find out and impeach me for it. I'm counting the days. I need him too. Step 3, staff, mine, bought with my own money, loyal to me alone, which means the slave market. And this is where the plot, and I want to be clear that I did not plan this part, buys itself a co-star. Because that same night, in a courtyard rented under a false name, the most beautiful man in the world is holding a war council about me. Turns out my thorny beauty is not the manager of the Longyin Pavilion. He's the master of all of it, Ye Tianlong, the Dark Emperor of Qinglong Country, one of the 4 super hegemon countries that rule this continent, a man who stands level with emperors and above the crown princes of the other 3. He came to our little backwater kingdom personally, in secret, hunting something. And there's one more thing, and I need you to hold your laughter for the explanation. His cultivation technique has a quirk. Before each great rank advancement, it regresses his body to childhood. So the cold god who threatened to kill me in the street is currently 5 years old, doll-sized, furious about it, and planning his pendant heist accordingly. His brilliant plan, plant himself in the slave market, get bought by me, infiltrate my house from the inside. The next day, I walk into the slave market with Lan Chen and Lan Fang at my shoulders. The market itself deserves a word. It's owned by the Xiaoyao king, the emperor's famously idle brother, which makes it the one institution in the capital my uncles can't lean on. I'm here for staff, cooks, guards, clerks, people with no strings leading back to anyone. Instead, I find, sitting in the middle of the merchandise like a misdelivered jade statue, the most exquisite child I have ever seen. Black eyes, ancient glare, murder at toddler height. The slaver hovers around him at a respectful distance, and I understand why. The child radiates the exact energy of an unexploded shell. My heart does something embarrassing. I've always wanted a little brother to spoil. How much for the small immortal? The small immortal speaks before the slaver can. Conditions first. And the tiny beauty negotiates his own sale like a hostage taker. He will not be a servant. He will not do chores. He will not call me master. He will come and go as he pleases. And he will absolutely, under no circumstances, be a male favorite. And he loads that last clause with such venom that the slaver backs up a step and checks the exits. Deal, I say, and pick him up. He goes rigid like I've violated 17 treaties. Put me down. No, you're the size of a teapot. The ground is muddy, and your clothes are about to be worth more than this whole market. Hold still. The slaver, sensing an easy mark, quotes 1,000 taels. I look at the child in my arms, at that face, at those eyes that have clearly ordered executions, and I take genuine offense. 1,000? Insulting. My people are not 1,000 tael people. The slaver blinks. 10,000, I declare. Write it up. Dead silence. The child's head turns toward me very slowly, like a turret. Nobody in the recorded history of commerce has argued a price upward by a factor of 10, but it matters. Everyone in this market just heard what this household pays for its own, and the invoice goes to the Lan Royal Mansion's account with the Xiaoyao King's stamp on the receipt, which means my thieving steward will pay it in full, promptly, with his own bile for garnish. Then I carry my acquisition to the silk quarter and put 5,000 taels of tailoring on the same tab. The child watches me sign for it all with an expression I will only learn to read much later. It's the expression of a hunter who set a snare, watch the rabbit, inspect the snare, upgrade the snare, line the snare with velvet, and then sit down in it voluntarily to wait for him. This is fine. The expression says everything is proceeding as planned, and also what is wrong with her. The asking price is 1,000 taels. Insulting, I announce. My people are not 1,000 tael people. Make it 10,000. And I sign the bill to the Lan Royal Mansion's account, stamped receipt, because the slave market is owned by the Xiaoyao King, the emperor's brother, and let's see my dear steward refuse that invoice. Then I buy the child 5,000 taels of luxury clothes on the same tab. The little beauty stares at me the entire ride home, recalculating in his head, and he tells me this much later. He's thinking, this fool raised my price tenfold with her own money, dressed me in silk, and carries me like treasure. What is wrong with her? Nothing's wrong with me, Xiao Long Long. That's the nickname I give him. Little Yellow, Little Imperial. Depends how you squint at the word. He hates it with his entire tiny body. It stays for the whole story, so get comfortable. And that's the opening position. A dead mercenary in a playboy's body. A household of thieves who think they own her, a heartthrob written off, a pendant that hums warm against my chest every night like it's grateful, and asleep in the room next to mine, disguised as my newest whim, the deadliest man on the continent, 5 years old, plotting to rob me back. I give the family 2 weeks before I start knocking down walls. They don't even last that. The step-grandmother opens the bidding. She summons me to a family dinner, and the summons arrives in the form of a green-robed maid who sweeps into my courtyard without announcement, delivers the old madam's command with her chin at astronomical elevation, and adds, on her own initiative, that I'd best not keep the household waiting again like the disgrace I am. I look at this girl for a moment with genuine appreciation. It takes years to train a servant into being this useful an example. 2 questions. Is your mistress a first-grade noblewoman? No. Then her summons to a royal heir is a request, and requests wait for answers. Second question, did she order you to insult me, or was that your personal artistic contribution? The maid's chin comes down by degrees as the courtyard's guards close in. She gets disciplined for disrespect to the main branch, formally, witnesses recorded, and sent back to her mistress like a returned letter, marked undeliverable. I decline the dinner, not because the maid matters, or even the dinner, because everyone in this mansion needs to relearn one fact, and this was the cheapest possible tuition. Requests come up the chain, orders come down it, and I am the chain. Then my cousins volunteer for demolition. The venue is the Fuzhou restaurant, best table, where I'm deboning fish for Xiao Long Long, personally chopstick by chopstick, a service the previous owner never once got from Wei Jun, and I am pettily, gloriously aware of it. Across the floor, Wei Jun himself and lead Zheyu of the Li Mansion pretend not to watch, and fail. The child accepts each boneless morsel like a small emperor reviewing tribute, which, well, Cousin Lan Huishan glides up to our table, all fake gentleness and rehearsed concern. Such a beautiful child, cousin. Surely raising him is a burden for someone of your habits. The second young master's courtyard has room. Let the family help. And the second young master himself, Cousin Lan Jiru, leans in with a smile and looks at my child, and something in that look makes my combat instincts, veteran of 100 boarding actions, quietly stand up and reach for a weapon. I've seen that look before. Never on anything I let live near children. How kind, I say, deboning another piece. No, they press. I smile wider and start asking questions in return, loudly, pleasantly, about the second young master's courtyard. About why it has its own wall inside the family wall, about the capital's missing persons rumors that all somehow drift toward my name. Isn't that funny, cousin? Since I'm out at restaurants every night with witnesses, while your courtyard has a locked gate, no servant will discuss. The table next to us stops chewing. Sharong's smile dies by inches, and I decide homework time is over. Some assignments you hand in immediately. I send a guard for the grand supervisor of the palace, official token, and march the entire family circus home, while the whole restaurant empties out behind us to follow. The second young master, Lan Jiru, has a hobby. People go missing in the capital, and the rumors blame the Wastrel prince, me, the reputation sponge, while the actual missing people are behind a hidden door in his courtyard. Men, women, children, locked rooms, things I'm not going to describe because you don't need the details, and neither did I. One look was enough. At the mansion gates, the butler makes his last stand for the old regime. He plants himself in the doorway and announces that the old madam has forbidden entry to the second young master's courtyard to anyone on any grounds. I turn to the street, which by now holds half the restaurant district, and raise my voice. Citizens, a question of household law. In the Lan Royal Mansion, who rules? The heir of the bloodline or a step-grandmother's backyard? The street answers with enthusiasm. Streets love law when it comes with a show. The butler looks at the crowd, at the grand supervisor's official token, at my face, and performs the fastest loyalty recalculation I have ever witnessed. Demoted on the spot, he bows, and then, unprompted, mentions that there is, in fact, a hidden side door, and he happens to know the way. What's behind it ends the argument about who runs this family, and I'm going to give you the shape of it and spare you the contents. 40 rooms, locks on the outside, people inside, men, women, children, taken off the capital streets over years, every disappearance whispered onto my reputation, while the real collector smiled at family dinners. One look was enough. I don't describe what one look contained. I don't parade the victims for the crowd either. They've been through enough. They get screens carried out, doctors, dignity, and money, 10,000 taels each, and I pay it out of the 4th branch's accounts, specifically 300,000 taels of poetic justice signed in their own household seal. Langeroux leaves his courtyard in chains, in daylight, past a silent crowd. The Grand Supervisor's report goes to the palace by evening, and the capital's rumor mill, which spent years feeding on my alleged depravity, executes a full reverse at speed. The Wastrel prince cleaned his own house. The Wastrel prince paid the victims from the guilty branch's purse. The Wastrel prince, ladies and gentlemen, might have been the only decent one in there all along. Somewhere in the crowd, a duke's 4th son named Gao Lin, a professional Wastrel of my alleged tribe, watches the whole operation with his mouth open, elbows his way over, and introduces himself as my new best friend. I don't argue, remember him. I accidentally collect him, and then I accidentally collect his entire social class. And by the end of this story, that accident is a private army with excellent fashion sense. And Wei Jun leaves that courtyard pale and quiet because a thought has finally wormed into his handsome head. If the rumors about me were this wrong, what else was wrong? Who actually took that blade for him, and why? Too late, sir. That account is closed. The wolves finally stop underestimating me and reach for real knives. My guard Lan Chen, planted in the walls like good insurance, brings me the recording of their council, and it's a family portrait worth framing. The step-grandmother's private hall, incense burning, tea poured, the 3rd master pacing, the 4th master nursing his beating like a grudge with legs. 3 people who raised a child specifically to ruin her, sitting in the house she owns, planning her funeral over pastries. Their plan has 3 floors. Floor 1, an imperial censor they own, will impeach me at the Zhongxi festival for pawning the emperor's gifts. Floor 2, and this is the one that made even me sit up. The cultivation technique the original was steered into all those years ago is deliberately incomplete. Cultivate it far enough and it doesn't make you strong, it makes you dead. Chi deviation, madness, burst meridians, an assassination with a decade of patience. They plan to trigger it with a spiritual plant and file it under natural causes. Floor 3, before I die, they need to extract the location of something, a relic. Air only, passed in secret, the thing they're masters, and yes, there's a them over there, above my uncles. Someone outside the family pulling these strings wants found. They're forbidden to kill me before it surfaces. I listen to the recording twice and smile so wide my maids get nervous. Perfect. The fish bites. They think the flawed technique is their knife in my back. They don't know what my repairability is. Give me the right materials, spirit wood for the technique, spirit jade for the pendant, and I will repair the murder weapon into a masterpiece and cultivate it in their faces. That night, Xiaolonglong slips out of bed, puts a golden sleep spell on me that my instincts feel but can't catch, which should be impossible. I've woken to assassins breathing and pads out into the dark to hold a meeting. In a lamplit back room across the city, the most feared information brokers on the continent receive instructions from a small figure in silk pajamas, and nobody smiles because the pajamas change nothing about the voice. The Longyan Pavilion will quietly source celestial-grade spirit wood, the rarest lot on any market this decade, import it into this backwater capital, and put it up for public auction, where a certain person can buy it. No, she is not to know. No, there will be no discount. She'd get suspicious. Yes, that's all. The Vice Master, I learned much later, spent the rest of that night attempting to file a report about this, and finding that no report format existed for the Pavilion Master, arranges anonymous shopping opportunities for his landlord. I wake up knowing something touched my sleep and finding nothing. He comes back in smelling faintly of night air, climbs onto his pillow, 5 years old, unreadable, and informs me my blanket distribution is inequitable. I decide the mystery can live one more day. The mystery, for the record, was already 3 moves ahead of me and importing lumber. I really was terrible at spotting the biggest fish in my own pond. In my defense, the fish was doing it on purpose. While the family sharpens its slow knife, I go recruiting because an empire is just a staffing problem with a flag. Recruit number 1 comes to me mid-assassination. Surue, the imperial censor's illegitimate son. His stepmother poisoned him at 3 years old to strangle a Xuan-grade talent in the crib, demoted his mother from wife to concubine, and has spent 20 years stepping on them both. What she doesn't know is that the boy quietly cured himself years ago and has been playing dead ever since, stockpiling knowledge of medicine, poison, and strategy like a man building a bomb in his basement. I find him in a night alley holding off 6 assassins from the Dark Knight sect, her hired goodbye present, and he's losing beautifully, which is to say, slower than anyone else alive would lose. I wade in, flatten the assassins, and face down the survivor with a message for his sect. Touch this man again, and I will flatten the Dark Knight sect as an organization. The assassin looks at the Wastrel prince, does the math on the bodies around me, and withdraws with professional courtesy. Then I make Su Rui an offer. Work for me. I'll get your mother her antidote herbs and her divorce papers, and to extract you without your talent showing on anyone's radar, we'll do it the fun way. At the Jiangxi festival, in front of everyone, I will abduct you as my newest male favorite. He stares at me. That will destroy what's left of my reputation. Reputations are like teeth, I tell him. The fake ones are more durable. Yes or no? He says yes. They always say yes. Have you seen the alternative I'm offering? The alternative is their old lives. The Jiangxi festival arrives, and with it, my first date with the emperor. Wei Chongshan, son of heaven, ruler of Yin country, sends me a python robe before the ceremony, hand-delivered by eunuch Hu, his personal shadow, which is roughly like the sun, sending you a friendship bracelet. The eunuch watches me try it on with an odd, soft expression and mentions, apropos of nothing, that His Majesty chose the embroidery pattern himself, and that the last person His Majesty chose embroidery for is no longer among us. There is an entire buried epic in that sentence, and I'm not ready for it yet. At the festival, he keeps me at his side through the rites, in front of his own sons, laughs at my jokes before I finish them, lets me steal candied fruit off imperial plates in full view of the ancestral altars. The court watches this and quietly loses its collective mind. The consorts section develops a permanent squint. The prince's faction leaders start taking notes with too much pressure on the brush. Here's the secret under the doting, and it took me a while to excavate. My father was his sworn friend. My mother was the woman he loved his whole life and never once touched or troubled because she loved my father. All that grief with nowhere to go, and here I am wearing both their faces. The emperor looks at me and sees the two people he lost. I look at him and slowly over this whole story start seeing something the previous owner never had. A father who's actually home. Lunch is with the capital's young elite, the so-called five prodigy circle. Wei Bo, Wei Jun's elder brother, youngest general in the army, decent human being. Watch him, he matters later. Zhou Xian, the right chancellor's heir. Mo Li of the Yue clan, the battle beast family. And Shen Yuejin, heir of the Li royal mansion, our military rival house, who decides to test the Wastrel by leaning on me with his aura, rank pressure, the cultivation world's version of revving your engine at a red light. His pressure rolls over the table like a tide. The other prodigies go carefully neutral. Cups pause halfway to mouths. Everyone waits for the wastrel to buckle, apologize, maybe cry a little for the anecdote. I keep eating. I let him build to full pressure. Let him commit his whole cultivation to the squeeze. Then I return it with change. Shen Yuejin's knees hit the floor in front of everyone. His teacup goes with him. The silence afterward has a texture, like the whole pavilion inhaled and forgot the next step. You frighten me, I tell him, hand on my heart. This king is delicate. 100,000 tiles should settle my nerves. You what? Compensation for my fright. My fright. The man is on his knees, and I'm invoicing him for emotional damages. He pays. He has to. The alternative is explaining to the whole table why he assaulted a royal heir at the emperor's festival and then welched. He counts out the banknotes with hands that tremble from pure suppressed feeling, and I thank him for the pocket money and recommend the fish. This is the beginning of a beautiful lifelong grudge and, honestly, of a beautiful friendship, though neither of us would ever admit it out loud. Somewhere in there, the emperor floats the topic of my marriage, and I deploy the cover story that will protect my secret for years. I like men, I announce, exclusively, extravagantly. The emperor pinches the bridge of his nose like a man with a migraine made of nephew and lets it go. From this day on, all my hires can be filed under male favorite, and society will nod knowingly instead of asking questions. The best camouflage is the scandal people want to believe. A concubine, consort Shen, mother of a prince, aunt of my new friend Shen Yuejin, tries to use the banquet to trim me down a size, a honeyed little speech about how young people who receive too much favor too fast so often stumble, addressed to the air above my head. The table waits for the wastrel to blush. I dismantle her in 2 sentences. The first observes that her concern for the distribution of His Majesty's favor is touching. The second asks politely since when the imperial harem audits politics and whether His Majesty knows the review is underway. Her fan stops mid-flutter. The emperor sides with me before it finishes trembling in front of her son, and consort Shen spends the rest of the banquet studying her plate. The court files a memo, capital wide, effective immediately. The wastrel bites and the emperor holds the leash loose on purpose. Then the trap I set a month ago springs in full court, exactly on schedule. The own censor stands up, unrolls his memorial with a flourish. He's clearly practiced and impeaches me for pawning the imperial gifts, disrespect to the throne, disgrace to the ancestors. He has dates, he has the pawn shop's name, he has witnesses. Of course he does. I made sure the transaction was loud. Gasps run the hall. My uncle's faction arranges its faces into sorrowful duty. The emperor turns to me with a look of, well, boy, and I go full tragedy, shoulders down, eyes bright, voice cracking exactly once on the word hungry, which took rehearsal. You see, I explain, I pawned them because I am poor. The great land royal mansion, and I invite the hall to sit with this, runs on the third madam's dowry, or so its stewards tell me when I ask for pocket money. The heir of the war god's line is refused bird's nest soup, denied 10,000 taels from accounts his own father filled, fed scraps of his inheritance by the loving relatives who control the ledgers, while their own courtyards renovate twice a year. I just wanted to buy my little companion some winter clothes. What was I to sell, gentlemen? My father's memorial tablets. Half the hall is looking at my uncles now. The other half is doing arithmetic on those renovations. And I land the closing question softly, like setting down a cup. Is there, in fact, any law against pawning gifts one owns? There is not. The censor gets sent home to reflect on his career. And the emperor, now looking at my dear uncles with entirely new eyes, issues the decree I built this entire play to get. The family is split. Step-grandmother, third master, fourth master, out of the land royal mansion, separate residences, separate accounts. They walked in, planning to impeach me, and walked out evicted. The pawn shop was never the point. The point was making the theft of my house so loud, the Son of Heaven personally unstole it. House cleaned, I go shopping for a career, and I aim it exactly where my enemies keep their hearts. Battle beasts. Understand what battle beasts are here. This world's armies don't ride living monsters into war. War beast masters craft them, forge bodies from refined materials, bind spirits into them, artificial war machines in animal shapes, which is to say this entire continent runs on mechs. Fantasy-flavored, jade-powered, incense-smoke mechs. But mechs. And I was the best mech engineer of a spacefaring civilization. Walking into this world's Ministry of Works with my resume is not a career move. It's a war crime against fair competition, and nobody knows it yet. I asked the emperor for a post as vice minister of the Ministry of Works. The court thinks it's hilarious. The ministry is run by the old prince, the emperor's grand uncle, a mystic rank beast warrior with a temper so famous, parents use him to threaten children. Everyone settles in to watch the wastrel get eaten. Day 1 hands me a bonus target. Mo Meihua, the Yue family's precious daughter and Wei Jun's admirer, performs her 3-meter fox battle beast for the ministry crowd, then invites my expert opinion with a smirk you could skate on. Expert opinion delivered. Showy, impractical, wasteful joints, ornamental armor. The crowd waits for me to be laughed out, except Wei Xuan, Wei Jun's second brother, and the sharpest young beast talent in the capital, goes quiet, looks again, and confirms every point. Mo Meihua goes scarlet and challenges me to a refining duel. 2 weeks, Royal Battle Beast Arena, Royal provided materials. Her stake, 3 pieces of spirit jade. My stake, a public apology shouted from the highest point in the city. Deal. But first, I have an abduction to attend. Mid-festival season, deep night, I arrive at the censor's residence with 30 of my most decorative new guards chosen for shoulders and cheekbones because the cover story needs to look right and kick the front door in like a debt collector. The household boils out with sticks and lanterns. We beat them, courteously, furniture grade damage only. The censor himself storms into his own courtyard in his nightcap to bellow about law, and I personally hand him the counter-argument twice and step over him. Su Rui, I announce to the whole compound, loudly for the record, you're too beautiful to waste here. This young master is taking you home. And I carry off Su Rui, who plays his part with the wooden despair of a kidnapped maiden and nearly ruins the whole operation by laughing, plus his mother, gently, in a proper carriage with her divorce papers pre-filed that afternoon and her antidote regimen already waiting in my mansion. By morning, the capital knows the shameless Lan Wei stole the censor's son for his beauty, and the city enjoys it enormously. By evening, my agents have flipped the story inside out. The wife demoted to concubine for a mistress's convenience. The 3-year-old poisoned to protect the stepmother's own children. The 20 years of quiet cruelty and public sympathy executes a full pivot onto everyone in that house except the censor, whose colleagues begin avoiding him at work. The emperor summons me, delivers a scolding with no verbs in it, and docks me half a year's salary, which for me is like finding the ocean a bucket. On the way out, Eunuch Hu quietly mentions his majesty laughed for a quarter hour after I left the last time. I know, Eunuch Hao, why do you think I perform? Su Rui moves into my mansion, sets up a medicine hall, and starts being quietly indispensable. His mother, dosed with the antidote herbs I bought her, keeps color in her face for the first time in a decade, and takes over my mansion's tailoring out of gratitude nobody asked her to feel. Her son watches her laugh at something Chu says in the courtyard one evening, and turns to me with a face fighting itself, and I wave it off before it becomes a speech. Pay me in results, Su Rui. He does. For the rest of this story, every poison my enemies deploy dies in his workroom before lunch, and every soldier of mine who can be saved is. Best abduction I ever committed, 1 down. And at night, the strangest domestic comedy on the continent plays out in my bedroom. Xiao Longlong has decided he sleeps in my bed now. He announced it the way weather announces itself, by simply occurring. One evening, there was a small cold presence on the far pillow radiating do not comment, and I filed the whole arrangement under adopting a cat, because what I see is a lonely, proud child who freezes when hugged and then doesn't leave. He permits my existence with the enthusiasm of a tax audit. He complains about my blanket stealing in the mornings with the gravity of a man reading war dispatches. He is, and I will die on this hill, adorable. Except here's what I don't know. The dragon pendant on his wrist and the phoenix pendant on my chest are a resonating pair, and every night while we sleep, they hum together, feeding each other, nourishing us both. His cultivation, my meridians, a slow, silent gift exchange neither of us is admitting to. He notices within the first week. He, who came to this kingdom for the sole purpose of taking that pendant back, who could lift it off me any night with a flick of soul power, notices and says nothing and lets me keep it. When I finally learn why, much later, it costs me a full minute of speech. The escalation is glacial and completely one-directional, which is to say, mine. First, he tolerates the hand-holding, rigid as furniture, then the cheek-pinching, and understand the scale of this crime. His subordinates have watched grown kings lose the power of speech in his presence. There are war councils on other continents that adjourn when his name comes up. And here's this border playboy squishing the Dark Emperor's face like fresh dough and calling him Xiao Long Long. His manager witnesses it once and has to leave the room. Then one night, tucking him in, I joke that, with a face like his, he can be my child husband when he grows up. The room goes still in a way I attribute to drafts. He doesn't kill me, he notes it down. Somewhere in that small, terrifying head, a ledger entry is made in permanent ink, and years of my life are already spent, and I'm smiling at him like a fool, fluffing his pillow, completely unaware that I've just signed something. I really thought I was the one setting hooks in this house. 2 weeks in the ministry, and the old prince starts my education the traditional way, which is hazing. 7 days in 7 storerooms, sorting parts and materials, no explanations, no teaching, just an old man's snort whenever I emerge. The other officials hide their smiles. They don't know I recognize this curriculum. My first mech master ran the exact same apprenticeship, learned the body before the blueprint, and I sorted a warehouse for him too. 40 years of scrap in a week, so I sort 7 rooms, 40 years of parts. I learn every alloy this world smelts, every joint design, every failure pattern, by hand, the way you learn a lover's handwriting. The officials peek in daily, hoping for tears. They find inventory tags. On day 3, the old prince stops snorting when he passes. On day 5, he starts leaving, harder rooms unlocked. The old man thinks he's testing me. He's feeding me. And at night, I read the ministry's entire classical library, cover to cover, because this brain came with my mental energy attached, and my memory takes photographs. 1,000 years of battle beast theory in 6 nights. Half of it is wrong. The wrong half is the useful half. It tells me exactly which mistakes this civilization has been building into its war machines for centuries, and exactly where a woman with different textbooks can stand on their necks. Meanwhile, my evicted uncles attempt a comeback tour and get the full new management experience, and the 3rd and 4th masters show up at my gates with a hired crowd, professional mourners and rented scholars, to weep about filial injustice for the benefit of the street. A nephew who casts out his elders. Oh, the ancestors. Oh, the shame. I come out, listen politely to a full verse of it, and then have them beaten in front of their own audience, thoroughly. 3 months of bed rest each. The hired crowd, discovering that their fee does not include hazard pay, evaporates, and when the 4th master, mid-beating, breaks free and lunges at me with genuine murder in his hands, I let him get exactly close enough for every witness to see it clearly. Congratulations, uncle. That's attempted assault on a royal heir, in public, in daylight. Enjoy the cell. Before the guards drag him off, I crouch down to his level and mention quietly, just for him, that I know exactly who ordered the villa assassination last year, that I know the arrow was meant for Wei Jun and whose silver paid the archer, and where the leftover payment sits. His face does something complicated, terror and recalculation fighting for the wheel. Good. Let them all understand the Wastrel sees in the dark now. Then I go after the money, because rage is temporary and assets are forever. Every shop they embezzled from the estate gets quietly strangled. My new merchant contacts dry up their suppliers. My playboy friends make their establishments unfashionable in 1 season, until the uncles sell back to me at floor prices just to stop the bleeding. The stolen farmland gets converted to sacrificial land, dedicated to my grandfather's memorial rights, which makes it legally untouchable, tax-free, and mine, and dares anyone to object to filial piety. The same weapon they swung at me all my childhood filed to my edge now. Back in the ministry, day 8, the old prince finally lets me touch a workbench. First refining lesson, fuse materials into a beast component. Ministry passing grade is 60% fusion. The old prince's personal record, the best in the country, hovers past 90. I hit 90 plus on my first try, and I want you to know I was sandbagging. My mechs back home fused at 100, but a girl should leave room for character growth, and a first-day miracle should be implausible, not impossible. There's an art to how much genius you unveil per quarter. The workshop goes silent. Lin Kai, the old prince's disciple, looks at his own hands like they've betrayed him. Zhou Fang, the left vice minister, sits down slowly on a crate. The old prince stares at me for a long moment and says, mostly to himself, finally, a good seedling. It's the warmest thing anyone in this dynasty has said to me, and it's about my joint tolerances. There's exactly one component in their whole discipline I don't recognize. The spirit power source, the jade-based heart that powers every battle beast, my world-used energy cores. This one grows batteries and rocks. The old prince promises a demonstration in 3 days, and for the first time since the spaceship blew up, I'm excited about homework. 3 days later, the demonstration. The old prince clears his personal workshop, which no junior has entered in a decade, sets a red spirit jade on the bench and works, and I finally get to watch a master of this world at full craft, and it's beautiful. I want that on the record before I ruin the mood with economics. 40 years of muscle memory in every cut. The jade shaved into the resonance lattice by feel, no instruments, the old man's fingers reading vibrations my tools would need 3 gauges to find. He finishes in 2 hours, sweating, and holds up a live spirit power source, and his face dares me to be unimpressed. I'm impressed. I'm also doing sums because through the demonstration, I finally see the shape of this world's economy. The sources are cut from spirit jade, 7 ranks of it, red at the bottom, purple at the top. 1 red jade costs 200,000 toils raw. A finished source sells for 5 to 800,000, and here's the ugly part. Our whole tier of lower-ranked countries can't make enough of them, so we buy from foreign chambers of commerce at whatever price the upper countries feel like charging. It's a leash. Every army on this border wears it. The old prince tells me maybe 1 attempt in 4 works, even for him. I craft one on my first try. The old man looks at the finished source, then at me, then at the source, and his famous temper does something I'm told it has never done before, which is go quiet. That evening he starts introducing me to visitors as his colleague instead of the new vice minister, which in Old Prince is a declaration of love. Then I find the scrap room and I have to sit down. Decades of failed components, cracked sources, dead beast cores, mountains of it, all headed for the smelter. To them it's garbage. To my repair ability, it's food. Every broken thing I fix levels the ability up, and this room is an all-you-can-eat buffet. I start staying late. The ability starts climbing. Nobody asks why the Wastrel volunteers for janitorial duty because it fits their favorite theory that I'm hiding from real work. One person does notice. My tiny roommate brushes my sleeping mind with his soul power one night, purely routine surveillance, he'd say, and stumbles into the truth of my repair secret. The Dark Emperor of Qinglong Country now knows the Wastrel Prince carries an ability this world has no name for. And what does he do with the most valuable secret on the continent? He buries it, orders my file at the Longjin Pavilion encrypted and frozen, no access, not even for his own vice masters. Then he skips the Nine Dragon Festival, the event his own country expects him at, to keep sleeping in my bed with his pendant humming against mine. His vice pavilion master, receiving these orders, reportedly checked them 3 times for forgery. Of course, a ministry has more than one minister, and the other one comes with the standard equipment. Minister Guo blocks my scrap removal permits out of pure territorial spite. Arashiri Jasnature Karma Bai. I show up with the old prince's own signed document, read it to him slowly in front of his subordinates, and when he escalates to hands, I beat a man 1 full rank above me in front of his entire department. The old prince uses the incident to formally sever our 2 ministries and claw back 5 battle beasts Guo had promised to the Li family army. Guo limps off to join the first prince's faction, where all my rejects eventually pool like a drain. 2 weeks gone. Arena day. The royal battle beast arena fills to the rafters. The emperor attends in good humor. The old prince attends in bad humor, which is his good humor. The betting stalls give me odds so insulting, I send a servant to place a bet on myself, large, because free money shouldn't be wasted on principle. Mo Meihua arrives with an entourage, a new dress, and her intermediate grade Cobra battle beast polished to a mirror shine, 3 meters of banded coils and inlaid fang work. Honestly gorgeous, her family's craft is real. She also brings the smirk with generations of money behind it, and Wei Jun in her cheering section, which adds a pleasant vinegar note to the day. The royal materials table offers everything up to intermediate grade. I select the cheapest tier on it, low grade cores, plain plating. The stewards double check my choices out of pity, and I build a mongoose. mongoose, half her cobra's size, no ornament. The stands actually laugh out loud when I present it, a low-grade weasel against the Yue family's serpent, and I let them laugh because the beast is not the show. The show comes first. Before the duel, I request a workbench, center stage, and craft a spirit power source live, my improved design, in full view of every warbeast master in the kingdom. 15 minutes. No failures, no drama, Jade to finished source in one pass, which alone makes the professional seats go quiet because they all know the 1 in 4 failure rate. Then I hand it to the old prince for public verification. The old man doesn't do favors. He runs my source against a standard one, side by side, 2 identical battle beasts working the same combat drill, one on each source, while the arena watches the drill clock. The standard beast winds down on schedule. Mine keeps going. I'm really the old prince checks the instruments twice and announces the result in the voice he usually saves for scolding ministers. 30 to 40% more output and duration, improved design, verified. The betting stall stop taking bets mid-sentence. Then the duel, and it lasts as long as biology says it should. Mo Meihua sends her cobra in with a flourish, hood spread, strikes fast as falling rain. My mongoose isn't there for any of them. Slip, slip, slip. The little beast reads the rhythm like sheet music, and the crowd's laughter dies into a new sound, the sound of people leaning forward. On the 5th strike, my mongoose is suddenly behind the hood, jaws locked, and then in front of the emperor, the court, and the entire assembled aristocracy of Yin country, it swallows her precious intermediate battle beast whole, tail last, like noodles. The arena makes a noise I have no word for. Somewhere in it, the old prince starts laughing, which frightens people more than the mongoose did. Natural enemy of snakes, I tell Mo Meihua, who has gone the color of good porcelain. You brought a snake. Can he vomit up your breakfast? No? Then neither can you. She screams and comes at me with her whip, which legally makes everything that happens next self-defense, though what happens next is only disarmament. I'm gracious in victory. She pays her 3 red spirit jades. Wei Jun jumps the barrier to defend her honor and finds his own brothers blocking his path. Wei Xuan on principle. Wei Bo with an apology to me for the family embarrassment, and I close the day with a small investment. In front of everyone, I offer Moly my sympathies, so publicly and so specifically, about how hard it must be watching a stepmother's daughter shine in the family spotlight while his real elder sister Mo Yingyue is kept invisible, that half the capital goes home asking who Mo Yingyue is and why the Yue family hides her. Consort Yue, the family's palace asset, chokes on her wine. Moly stares at me like I've handed him a knife he's wanted his whole life. Seeds, you plant them in spring. The emperor watches all of it with wet bright eyes and tells his eunuch, loud enough for me to hear, just like his father, then quieter, no, beyond him. That night, after the arena, my tiny housemate climbs onto the couch, arranges himself with imperial formality, and fixes me with his ancient black stare. He watched the mongoose eat a snake in front of an empire today, and he has processed this information into a demand. What beast will I craft for him when he's grown? I put down my tea, take his small hand, and hook his pinky with mine, an old promise gesture from a world he's never heard of. I'll be your exclusive war beast master. The strongest battle beast on the Jiulong continent, custom built, one owner only. Nobody else gets one better. Deal? He studies our linked fingers like a contract clause he's stress testing. If you break your word, says the 5-year-old, with the calm of a man who has ended dynasties, I'll kill you. Sure, I say, and squish his cheek. I would like the record to show that I thought this was adorable. I had all the puzzle pieces face up on the table, the Longyan Pavilion's terror, the pendant games, the surveillance-grade soul power, and I cooed them. Recruitment continues. A merchant heir named Tao Guang turns up half dead in my city, hunted by assassins his own younger brother hired. The file on him reads like a folk song about ingratitude. Built his family into the top merchant house of Nantong City by 25, betrayed by the brother who wanted the chair, betrayed by the fiancé who married said brother while the body was still officially warm, declared dead by a family that identified a stranger's ruined corpse a little too eagerly and buried him with honors and relief. He's been running for 2 years. He has an innate material sensing ability that can price a warehouse through the wall, a merchant education worth more than most treasuries, and a heart that's been through a bone saw. I sit across from him and make the offer plain. Work for me. Freedom guaranteed in writing, and one day, when you're ready, we go back to Nantong City together and present your family with an itemized bill. He looks at me for a long time, then he asks what his duties are. Within 2 days, he's running my household like a precision instrument. Within a month, my accounts have never been healthier, and my kitchens have never been cheaper, and the man still bows a little too carefully, like someone waiting for the catch. There's no catch, Tao Guang, but file the revenge promise. This story pays its debts with interest, and yours is coming in Act 5. Then I do something that makes the whole capital call me an idiot again, which is how I know it's working. At a dinner with Mo Li, Mo Yingyue, Wei Bo, and Wei Xuan, I teach my improved source method. Free, no oath, no price. They stare at me like I've started handing out organs, but watch the board, not the piece. Weibo immediately contracts sources for the entire Imperial Guard, paying in red jades, and offers military materials at a discount. Mo Li, drowning in his family's contempt, signs on as a secret ally and hands me access to the Yue family's scrap warehouse, mountains of dead battle beasts, in exchange for sources. His family laughs at the trade. Scrap for treasure. Nobody knows scrap is my treasure. Every broken core I repair feeds the ability that makes all of this possible, and I declare openly at that table that I stand with the crown prince. In this capital, that sentence is a will. I mean it as a forecast. Fame arrives on schedule, and fame in this capital is a contact sport. Warbeast masters mob the ministry gates from dawn, seeking apprenticeship, seeking commissions, seeking to touch my workbench for luck. One elderly master simply stands in the courtyard, weeping at a finished source like it's a religious relic. The ministry's old guard convenes a solemn session to demand my improved method be surrendered to the state, for the good of the nation, they say, with Minister Guo's faction nodding hardest, and I decline on the simple grounds that the state, as currently constituted, includes Minister Guo. I teach it to Zhou Feng and Lin Kai instead, personally, for free, and let the old guard chew on the fact that generosity in my house is invitation only. The military field reports come back reading like fan mail. Beasts running the news sources march further, hit harder, and cost less jade per campaign, a different technology, which is what it is. Wei Jun, incidentally, has been packed off to a border garrison by his own family for seasoning, which spares us both his face at my counter, and the Longyan Pavilion auctions my first 10 consigned sources at 800,000 each, 8 million taels, one evening from a workshop that officially employs one Wastrel and his hobby. I spend it the same night because the auction has 3 things I need and 1 thing I want, and because watching me spend 8 million taels in one sitting will keep the capital's opinion of me exactly where I've parked it, at Rich Idiot. All the alchemy herbs in the catalog, 4 million, cleared in bulk lots for Surui's medicine hall. The crowd titters, the wastrel buys plants. Someone in a nearby box wonders aloud whether I'm opening a salad restaurant. Surui, sitting behind me, keeps a face of stone while I hand him the future of a pharmaceutical empire lot by lot. Then the broken formation disc and the room's first real fight. It's a cracked disc of dead metal and worn engraving, catalog listing, origin unknown, function unknown, damaged beyond repair, useless to every soul in the hall except the one person who repairs the unrepairable and the one tiny person beside me who goes very still when it's carried out and says quietly, "Take it." His intuition doesn't chat. I bid, and a silver-masked buyer in a corner box, dark night sect by the cut of him, bids back and keeps bidding with the tempo of a man following orders rather than taste. We climb past 3 million, past 4, the hall whispering, 2 lunatics dueling over scrap. At 4.5 million, his pauses get longer and mine don't because I'm spending stolen family money and he's spending somebody's operational budget. He stops. I collect my scrap. Under the table, a small hand rests on my sleeve for exactly 1 second, which from Xiao Long Long is a parade. What we bought, we confirm later, is a key. The disc is keyed to an ancient cultivator's cave inside the Kunlun's secret realm, the pocket world at the 3-country border that opens in 6 months. Remember this purchase. It buys us a mountain of trouble and 1 miracle. Then the celestial jade spirit wood, the lot I actually came for, the material that matches the broken cultivation technique in my Dantian, the murder weapon my uncle's installed that I intend to repair into a ladder. And the fight for it comes with a title card because my opposing bidder is the vice president of the Alchemist Alliance himself, Consort Yui's grandfather, a man whose organization controls pill supply for half the lower kingdoms. We trade bids to 8 million, 9, and then he stops bidding and starts threatening, out loud, smiling, that certain households which annoy the Alliance may find pills very hard to buy. The hall goes quiet the way it does when someone's about to lose face, and no one knows who's yet. Fair warning deserves fair warning, I tell him, just as pleasantly. Households connected to certain vice presidents may find spirit power sources very hard to buy, also repairs, also battle beasts, and I let the room do its own math because everyone present holds a number in their head, what they'd pay for his pills, what they'd pay for my sources, and I can watch the subtraction happen on 50 faces at once. Pills have substitutes. I don't. He folds at 10.1 million. To me, the wood is mine. His granddaughter's faction adds another line to their ledger of grievances, which is now longer than some scriptures, and I sleep wonderfully. And 2 yellow spirit jades to close the night, 10 million even, because Juan-grade sources will need them, and because ending an auction without one last gasp from the audience is bad theater. I pay part of it in battle beasts, 15 custom units, at 2 million each, and the auction house treats me like visiting royalty on the way out. Somewhere in the gallery, the Vice Pavilion Master of Longyin watches his Supreme Master, the Dark Emperor, sit through all this in a child's body on my lap, letting me feed him candied fruit, and I'm told the man had to step outside and stare at a wall. The ride home is where the bill comes due. They hit us in a lantern-dark street 2 blocks from the mansion. 15 assassins, Dark Knight sect, the silver mass of their elite front and center, and the target isn't my purse, it's the formation disc. Someone wanted that scrap badly enough to send a full kill team into the royal quarter. The first volley takes 2 of my guards off their feet. I put Xiao Longlong behind me and go to work. Understand the math. I'm yellow rank 7 in a fight where the leads are yellow 8 and 9. 2 ranks up, at night, outnumbered, guarding a child. It's the kind of math I used to do for a living, and I'm holding, blade to blade, needlework in the gaps, 3 of them down, 4 when the street does the one thing I hadn't priced in. A silver mask gets past me, and a blade settles against Xiao Longlong's small throat. The world goes red. The flawed technique picks that exact moment to trigger. G deviation, the assassination my uncles installed years ago. Bloodlust, flooding up my meridians, like oil catching fire. And here's the joke history plays on them. Their weapon detonates at the precise moment when what it wants and what I want are the same thing. What happens in the next minute I mostly know from witnesses. I take the sword through my own shoulder all the way because stepping into the thrust was the only line that put my body between the edge and the child. The man holding it does not get to regret his choices. None of them do. 15 professional killers go down like a scythed field, and the red keeps rising, and there's no enemy left, and it needs one. And I turn on my own guard Lan Chen without recognizing his face. A flute stops me. A melody, thin and silver, cuts through the red like a lighthouse through fog. My hands stop first. Then my knees fold. The last thing I see is a small figure walking toward me through the wreckage, unhurried, playing, black eyes fixed on me like an anchor line, and the last thing I feel is being caught, which is not something arms that size should be able to do. I wake up 2 days later in my own bed, shoulder packed with medicine, meridians humming strangely, and take inventory of a changed world. First, my seal broke during the fight. The spider lily on my chest cracked under the Qui deviation, and my tiny roommate carrying me home has discovered that his playboy landlord is a girl. I brace for the fallout of my life's biggest secret, and there isn't any. He fixed the seal himself, resealed it with a delicacy that no 5-year-old's hands should own, said nothing to anyone, and has been sitting by my bed for 2 days with a book he isn't reading. When I open my eyes, he closes the book and informs me coldly that I'm an idiot. Noted, Your Majesty. Second, the strange hum in my meridians is a Zwan-grade recovery pill, the kind of pill kingdoms don't own, the kind that jumped me a full cultivation rank overnight as a side effect of saving my life. When I ask where a small child got the pharmaceutical reserves of an empire, he looks at me until I stop asking. Third, by his order, the Dark Knight sect no longer exists as an independent organization. The oldest assassin brotherhood in the region, the one I once threatened to flatten as a figure of speech. Overnight, absorbed, leadership retired, filed. He phrases it as, they were no longer necessary, in the exact tone I use for canceling dinner reservations. I ask him over breakfast why he did all that. He asks me, not looking up, why I shielded him. You're important to me, I say honestly, because near death does that. He sets down his spoon, looks at me with those bottomless black eyes, and says, then I'll offer myself. I laugh and ruffle his hair and tell him to ask again when he's older, and he lets me, the way a fisherman lets a fish tire itself out. Think you can escape? He says to his soup, in a voice I decide I imagine. Recovery week is upgrade week. I lock my door, lay out the celestial jade spirit wood, and put my repair ability to the job it was smuggled across universes to do. The flawed cultivation technique, the one built to kill me, goes under the knife. The ability reads the gaps like torn pages, and the spirit wood fills them in, missing passages resurfacing line by line. And when it's done, I'm holding the completed upper volume of something my uncles thought was a booby trap. The lower volume stays sealed, and the text hints at ranks above heaven rank, which is a problem for future me and a very motivated future me at that. My murder weapon is now my engine. I'd write my uncles a thank you note, but they're about to get several, all shaped like consequences. The Phoenix pendant eats both yellow spirit jades for breakfast, barely regains a shimmer, and goes back to sleep. Whatever this thing is, jade to it is what a raindrop is to a drought. I stop guessing its grade and just keep feeding it. And from the leftover spirit wood, I carve 2 small pendants. Plain wood, matched pair, one for me, one for the tiny tyrant. He receives the cheapest gift anyone has ever dared hand him, closes his small fist around it, and wears it from that day on, every day, next to a dragon jade that could buy a province. Meanwhile, the capital digests the assassin incident. The first and third prince factions spread the story that Lan Yue went mad and slaughtered 15 men, expecting horror. What they actually manufacture is respect with a side of terror, which suits me fine. Fear is cheaper than guards, and my repair talent gets its public debut, carefully staged. Lord Huan of the General's Mansion has a dead mystic grade battle beast family heirloom. Beyond saving, I fix it. The city's experts announce that repair talent appears in maybe one war beast master in 10,000, and conveniently, my father had it too, so the whole thing files neatly under heredity instead of under questions I can't answer. The general's son I once had beaten comes to apologize through his teeth, and the military starts a queue at my door. Wagon loads of broken battle beasts cash on delivery. They think they're hiring a repair service. They're feeding my ability like a festival pig and paying me for the privilege. Next stop, the underground amusement park, the capital's gilded sin pit, owned by the Xiaoyao king himself, the emperor's famously idle brother. Gao Lin drags me there for entertainment. I leave with a prince. He's the lot nobody bids on. The black market block brings out a gentle, jade-pale young man who stands in the lamplight with his chin level and his hands folded, selling himself with more dignity than the auctioneer has ever owned, and the previous owner's memories supply the story before the barker does. Yue Wuxia, prince of Yue country, which stopped existing a few years ago, eaten by its neighbors, its royal family scattered into exactly this kind of room. He states his own condition to the bidders, calmly, the poise of a man selling his last possession, which is himself. Whoever buys him must also shelter the exiled remnant of his people, several hundred refugees, old folk, craftsmen, children. The room laughs. Refugees, expensive charity attached to a pretty face. The bidding dies before it starts. I raise my hand, 5 spirit power sources, and I'll take the clause. The hall gasps at the price. 5 sources is provincial treasury money, and Gao Lin beside me makes a sound like a kettle. And the young man on the block looks at me for a long moment with an expression that has already survived every kind of hope. We shake on the refugee clause in front of witnesses. And I try very hard not to look as pleased as I am, because charity is the cover story. His scattered people are the master plant growers and spirit wood cultivators of the old Yue country, the exact skill base my future plans are starving for. Agriculture, battle beast materials, terraforming. I've just bought a national agricultural academy that thinks it's a debt. And the prince himself moves like a man hiding a royal bloodline ability under all that gentleness. Something in the way growing things lean toward him. Charity, sure, let's call it that. My accountant calls it the best acquisition of the fiscal year. Xiao Longlong watches me acquire yet another beauty and delivers an ultimatum at bedtime. Tiny arms crossed. I'm to touch no other beauties, only him. I negotiate this down to a trade. Fine, but then he has to sleep in my arms voluntarily instead of pretending he drifted there by accident. We shake on it, both convinced we won. Then the gambling stones tables, and this part is just theft with extra steps. The game is ancient and honest in its dishonesty. Rough stones from the spirit mines, contents unknown, cut them open after purchase, buyer's risk. Most stones hold gravel. The house wins on ignorance, and the house has been winning on ignorance since before my grandfather was born. Except my repairability reads jade through rock-like print. A little heat in my chest for quality, a directional tug for grade. To me, that whole table of mystery stones is a menu with prices showing. I browse, I hem, I perform indecision for the crowd, tapping stones, listening to them like melons, and I buy 22, including, for cover, several I know are empty, because a flawless record is a confession. The cutting table draws a crowd, then a bigger crowd, then the kind of crowd that needs guards because my stones keep opening green and gold. 10 jades from 22 stones, 3 yellow, 1 supreme grade red that makes the appraiser's hand shake. The duds I open with theatrical despair, wiping my brow so the house can keep believing in luck. The house does not believe in luck. The house counts the table, counts my picks, realizes that everything with a heartbeat left in that pile walked out under my arm, and sends with great politeness for the owner. Which is how I finally meet the Jiao Yao King, Wei Anli, purple robes, lazy smile. A wine cup he never seems to drink from, the capital's most decorative royal, the emperor's idle brother, owner of every profitable vice den in the city, allegedly interested in nothing. He takes one look at my face and the laziness falls off him like a dropped coat. The second man of this dynasty to look at me like a returned ghost. We talk, or rather, he talks, and the story hands me something I didn't buy at any table in his establishment. He's been protecting me since I was 6. His people, not fortune, pulled the original out of the villa assassination. His shadows have been on my street corners for a decade, quietly deleting problems before they reached me. All those years, the family thought the heir was surviving on luck. All of it for the sake of a person he loved and lost to my family a generation ago. And he doesn't say which of my parents, and his eyes ask me not to ask. Then he looks me over, the new me, the one who flattens marquee heirs and guts ministries, and something in him unclenches. You've grown teeth, he says. He formally retires from secret guardianship with visible relief, the way a man sets down a weight he's carried so long he forgot it was optional. And he leaves me an open invitation in place of the shadows. Call me Uncle Ren, an emperor who dotes on me, a king who guarded me. My parents left debts of love scattered all over this dynasty, and apparently I'm the designated heir to those too. It's the strangest inheritance in the estate, and the only one nobody tried to steal. An emperor who dotes on me, a king who guarded me. My parents left debts of love all over this dynasty, and apparently I'm the designated heir to those too. Team assembled, I gather them for the dinner that decides everything. Su Rui, poisoner's son, medicine and strategy. Tao Guang, betrayed heir, commerce and construction. Yue Wuxia, landless prince, agriculture and several hundred loyal refugees. 3 brilliant men the world threw away, sitting at my table wondering what the catch is. The catch is a 1-year pact, and I read them the terms myself. Serve a year. Prove yourselves. At year's end, stay or go free. Your choice. No penalty. Papers pre-signed. No chains in this house, ever. I've seen what chain talent builds, and it's always a bomb under your own floor. Then I clear the dishes and unroll the map, and I put my finger on the spot the court uses as a punchline. My fief. Assigned to the land family generations ago and never once visited, the poorest border territory in the kingdom, 1/15 of the country's land, wedged into the armpit between both hostile neighbors, population fleeing, farmland dead, Xia City. That punchline, I tell them, is going to be the richest land in the lower-ranked countries. First settlers, your refugees, Wuxia, with land deeds. First industry, everything I know. And gentlemen, you have no concept yet of how much I know. First army, the Lan family army. Once I take it back from the vultures, 5 years, ask your questions. Surui asks about medicine supply lines. Tao Guang asks about trade routes and tax structure. Yue Wuxia asks very quietly whether his people's dead will be allowed a memorial in the new city. And I say yes. Stone, Central District, and something in his face finishes healing. 3 ambitious men look at the map of a wasteland and catch fire. That's the trick with brilliant people nobody wanted. You don't have to motivate them. You just have to unlock the door and stand out of the draft. The battle beast business, meanwhile, grows a sales force I never hired. The playboy circle, Gao Lin and his fellow disappointments turn out to be born marketers. They have nothing to do all day. Everyone owes them gossip, and they treat my product launches like religious festivals. A duke's son bragging about his new beast at 7 dinner parties a week is advertising you cannot purchase. So Lizeo of the Li Mansion decides to break the toy in public. He stages it properly, a street demonstration, a hired expert with an advanced grade Black Bear Battle Beast, a loud challenge to one of Gowlin's maids and her base model beast from my shop. Advanced versus base grade. On paper, an execution. A crowd gathers to watch my brand die. The maid, bless her, doesn't even look nervous because she's read her manual. Her base model beast circles the bear once, reads its rhythm, slips the first swipe, the second, then goes through the bear's guard like a bill collector and shatters it, plating, frame, the works. And then, while the hired expert stands there cradling his career, her little beast tidily eats the dead bear's spirit jade off the cobblestones, on stage, in front of everyone, which spills my second trade secret to the whole capital at once. My battle beasts level up. They devour jade and materials, and they grow permanently like living things, mech tech fusion dressed in fur, and this world has never seen anything like it. A base beast today is an advanced beast by winter. The market doesn't react. The market goes feral. Nobles who sneered at my shop last month are sending stewards with blank checks and formal apologies. So I set shop rules like a casino. Payment in materials, herbs, and spirit jade preferred, because money I have, feedstock I need. Triple price if you insist on silver. There's a queue. The queue is long. No, your family name doesn't move you up it. And a priority lane for beauties, which the whole capital treats as the Wastrel's little joke, and which is actually recruitment screening, because talented people are disproportionately people someone bothered to raise well. And fine, also because I like nice faces, I contain multitudes. My enemies adapt too. The third prince and consort Yue, freshly burned, stop attacking me directly and go for the oldest trick in the manual, the borrowed knife. They leak a rumor beyond our borders that the Lawn Heir holds the War Beast Atlas, the legendary relic of my father, a book of battle beast diagrams up to heaven grade that upper countries would sack cities for. Foreign spies begin drifting into the capital like flies to an open jar. Jokes on everyone. At that point, I didn't even have the thing. The honey trap season this rumor kicks off deserves its own chronicle. Noble houses, foreign agents, everyone suddenly has a stunning son with free time, and my gate turns into a beauty pageant with ulterior motives. I hire exactly one of them, Yan Li, the imperial tutor's grandson, because his admiration is the genuine article. The man just really likes battle beasts, and he leaves with a flying Black Panther and undying loyalty, and one applicant outleagues the entire field. Lian, headliner of the Heavenly Heavens, the continent-spanning entertainment empire, whose tours make emperors reschedule wars, arrives in my city with a retinue the size of an embassy and requests a private audience with a famous beast-crafting prince. Beauty like a weapon system, every gesture choreographed, and underneath the perfume, a cultivation my instincts rank somewhere above the old princes, which no singer on any continent needs. Foreign royalty in costume, obviously. One of the super hegemon countries, if I had to bet, and I always bet. We spend a delightful afternoon flirting like two card sharps, admiring each other's sleeves. Every compliment is a probe. Every laugh is a feint. Lian fishes for my crafting secrets with the delicacy of a master and gets fed the exact 3 facts I publish anyway. In return, I fish for the homeland and get weather anecdotes with the serial numbers filed off. Marvelous game, best opponent in months. Then the commission, a battle beast, price no object. Surprise me. So I craft a winged white tiger, storm gray eyes, wingspan like a war banner, 90% compatibility on first binding, and the look on that painted face when the tiger lands is worth every scrap of material. It's the look of someone recognizing their homeland's divine beast, their nation's sacred animal, in a border town gift shop, priced in local currency, built better than the temple statues. Lian covers it in half a heartbeat, but half a heartbeat is a confession in my business. White tiger country, noted, filed, smiled at. At some point, my tiny housemate and my glamorous guest have a conversation over my head, divine sense only, silent to the room. I learn the contents much later. Leon recognized the child. The child suggested Leon remember what happens to people who touch his things. Leon, horrified on several levels, most of them professional, retreated to write letters home about the dark emperor of Qinglong sitting in a wastrel's lap in a vassal kingdom, tolerating cheek pinches. Me, oblivious, I cap the evening by declaring to my whole household, staff assembled, wine in hand, that Xiao Longlong is my future queen, and I'm raising him accordingly. All suitors may disperse. The household applauds because my household has learned to applaud. The 5-year-old accepts his coronation with terrifying serenity, finishes his dessert, and requests, since he's to be queen, approval authority over my other acquisitions, which I grant, laughing because it's adorable. It was not adorable. It was a contract negotiation, and I initialed every clause. In his internal ledger, I find out eventually the entry reads differently from mine. She touched me. She announced me. She's mine. Let her think she's the fisherman. The net doesn't need her opinion. He even suppresses his own advancement to stay small, an underfoot longer. The most powerful man on the continent sandbagging his cultivation to keep his surveillance post in my bed. Romance is regional, I guess. Court life escalates in parallel. The emperor orders me to attend morning court over my loud objections because the imperial tutor wants me groomed for the 3 Kingdoms War Beast competition 2 months out. That competition matters. The Kunlun's secret realm at the 3-country border opens a month after it. 100 entry slots split by competition results. 50, 30, 20. The realm is where the formation discs cave is. I need those slots. Also, I build a car. Look. The roads here are terrible. Palanquins move at the speed of dignity, and I had an engine sitting in my workshop in the form of a spirit power source. The rest is just chassis. A flying sports car, red, because if you're going to commit vehicular heresy, commit. Low-slung refined iron body, seatbelts, because I'm responsible. And yes, it drifts. I drive it to morning court. I want you to picture the scene from the guard's side. Dawn, the great square. Ministers arriving in sedan chairs in order of rank. A procession polished by 300 years of protocol. And then a red machine comes around the palace wall at knee height. Banks drift sideways across the ceremonial flagstones with a noise like a satisfied dragon and parks in the heir's designated spot, and the capital's No.1 Wastrel steps out, adjusting his sleeves. Court that morning is useless. Nobody hears a single memorial. The emperor adjourns early on a transparent pretext, walks a full circle around the car, touches it the way you'd touch a sleeping tiger, and demands a ride. Protocol officers age visibly. The son of heaven does 2 laps of the palace grounds, comes back with his crown slightly off axis and his eyes younger by a decade, plants a hand on the hood and pulls the one card I can't beat. I'm your uncle. He gets a custom model, gold trim, wider seat. Within a week, the Joyride waiting list runs to thousands of names, and the mansion's front street needs traffic control. Weibo starts circling me with questions about military transport variants, patient as a hawk, and the treasury officials watch my order book fill and look at me the way hungry men look at bread, which I file away for later, because hungry officials are a currency too. The queue of eager customers has 4 or 5 faces my counterintelligence flags immediately. Atlas hunters, the 3rd prince's leak coming home to roost, and their rumor sends me somewhere I should have looked long ago. The dying maid who once served my mother left the previous owner a half-burned map fragment, and the trail ends in our ancestral hall at my father's memorial tablet. There's a mechanism inside. A drop of blood opens it, and there it is, the war beast Atlas, real, whole, humming with my father's mental energy like a sealed letter. The rumor my enemies invented to destroy me just handed me my inheritance. I'd thank them, but they're all on the list. I spend a day and a night reading the Atlas, door barred, meals refused, and I come out the other side a different engineer. My father's life's work. Diagrams from yellow grade up through earth, annotated in his own hand, and the annotations are the real treasure. The marginal notes of a genius arguing with himself. Here's why this joint fails. Here's the compromise I hate. Here's the design I'll never build because the materials don't exist. They exist, Dad. I've held them. Reading him is the closest I will ever come to meeting him, this father whose face I wear and whose craft I inherited across 2 universes, and somewhere in the small hours I catch myself answering his margins out loud, and I finish that argument and I win it, and I sit there for a while with the lamp guttering, being both his daughters at once. Then my blood touches a page and a hidden layer surfaces that only bloodline can see. Heaven-grade diagrams, the kind of knowledge that upper countries field armies over, folded invisibly under the visible text, a second book inside the first left for exactly 1 reader. My photographic memory drinks all of it, visible and hidden, every line imprinted into my sea of consciousness where no thief can follow. And then I do the only sane thing a person can do while holding a book that every spy on the continent is hunting. I erase the hidden layer from the physical book and I sell the rest. A hot potato is only dangerous while you're holding it, so let's hold an auction for the potato publicly and let the whole world watch it leave my hands. But first, comparison shopping with a recording crystal in my sleeve because I've learned how this capital treats a wastrel's word against dignitaries. The War Beast Master Alliance's vice president receives me with 20 minutes of condescension and an offer so insulting I nearly applaud. Recorded. When the Longyin deal goes public later, that recording shipped to the Alliance's headquarters and the man's career dies of embarrassment in front of his own board. The heavenly heaven sends none other than Zhou Mingyuan, its master, who turns out to share a face with a certain Lian, cross-dressing twin personas being apparently a hegemon country hobby, and who agrees to half my terms with the other half wrapped in upper country arrogance crossed off with regrets. The show is excellent. The Longyin Pavilion's Vice Master accepts all 3 conditions in one sitting: full price in money and materials, organizational protection for me and mine, and publication rights to Volume 1, so every War Beast Master on the continent can learn the basics, which floods the world with beginners who will all need materials, sources, and repairs from guess who. He agrees so fast my teacup is still warm, and I remember thinking, what excellent management culture. The management culture was 5 years old, and it dictated the terms from my own couch the night before, and the Emperor signs off on the sale with 1 sentence: a life is worth more than a book, and the way he says it tells me he's been afraid for me since the rumor started. And that's the week I finally do the arithmetic on my tiny roommate. Zhou Mingyuan, making conversation, mentions the Longyin Pavilion Master's name, Ye Qianlong. I go home and look at my child, the habitual deference of the Longyin manager who serves him, the pendant pair, the divine sense conversations over my head, the dark night sect evaporating overnight on his word, the sleep spells, the frozen files, the way every institution in this city bends around him like light around a mass. I set out dinner, wait for him to climb his chair, and say, "So, Ye Qianlong, when were you going to mention you own the biggest information empire in the world?" He doesn't even put down his chopsticks. You took your time. Etham Taburpudi, Itartikerjernalt. We have it all out calmly, adult to adult, which is a strange register with someone 4 feet tall who has to kneel on the chair to reach the good dishes. He came to Yin country hunting the Atlas. He planted himself in the slave market specifically for me to buy, staged merchandise. The negotiation was scripted. My heartwarming rescue was his infiltration op. The sleep spells were his. The spirit wood auction was his. The dark night sex stopped existing because it inconvenienced him for one evening. Any other confessions? Many, he says, eating. None you're ready for. I should be angry. I audit myself for anger and find, annoyingly, none. Every string he pulled in my favor. The most dangerous intelligence network alive has spent a year being my anonymous benefactor out of what exactly? That question I park because I'm not ready for its answer either. Instead, I nod and I take out the Phoenix pendant and I offer it back because whatever game this was, the pendant was his before it was mine, and I don't keep table stakes from a finished hand. He looks at it for a long moment, then he pushes my hand back. I was keeping it for my future wife, he says. It's yours. Then I definitely can't take it, I say reflexively, and his eyes come up black and patient and not remotely childlike. It's yours. He stays. Not for the Atlas. That deal is done. He wants his formation disc repaired. He wants the Kunlun realm, and though he doesn't say it in words, he has apparently decided he wants the idiot who carried him out of a slave market and raised his own price on principle. The pedant owner arrangement quietly dies that night. What replaces it doesn't have a name yet. We're both pretending we haven't noticed. The next palace banquet delivers reinforcements from an unexpected direction. The past. The doors open unannounced, mid-toast, and an old woman walks in whom half the court has never seen, and the other half thought they'd outlived. The Empress Dowager, my great-aunt, born a Lan, married to a dragon, and vanished into seclusion 5 years ago, presumed to be gently dying in dignified retirement. She is not dying. She has spent 5 years breaking through to profound rank at her age, which makes her overnight one of the strongest human beings in this kingdom. And the pressure that rolls off her as she crosses the hall makes cultivators twice her size sit up straight. She walks past the emperor, who rises for her, past the consorts, who shrink, and plants herself beside me like an artillery position taking its firing angle. Then she surveys the court, all of it, the factions, the censors, the schemers, and asks one question into the silence. Who dares punish Lan Yue? Nobody volunteers. Several people study their soup. My family tree keeps sprouting bodyguards, and this one comes pre-aimed. This same banquet introduces Hua Ruo, the Pingyan prince's daughter, whose fief borders mine, and whose documented hobby is horsewhipping people she dislikes, a list her father has stopped trying to shorten. The prince's factions aim her at me like a missile, a whispered insult here, a misquote there, and by the third course, she's standing over my seat demanding satisfaction. We take it to the courtyard. She's genuinely good, whipwork fast as weather, and I pay her the compliment of not touching my mystic energy at all, just ancient martial arts, bare hands, footwork her whip can't find. It takes a while. It ends with her sitting in a flower bed, disarmed, breathing hard. She looks up at me. The court holds its breath for the tantrum. Father said, she announces, eyes shining, to marry whoever beats me. So, when? I talk her down from marriage to sworn friendship, which costs me an hour and 2 pots of wine, and I come out of the evening with a violent princess for a best friend and her father, a profound rank artifact refiner as an in-law adjacent asset. The factions that aimed her at me watch her leave, arm in arm with me, cackling at my jokes, and quietly cross her name off their inventory. Keep throwing people at me, gentlemen, I keep them. And then the banquet stops being funny, because the Empress Dowager reads the evidence file I've been building, the villa assassination, the years of embezzlement, and the crown of it, the thing I found at the bottom of the third master's correspondence. The ambush that killed my grandfather and second uncle wasn't fortune of war. The third master sold the Lan family army's battle plan to Z country. The old war god died because his own nephew priced him out. The dowager reads it twice. She was a Lan before she was an empress. The old war god was her brother, and she spent 5 years in seclusion becoming one of the strongest people in this kingdom, partly, I suspect, because she never believed the official story of how he died. The temperature in her pavilion drops until the tea skin's over. When she looks up, there's nothing grandmotherly left in her face, just the border war girl who outlived everyone underestimating her. These two are mine, she says. I let her have them, and I don't ask what she does. And the third and fourth master's names stop appearing in capital society entirely, and their households wear white within the season, and no censor in this kingdom is suicidal enough to inquire. The step-grandmother, stripped of both sons and all leverage, rots quietly in the small residence the eviction left her, a spider with no web, which for a woman who lived on control is its own life sentence. I've got a longer list anyway, and grandfather's real killers, I'll learn soon enough, aren't all in this city or even in this kingdom. But hold that phrase, the battle plan sold to Z country. That debt has more names on it, older names, foreign names, and this story collects every single one before it lets you go. Meanwhile, one more rescue, this one overdue. My cousin Lan Su, the gentle eldest sister who practically raised the previous owner, was married off years ago to the heir of the Dingguo ducal house, and the marriage is a slow murder, chronic poison in her food, beatings behind lacquered doors, and a fresh demand that she adopt a concubine's son and formalize her own erasure. The old Lan family swallowed it because the Duke was too big to fight. I'm not the old Lan family. I hear about it on a Tuesday. Xia, my medicine maid, examines a servant smuggled out of the Duke's household and confirms the poison in my sister's daily tonic. Slow, cumulative, deniable. I don't sleep on it. Some things you don't sleep on. Wednesday morning, I take 100 guards from the Lan army and walk through the Duke's front gate like weather. No cards, no herald. The porters look at the column behind me and develop wisdom. Her husband, Dong Tianchong, comes out shouting about propriety, about a wife's place, about how the Lan family agreed to this match and has no standing, and he's technically right about the law, which is why I didn't bring a lawyer. I brought fists. I beat him half to death on his own reception floor, pausing once to let him finish his sentence about his father, the Duke, so the beating can be documented as fully informed. The Duchess arrives mid-proceedings to shriek that the barren trash upstairs isn't worth this scandal. My maids, who loved Lan Su before I ever arrived in this body, look at me. I nod. The Duchess gets slapped by household staff in her own hall, which in aristocratic terms is a fate worse than the beating. Upstairs, my sister, thin as paper, eyes that apologize for existing. She weighs nothing at all when I pick her up, and she keeps asking all the way down the grand staircase whether this will cause me trouble. 10 years in that house, and her first thought is my trouble. Enormous trouble, I tell her, carrying her past her kneeling in-laws and out the front gate in view of the entire street. I'm looking forward to it. And behind me, on a schedule that is not a coincidence, the Longyin Pavilion delivers to the throne a dossier my tiny partner assembled overnight, unasked, as a gift. The Duke's private army, tens of thousands strong, quietly garrisoned in Chicheng, the disaster relief he ate, the land he swallowed. The emperor reads it at dawn, and by noon the Dingguo ducal house is a legal ruin. It's Duke in chains for the private army alone, which sits 1 inch from treason and reads worse. And the Empress Dowager, riding the moment like the cavalry commander she used to be, issues something this dynasty has never seen, an imperial decree divorce, dissolving the marriage from the wife's side. The precedent detonates across the capital. 10,000 trapped wives hear the crack of a door opening, and my sister comes home free. Su Rui, on my quiet instruction, brews her ex-husband a farewell tonic with one very specific, very permanent side effect. Some sentences you serve in prison, some you serve in the marital bed you built. Poirot hears the whole story and applauds until her palms hurt. Court, after all this, is almost relaxing. The prince's factions organize one more coordinated impeachment run at me, 5 censors rising in sequence, a rehearsed chorus. I let them finish. Then I produce a booklet from my sleeve, preloaded, indexed, and counter-impeach 10 officials in a row from its pages. The first censor's gambling debts to a foreign merchant, the second's brother's grain fraud, on down the list. Each charge, documented, each documentable, and I close the booklet and mention that it has more pages. The hall's silence acquires a new quality, the quality of 40 men trying to remember what's in their own files. The court learns a new reflex that morning. Check the Lan file before opening the mouth. An impeachment season, as a genre, goes quiet for a year. I spend the resulting political capital on one quiet maneuver, getting the crown prince attached to the upcoming Z country delegation with Zhou Xian and Weibo slotted beside him. 2 closet crown princemen, by the way. Nobody told me. I clocked them off micro-glances months ago. The half-beat their eyes give Wei Yi before every vote. The mediocre prince is accumulating quietly excellent people, and the court still thinks he's furniture. Good. Furniture wins succession wars. Then the whole royal circus loads into my flying vehicles for the journey. A gold-trimmed limousine for the emperor, who has been ready since dawn. Buses for the officials. I'm not joking. Rows of ministers strapped into upholstered seats clutching their memorial tablets like safety equipment, and we drive to Z country for the 3 Kingdoms War Beast competition. Every border town on the route empties onto its rooftops as the convoy passes. Farmers kneel to the flying gold box, which the emperor enjoys immoderately and waves at. And when we cross into Z country, and their reception committee, primed to condescend to the poor cousins from Yin, watches a fleet of impossible machines land in formation on their parade ground. You can see the diplomatic briefing books being mentally shredded down the whole receiving line. Arrival by convoy of impossible machines. As diplomatic statements go, it beats a letter, and I wrote it. Z country rolls out hospitality with knives in it, and the first venue is an underground amusement park that makes the Xiaoyao Kings look like a village fair. The owner is Z country's own crown prince, He Yunfei, and I want to flag him now because this man is going to orbit my story like a sad, beautiful moon. Skin like snow, a hypnotic flute bloodline, a smile with diplomatic immunity. Hold him in mind. The local sport is gambling stones, and their tables dwarf ours. 126 rough stones on offer the night we visit. Buyer's risk, house's fortune. The cream of 3 kingdoms gathers to watch the famous Yin country Wastrel donate his money. My chest warms at stone 11 and 14 and 20. My repairability strolls down the rows like a customs inspector, and I start buying. By the end of the night, I've opened 89 spirit jades out of my picks, 3 blue, a fistful of yellow, and 1 green spirit jade, the heaven-grade source material, the kind of stone that surfaces once in tens of thousands of cuts. The house goes from smug to gray. The other buyers open dud after dud because, small detail, I bought every stone in the hall with anything inside it and left them the gravel. Yunfei watches me clean out his casino with an expression caught between financial grief and fascination. The competition field introduces itself around the tables. Cheng Wei, second prince of Chou country, loud, brash, built like an argument. Chu Sheng, High country's #1 genius, polite, cold, crafts at Zhuan grade, and hides a suppressed, profound rank cultivation for the Kunlun age limit, which I clock in about a minute and file away. And our host prince with the flute. Everyone smiles at everyone. Under the table, 3 kingdoms are counting each other's knives. Then somebody proposes the Death Escape Maze, the park's premium attraction. 38 entrants, stakes multiplied tenfold, 100,000 gold each. Last one standing split the pot. A charming local custom where heirs legally maim each other and call it recreation. I sign up alone, and my delegation ages visibly. Inside the maze, I stop performing. The maze itself is a mean piece of work, shifting corridors, trap floors, dead ends that close behind you, designed to funnel 38 armed heirs into each other at bad angles. Perfect. I've fought in collapsing space stations. This is a garden with opinions. I go in with my golden double battle axes, mech-grade alloys from my own forge, each one heavy enough that this world files them under siege equipment, and a sleeve of gold needles, acupoint work I learned from a doctor friend in another life. The needles are for people I like. The the axes are for architecture. Cheng Wei finds me first, all bluster and a genuinely decent spear arm, roaring something about teaching the Yin country pretty boy respect. 2 needles. He locks up mid-lunge and tips over like furniture. I strip his valuables with dock worker efficiency, storage bag, jade tokens, a rather nice dagger, and prop him against a wall at a comfortable angle, eyes furious and fully conscious so he can watch me count his money. Interest, I explain, pocketing it. You'll understand when you're older. He makes a noise like a boiling kettle. We're going to be great friends, this man and I, though neither of us knows it yet. Chu Sheng is a different weight class. High country's #1 genius corners me in a long gallery with his mystic grade lizard beast, a beautiful machine, all armored plates and whip tail, and him standing behind it with polite murder in his face. My mongoose, who has been eating well all year, trots out to meet it. Everyone always laughs at the mongoose. The lizard lunges, my little beast reads it, finds the belly seam where the plating articulates, and puts a claw through the power linkage. The lizard freezes mid-snap, a statue of itself, and then the mongoose eats it, systematically, starting with the spirit jade. In my product line, that's not a bug, it's the business model. Chu Sheng watches his masterpiece disappear into a weasel and retreats with the face of a man whose sports car was just consumed by a house pet. And the flute finds me in the dark, silver, sweet, patient. Yunfei's bloodline hypnosis, the melody wrapping around my mind like warm rope, and it's good, genuinely good. On anyone else in this maze, it's a finished fight. I let my eyes glaze, I let my knees soften, I sway a little for production value. He glides close with that diplomatic smile, so graceful about it, and reaches for my storage bag. I take his wrist out of the air. Your flute's not bad, but my Xiaolonglong plays better. His eyes have exactly enough time to widen, then I knock him out. Gently, he's the host, I have manners. I even take his jade politely, and I arrange him against the wall in a flattering pose, because a crown prince should be found with dignity. This is, I want the record to show, the beginning of the strangest relationship of the entire war, and I started it by mugging him. I walk out of the maze with 370,000 gold, a sack of confiscated treasures, and 37 new respecters of Yin country. On the way out, for the benefit of the various predators eyeing my winnings, I flash a token, a small blue sword, the seal of the Longyin Pavilion, and announce that everything I own is transferred to their protection. The predators resheathe themselves so fast you can hear it. My tiny partner, who issued me that token as casually as bus fare, accepts my thanks that evening with the smugness of a landlord. Then the actual competition, and I turn it into performance art. Yeah, the stakes deserve a line. The Kunlun Secret Realm's 100 entry slots split by tournament result 50, 30, 20, and the realm is where my formation disc's cave lives, so first place isn't vanity, it's cave access with a national flag on it. Yin Country hasn't won this tournament in living memory. Our delegation's private target, whispered to me on the ride over, is a dignified second. 15 days, sealed crafting cubicles, live broadcast of public crystal screens in 3 capitals. The format rewards endurance and grind, prodigies working themselves gray at their forges while their nations watch and bet. I sleep through day 1, on camera, curled up like a cat on the cubicle cot while Chu Sheng's forge roars away on the neighboring screen. Day 2, I file formal requests through the tournament stewards for gourmet catering, a musician rotation, and a selection of handsome singers, deliveries to my cubicle daily, itemized, signed. The stewards process the paperwork with shaking hands. The Yin delegation watches their National Hope Order room service on international broadcast and quietly begins drafting apologies to the throne. In Z Country stands, the betting odds on me drop to novelty wager territory alongside bets on the weather. Here's what the cameras can't see. The concerts are cover. Between courses, I craft low-grade components, cheap, fast, unremarkable, and then upgrade them with my repair ability, feeding the work materials the way you'd feed a forge, my one trick this world has no lens for. The judges see a lazy noble napping between snacks. The cubicle sees a super S-class engineer building something this continent has never produced, at leisure to music. By day 10, the public crystal screens have made me a 3 Kingdoms scandal. The Z Country commentators narrate my afternoon naps. Chu Country satirists sell woodcuts of me being fed grapes, while the other contestants bleed over their forges. The Yin delegation stops making eye contact with foreign counterparts entirely. One of our officials reportedly drafts a formal apology to the throne to have it ready. Reveal day. Chu Sheng unveils a Xuan-grade construct. Excellent work. Honestly, the man's fundamentals are a pleasure. He Yunfei reveals a hidden white wolf, Xuan-grade. Elegant as its owner, the crowd swoons on cue. Cheng Wei's centipede takes a solid third, and he beams like it won. Then I open my cubicle. The winged serpent comes out low, then unfolds, and keeps unfolding. Wings like storm sails filling the arena's air. Ancient lines I pulled from my father's atlas, Xuan grade, high quality, and the detail that stops the arena's breath cold. A yellow grade spirit power source burning in its chest like a second sun. Neither of their prodigies can craft yellow sources. Nobody in the lower kingdoms can. That's an upper country monopoly, and it's sitting in a serpent built by the napping Wastrel on live crystal broadcast. The judges check the source 3 times. The 3rd time is just to touch it. The battle rounds are a formality with special effects. My serpent toys with the centipede for exactly as long as entertainment requires, then eats it, and Cheng Wei's howl of protest becomes a 3 Kingdom catchphrase by nightfall. Then it eats He Yunfei's beautiful white wolf too, delicately, almost apologetically, and I call across the arena, your battle beast tastes okay, sources a bit lacking. The Z Country stands make a sound like a tax audit. He Yunfei, to his credit, laughs alone in his whole section, which I file away as interesting. Yin Country takes first place, its first in living memory, and with it, 50 of the 100 Kunlun secret realm slots. The delegation that was drafting apologies on day 2 carries me through the venue on their shoulders on day 15, which I permit for exactly 1 lap, dignity of the crown, and so on. And then I spend my personal reward allocation in the most scandalous way available. 5 slots, reserved by name, filed with the Tri-Country Commission before we even leave the venue. Myself, my tiny companion, and Su Rui, Tao Guang, Wei Wuqia. The court back home actually convulses when the list publishes Secret Realm slots, national treasure, priced in blood and diplomacy, spent on male favorites. Censors draft through the night. The prince's factions hold celebratory dinners about my stupidity. I let them all convulse because in 6 months, those 3 favorites are going to walk out of that realm, tempered, treasured, and bound to me for life. The core cabinet of a rising city-state, and every sneer filed against them now is camouflage I didn't have to sow. As usual, the capital's contempt is my cheapest and most reliable supplier. I do a little shopping before we leave Z Country. The local slave market is liquidating the artisans of a raised craftsman nation, a people who built for a living. Whole family lines of masons, carpenters, engineers sold by the head after their country stopped existing, standing in the pens still holding themselves like guildsmen. The trader expects me to pick 2 or 3 of the young ones. I buy all 100, the elders included, especially the elders. An old master builder is a library with hands, and I watch 100 faces go from resignation to confusion to something too careful to be hoped. Their clan chief asks what work I'm buying them for. A city, I tell him. From the foundations, your designs will be argued with. My blueprints are strange, but your names go on the gates. The old man's jaw works for a while before words come out of it. The traitor also throws in a freebie to clear inventory. A broken, feverish man with no name and no memory, half dead in the corner pen. My material sense tingles at him like a struck tuning fork. Hold that one too. He's a lottery ticket, and later he pays out at odds you won't believe. And the winged serpent, my tournament champion, the finest battle beast in 3 kingdoms, the machine every delegation has been trying to buy off me for a week at any price, I gift it to the crown prince in front of everyone, tailor-made for you, cousin. Try the wings. The hall chokes. One serpent buys me a decade of alliance, announces to every faction in our capital exactly how deep the Lanway partnership runs, and reminds every foreign court that the Wastrel gives away what their treasuries can't buy. Cheap at the price. The best advertising always looks like extravagance. Back home, the last piece of the board slides into place, and it's the piece I've been circling this entire story. The army, the Lan family army, my grandfather's 100,000-man legend, has spent the years since his death being starved on purpose. The ministries of revenue and war embezzled 80% of the funding my mansion sent. Soldiers froze, some died, and my dear departed from my house uncles engineered the whole arrangement. The generals who come to test me, Xiong Hao, and the strategist Lin Ze, arrive with folded arms and leave with straight spines because I put it plainly. The army has always been mine. Cross me, and I'd rather break it than lend it. Serve me, and I will feed it, arm it, and make its name feared again. First, though, the army's own generals come to inspect their nominal lord, and it's the most important meeting nobody in the capital notices. Xiong Hao, iron gray and blunt, and the strategist Lin Ze, soft-spoken and watchful, arrive at my mansion prepared to manage a wastrel, and I skip the management phase entirely. I lay out what I know, the starved funding, the embezzlement chain, the dead soldiers with dates, and then I tell them how it's going to be. The army has always been mine, not the courts, not the factions, mine, by blood and by law, and I would rather break it than lend it, and I intend to do neither. I intend to feed it until the whole continent remembers its name. Xiong Hao tests me with the flat stare that has ended staff officers' careers. I hold it until he's done. Lindsay asks one question: what happens to the men too old to march? Pensions and land, I say, first budget line, before weapons. The two of them exchange the kind of look old soldiers have instead of speeches, and when they leave, I have an army. The court makes its move a week later. A minister rises with a carefully staged proposal. The Lan family army is a relic, a drain, leaderless and loyal to a wastrel. Disband it. Fold the men into the Li family army. Half the hall nods along. This has clearly been rehearsed over several dinners. I erupt on schedule. Grief. Fury. My grandfather's name invoked at volume, and the emperor backs me on schedule, and while the hall is busy managing the theater, I drop my counterfile. Longyin sourced, itemized. 80% of the army funding my mansion sent over the years, traced coin by coin into the private accounts of the ministers of revenue and war. Soldiers' winter coats converted into a minister's lake pavilion. Grain allotments converted into a minister's third mansion. 20+ deaths from cold and hunger in peacetime garrisons, each one with a date. The hall goes very quiet. The emperor reads with a face like a closing door. Both ministers, stripped and jailed by sundown. And because confiscation is a family tradition by now, I personally lead the raids on their mansions with Lan army elites, the very soldiers those two starved, which is not a coincidence. It's a morale program. My tiny partner strolls beside me through the estates, pointing his divine sense at every hidden vault like a metal detector with opinions. The underwater room beneath the lake pavilion, the hollow rockery, the false floor under the ancestral shrine, which takes nerve. The soldiers carry out crates of their own stolen wages and get their back pay on the spot from the source with apologies. His fee for the vault finding service, negotiated in advance with a completely straight face, is a private dance from me that evening. I pay my invoices. His composure survives by a thread, and he makes a decision I only learn about much later, to wait until after Kunlun. For what, you'll see. The Duke of Zhengguo, my great-uncle, throws his weight behind the settlement, and the decree comes down. I am made commander of the Lan family army, 90,000 men, with orders to relocate it to my border fief within the month. Court funding cut to zero, full autonomy in exchange. The ministers think they've exiled me and unloaded an expensive army onto a wasteland. I walk out of that court fighting down a grin. They just handed me a private army, a private country-sized fief, and permission to be far from their supervision, and they think they won. Don't interrupt your enemies when they're doing your paperwork. The exodus to the fief is half military convoy, half traveling circus. Up front, my Hummer-style command car and 5 military trucks. Inside, my whole strange court. The old prince, whom I lured out of the capital with the copied atlas volume dangled like a carrot and who spent the negotiation pretending he wasn't coming, then arrived at the convoy an hour early with 3 cartloads of tools and his entire workshop staff plus every warbeast master he could shame into following, which given his shaming abilities is most of them. My sister Lan Shu, color back in her face, appointed to run the household of a city that doesn't exist yet and already making lists. Mo Ying Yue quietly extracted from the Yue family's neglect on the pretext of a lecturing post, blooming visibly with every mile between her and that mansion. My seasons, my beauties, my guards, and chained to the back of the column, spiritually if not literally, several dozen playboys. This part requires explanation. When word spread that the Wastrel prince was moving to a border fief, the capital's great houses had an idea. They pay me actual money to take their useless sons along, get them away from the flesh pots. Maybe the border will toughen them up, and if it doesn't, at least they're someone else's problem. The betting parlors opened odds on how fast the boys would run home. Gao Lin signed up voluntarily, which should have warned everyone. The boot camp starts at the first campsite with the announcement that changes their lives. No servants. The servants are riding home. Cook or don't eat. You have never heard grief like it. These are men who have never seen a raw vegetable. They boil rice into charcoal and eat it, weeping softly into the pot. One Marquis heir attempts to roast a chicken with the feathers on and defends the result as a regional style. They march behind the trucks until their silk shoes disintegrate, then get issued soldiers' boots, which they initially wear on the wrong feet. They get whipped for whining by fair rotation, so no one feels singled out. And within 3 days, they've invented a support group where they take turns describing food they used to refuse. I'm not being cruel, I'm being schedule efficient. Their families paid me to break them down and build something usable. The breaking is the fast part. And on the 5th night, the 1st and 3rd princes, unable to resist poking me even at range, tip off a bandit confederation about my route and cargo, and hand me the training opportunity money can't buy. The bandits hit us at dawn. The playboys, who have never held anything sharper than a dinner knife in anger, get shields shoved into their hands and a formation built around them, and they survive their first blood. And then, wild-eyed, discovering that their soft bodies contain functioning spines, they win their first blood. Watching a duke's son who once fainted at a paper cut stand over a defeated bandit, chest heaving, absolutely certain he's a war god now, is one of the purest joys this story has given me. After that, we stop waiting to be attacked and start doing the attacking. Counter raids on the bandits' strongholds along the road, rob the robbers, free their captives. The bandits become road-building labor. The freed captives, including 30-odd women with nowhere to return to, join the fief rolls. By the time we reach the border, my dandies have calluses, kill counts, and the first non-negotiable loyalty of their lives. The capital's betting parlors, incidentally, had lines on how many of them would flee home within a month. All of them stayed. Years later, their fathers, the same dukes and marquises who paid me to haul their embarrassments away, will sit in a palace study listening to those embarrassments' war citations being read aloud, and Gao Lin's father will be heard to remark that sending his son to me was the wisest money he ever spent, followed, after the boy's next visit home, by a request for a refund. Both statements were sincere. That's my dandies in full. Then the fief itself comes over the horizon, and the column goes quiet. Abandoned farmland to the edge of sight, field walls collapsed, irrigation channels silted into scars, villages of empty doorways, doors themselves long burned for fuel. Bones scattered in ditches, some of them small, and my playboys, fresh off their first proud kills, look at those and stop being boys about war forever, which is the last lesson of the boot camp and the one I couldn't have taught. This is Xia City and its lands. The punchline fief, 1/15 of the kingdom, wedged between 2 hostile borders, and the joke turns out to be graves all the way to the walls. The first locals we meet are refugees who kneel in the road before they even see our faces, kneeling at wagon dust on principle, because everything that's come down this road for a decade has taken something. An old man explains the arithmetic of the place with the numb precision of long practice. Z and Cho soldiers cross the border dressed as bandits, spring and autumn, take the harvest, take the young people. The Li family army garrison 2 valleys over watches it happen deliberately year after year because this is Lan land, and letting Lan land bleed costs the Li house nothing and pleases it slightly. I get down from the truck, get the old man off his knees, and feed everyone from our supply stores while my soldiers set up cook fires. Then I make them one promise, short, because they've heard long ones before, from officials, from garrisons, from heaven. The Lan family army lives here now. The next raider who crosses that line will not recross it. The old man studies my face, then the trucks, then the 50,000 men, and starts to cry without changing expression at all, which is the worst kind, and I add his tears to the invoice I'm assembling for 2 kingdoms and 1 indifferent garrison. Everything on that invoice gets collected before this story ends. Every line. The city itself is held together by one man, the young city lord Dong Chao, a scholar posted here as a career execution who by every right should have resigned or drunk himself quiet years ago, and instead has been keeping 100 starving soldiers drilling with wooden sticks, patching 1 wall a season, and rationing hope by the spoonful. His office has a hole in the roof. His ledgers are immaculate. I read them cover to cover the first night, and they're an epic poem of a man refusing to let a place die with no resources but stubbornness. He takes one look at my convoy, does the math on the trucks and the soldiers and the seed grain, and swears allegiance before lunch, and then, being the man his ledgers say he is, spends the entire meal briefing me on drainage. Smart man, he keeps his job, and later, when Jia City is the jewel of the border and ministers scheme for postings here, I make sure everyone remembers whose signature is on the hungry years, and then I build, and I'm going to walk you through it, because the building is the plot for a while, and it's my favorite montage in either of my lives. The craftsman clan I bought in Z Country gets my city blueprints first, and I get to watch a master builder's world break open. Their chief spreads my drawings on a trestle table, expecting a nobleman's vanity palace, and finds garden districts for commoners, sewer systems under every street, public toilets, public baths, public wells on a grid, parks budgeted like fortifications, 1/3 of the city green by design because I've lived in a metal box in space and I know what the absence of green does to people over years. He reads for an hour without speaking. Then he asks carefully whether the ordinary districts are drawn to the same standard as the noble ones by error. No error, I tell him. The whole city is the noble district. He weeps into the drawings, this old man who spent his life building beauty for people who fed his family to a slave market. And then he argues with me about drainage gradients for 2 days, which is how I know the city's in good hands. The walls we face with a soft gold crystal alloy, my design, stronger than dressed stone and cheaper once you're stealing the crystal from your enemies. And the whole fortress glows at sunset like a promise. Do I need glowing walls? Militarily, no. But every refugee who crests the hill at dusk and sees a golden city where the famine used to be walks the last mile faster, and morale, as this whole story keeps demonstrating, is a weapons system. The refugees get land deeds and seed grain. Yue Wuxia's exiled people arrive by the wagon load and take over the dead farmland, and their plant cultivation arts wake the soil like a spell. Dead fields greening in weeks, the first harvest coming in so heavy, the granary schedule has to be rebuilt around it. Wuxia stands in the first full wheat field with his hands open at his sides, and his people, who watch their country burn, plant a memorial garden in the city center with cuttings smuggled from home. It blooms. Everything here blooms now. That's the point of me. Under it all runs the engine, the contribution point system, and I want to dwell on it because it's the single most powerful machine I build in this whole story, and it has no moving parts. Everything in my fief can be earned, and nothing important can be bought with mere money. Capture a bandit, points. Build a road, points. Teach a class, staff a clinic, raise a barn, points, points, points. Posted on public boards, audited weekly, forgeable by no one because Tao Guang designed the ledgers, points by land, tools, houses, tuition. And at the top of the catalog sit the 2 items that reorganize this whole society's ambitions overnight. A personal battle beast for 100 points, a flying vehicle for 500. Think about what that does. In every other country on this continent, a battle beast is a bloodline privilege locked behind noble birth. In mine, it's 100 captured bandits, or a season of honest labor, available to a farmer's daughter. Slaves earn points toward their own freedom on the same boards as everyone else, same rates, and the first slave to buy himself free does it in 4 months, and immediately signs on as a paid foreman. Within a month, my labor shortage is a labor stampede. Within 3, the bandit population of 3 borders is being hunted for sport by my own citizens, like walking coupons, farmers forming weekend posses, and the professional criminal class of the region holds what I can only assume was an emergency meeting and relocates. The amnesiac slave from the Zai country market, the freebie, wakes up from his fever, wanders into a workshop looking for water, and absently corrects a master smith's inlay work in passing with his thumbnail, improving it. By evening, the whole craft quarter is fighting over him. He turns out to be Duan Mubo, or at least that's the name he answers to, an artifact refiner whose casual bench work embarrasses our best masters, a profound rank injured somebody from some upper country family with no memory of which one or of how a man like him ended up dying in a border slave pen, which is itself a question with teeth in it. My tiny partner runs his face through the login files and identifies him inside a day, then asks neutrally if I want the answer. I decline, and I mean it. The man works happily, eats well, and guards my forges like they hatched him. Whoever lost him will surface eventually. People like him are always being looked for, and when they do, I'd rather he meets them as a man with a home than as a puzzle I solved behind his back. Unwrapping people before they're ready is how you tear them. It's more fun to learn slowly, I say, and my partner looks at me for a long moment with an expression I can't read, probably because it's about me. Then the army arrives. 90,000 men marching into a fief that was a rumor of famine last season, and they arrive suspicious because they've been burned by every institution that ever promised them anything. Their boots are cracked, their supply train is a joke. Their generals, Xiong Hao and the strategist Lin Zai, have been holding this force together on memory and stubbornness since my grandfather died. I run the only test that matters. I stand on a platform where all of them can see me, and I offer every man the door. Here are my terms, my command, my rules, my training, which will be harder than anything you've done, my food, which will be better than anything you've eaten, my pay, on time every time, or you may flog my quartermaster in the square. Anyone who doesn't want these terms, walk away today. No penalty, no shame. The gate is open until sunset. 30,000 walk. My officers panic. I don't, because I asked Dong for the rosters weeks ago, and I know what just walked out that gate. The prince's plants, the agitators, the rot I wanted purged and couldn't legally fire, self-deporting in one afternoon, carrying their sabotage off my payroll on their own feet. You can't always fire your problems. Sometimes you can only make honesty cheaper than staying. The 50-odd thousand who remain get mutton that night. Real mutton, mountains of it, cauldrons going down the lines, seconds for everyone, and land promises with their actual names brushed on actual paper. Farmland deeds vesting with each year of service. Big men who have eaten porridge for a decade stand in the firelight holding a full bowl and a land deed and stop being able to talk. The sound that goes up from those cook fires is the sound of an army being reborn. Naturally, a few regimental strongmen want to test whether the little prince is a mascot or a commander. Tradition demands it, and I love tradition. I take every challenge personally, barehanded, one after another in the drill square with the whole army in a ring, and the infirmary does brisk business for an evening, and I set every dislocated shoulder myself afterward, which somehow impresses them more than the dislocating. After that, the Land family army has exactly one opinion about its commander, and that opinion is awe. The months that follow are empire building on fast forward. Farm tools forged from the Crown Prince's gifted iron mine handed out on credit against harvest shares, windmills on the ridge lines, canals cut by contribution point crews racing each other for bonuses, salt from the gifted salt lake, which alone rebalances my whole treasury. Salt is the one commodity that sells itself, and a foreign policy of magnificent pettiness. For years, Z and Cho soldiers crossed my border dressed as bandits and took whatever they liked because the raids were free. My first principle of statecraft, nothing is free anymore. My raiding companies cross into Z and Cho dressed as each other's soldiers, hair dyed, kit copied to the buttons. They hit supply depots. They empty the minds of the Yin citizens enslaved in them. My people marched home in tears. They lift livestock by the herd, herdsmen included. The herdsmen mostly delighted, my wages being what they are. They strip a season's soft gold crystal from my walls, and they leave each other's evidence everywhere. A drop Chu insignia in Z, a Z issue boot print in Chu. The two kingdoms, finding each other's uniforms at every crime scene, spend an entire season bloodying each other along their shared border, filing furious diplomatic notes at each other, while my walls go up in stolen splendor and my population grows by every freed slave and defecting herdsman. I read their intercepted accusations over breakfast. Some mornings, I have them read aloud. My playboys, now hardened raid veterans, operate under exactly one iron rule. We rob soldiers and slavers, never commoners, never women. They follow it with the zeal of the freshly converted, and heaven help the new recruit who forgets it, because the punishment isn't mine anymore, it's theirs. They police their own code now. That's how you know a mob has become a unit. Somewhere in there, the Xiaoyao king arrives to serve as governor, while I handle the realm business ahead. He comes expecting, by his own later admission, a military camp with pretensions, a wall, a granary, a nephew playing at lordship. He crests the hill at sunset instead, and sees the gold. Walls glowing over green districts, traffic jams of ox carts and flying vehicles arguing at intersections that have traffic rules. Streets where refugee children who arrived as skeletons 2 seasons ago run fat and shrieking through public parks. He walks around for a full day with the face of a man rereading a letter he was sure he'd memorized, stopping at market stalls, asking prices, checking, I think, whether any of it is stage dressing. None of it is stage dressing. Uncle Ren watched this fief starve for decades from the capital's distance, filed under things that cannot be fixed. He carried his own quiet grief for my family all those years, also filed under things that cannot be fixed. And here's the family's daughter standing in a golden city she raised out of the graves in 18 months, and I watch a lifetime of that filing system fail him at once. He ends the tour by squeezing my shoulder too hard and saying nothing at all, and takes up the governorship like a man given, very late, something worth governing. 6 months gone. The city glows, the army eats, the border bleeds politely in both directions, and the Kunlun secret realm opens. 100 people walk into the Kunlun secret realm, the continent's under 30 proving ground, a pocket world at the 3-country border that opens once a cycle and cycles through 4 seasons of trial, and around whose entry gate 3 kingdoms worth of tents, banners, and mutual suspicion have been assembling for a month. Entry is by slot, and slots are national treasure, which is why my 5, taken openly for myself and my so-called male favorites, scandalize 2 courts. The scandal is about to become a down payment. My 5 walk in together, me, my tiny partner, Surui Taoguang, Yue Wuxia, plus the national delegations of 3 kingdoms and a scatter of foreign prodigies who bought or bled their way in, and the gate seals behind 100 of the most dangerous young people alive, locked in a box built by ancients for reasons nobody remembers, for 1 season cycle. What could go wrong is the wrong question. The right question is what could go profitable, and I have a packing list. The realm opens in winter, a cold that ignores cultivation and chews bone. Most delegations huddle and burn through supplies. My team treats it as scheduled tempering, cold kwai cycling exercises. I drill into my inner circle, pain now, foundations forever. And me? I look around at 100 rich, freezing heirs who packed treasures instead of blankets, and I open a store. Fur cloaks, crafted on site from the winter beasts we hunt. 100,000 gold apiece for Yin country customers. 200,000 for foreigners. Tariffs, you understand. I don't make the rules, I am the rules. Hot pot, 50,000 a head, seating limited, no substitutions, no credit, and no, your royal house cannot run a tab. Your royal house is precisely why I don't extend credit. The prodigies of a dozen noble houses queue in the snow outside my tent, while their retainers pretend to be elsewhere. Young masters who have never asked the price of anything in their lives stand there doing arithmetic with blue lips. One of them calls it robbery, loudly, from inside the cloak he already bought. It is, I agree, and upsell him a scarf. By the end of the first week, I am the realm's central bank, its restaurant district, and its outerwear monopoly, and everyone hates me at a temperature that keeps them warm on the walk home. That's the Kunlun Secret Realm's actual first trial, and most of the continent's elite failed it at my cash table. The customer list is the real prize because this is where the continent's top shelf introduces itself. 3 of the 4 super hegemon countries sent their crown princes in disguise, and my hot pot tent collects all of them because there is no disguise on this continent, no bloodline art, no borrowed face that survives the snowstorm and the smell of simmering broth. Zhou Mingyuan, White Tiger Country, my old auction sparring partner, master of the heavenly heavens, here undisguised for once and visibly relieved about it, flirting with my staff and losing arguments with my seating policy. Du Changfeng, Vermilion Bird Country, master of Pill Valley, an earth-grade alchemist with the face of a sickly angel and the appetite of a draft horse who eats in surgical silence and then orders the entire menu again. Gu Yuchuan, Xuanwu Country, who runs an assassin organization the way other men keep gardens and who cases my tent's exits out of professional habit before every meal, which I charge him for. Ambience inspection fee. 3 future rulers of the world, sitting on my benches with snow in their collars, paying my prices, complaining about my prices, and paying them again nightly. The Hot Pot Summit, my people start calling it. Deals get cut at those tables that will move armies in a few years. And at the head of it all sits a small boy with black eyes who pays for nothing, is served first, and gets the good cuts without asking. And every crowned customer in the tent watches me debone his fish for him with expressions of theological crisis, and all 3 of them keep sneaking looks at the small figure beside me who doesn't pay for anything. Because here's what I still don't know, and every crowned head at my table does. My Xiao Longlong is the fourth name in that set. Ye Tianlong, the Dark Emperor of Qinglong country, not a crown prince, but a reigning power, the one the other three defer to by reflex. They watch him tolerate my cheek pinching, watch me pile his bowl with the good meat, and their faces cycle through fear, disbelief, and the dawning delighted conclusion that the untouchable Luo has fallen into a playboy's pocket. They start a private betting pool on it. Emperors are like this. The trials themselves I run like a harvest, and the realm keeps trying to be dangerous at people who did their homework. A pair of profound rank python beasts ambushes my party in a ravine, which is to say delivers itself. My mongoose eats both and naps in the sun like a punctured ball. An assassin team from someone's delegation tries a night approach on my camp and loses its constructs the same way, and I return the assassins themselves to their embarrassed sponsor with gift ribbons on. Tao Guang's material sense pulls treasure out of cliff faces like a woodpecker after grubs, ore veins, herb caches. One sealed strongbox some previous cycle's contestant died hiding. Su Rui stocks a mobile pharmacy from the realm's herb meadows. My people work the trials like a family harvesting a field, and the great house's delegations watch us fill wagons while they duel each other over single herbs. In summer, when the realm flips to furnace heat, my winter customers return to my tent flap, sweating, unsurprised, resigned. Ice basins and hand fans, one yellow spirit jade each. The hegemon princes who own glaciers pay in kind and in structure. Gu Yuchuan loans me a squad of profound rank assassins to garrison Xia City for 5 years, which is how the scariest men in the Eastern Night end up doing guard rotations over my vegetable markets. Du Changfeng settles his tab in Xuan-grade pills, army quantities, Hill Valley stock, and Gu Yuchuan, unable to help himself, bets me 10 profound battle beasts that my leveling up product line is a trick with swapped units. We run the test in front of witnesses. Same beast, fed and grown over a week, serial marks intact. He pays. He pays with the face of a man who knew better and bet anyway, which is the best face there is. My city's garrison and pharmacy are stocked for a decade, and I haven't drawn a weapon in anger yet. Jia in the realm also teaches the continent's elite my favorite lesson, that I price by attitude. The ice basins and hand fans go for a yellow spirit jade each, and the hegemon princes, sweating through silk they've never sweated through before, pay up with the special agony of men who own glaciers at home. Coordinador Sismagan Bashinia, Might, Gu Yuchuan tries to haggle. His price goes up. He learns. One score in the realm isn't business, though. It's a debt of honor, and it's ugly, and I settle it with a claw. Liu Wei, the crown prince's former beloved, the girl who spent a decade being his gentlest friend, and then dropped him on schedule when her family sold her upward to a medium country young lord because the closeness was engineered from the start, a clan project, an investment matured and cashed out. My cousin never talks about it. That's how I know how deep it went. In the realm's autumn zone, her party crosses mine, and she has new backing now, medium country guards, upper tier arrogance, and she makes the mistake of aiming it at my people. A sneer, an order, a hand raised toward Mo Ying Yue. There's a pangolin guardian beast in that zone, profound rank 5, poison claws, territorial. I don't attack her. I just arrange the geometry, a lure here, a provocation there, until the pangolin's claw finds her face. Poison claws don't heal clean. They don't heal at all. A blade wound, an alchemist could erase. This, she keeps, a souvenir for life, I tell her people, and walk on. Then I befriend the pangolin and hire it as fief pest control, because in this economy, even revenge should generate staff. You can judge me for that one. Her family spent 15 years building a girl into a knife for my cousin's heart. I blunted the knife. The crown prince never asks me about it, and I never tell him, and that's what cousins are for. Chu is also where the formation disc, repaired to a soft hum by my ability months ago, finally points somewhere. It wakes in my storage bag one morning like a compass finding north, and my tiny partner goes still over breakfast in a way that means the thing he crossed a continent for is finally in range. We follow it into the autumn mountains, and naturally every delegation in the realm follows US, because by now my movements are the realm's stock ticker. The ancient cultivator's cave defends itself with battle beast waves, yellow grade first, then profound, then earth, guardian constructs pouring out of the mountainside in escalating tiers, and the approach becomes a family business day. My mongoose eats 13 earth grade constructs over the course of the battle and audibly gets drunk on them, weaving between waves, hiccuping sparks. Zhou Mingyuan's white tiger, tagging along, uninvited because its master follows me like unpaid security, eats 7 and preens about it. The trailing delegations throw themselves at the waves for salvage rights and get mauled, which is where I set up the field clinic, because their misfortune has a market rate. In the middle of a running battle, my repair station takes walk-ins, broken battle beasts, shattered armor, cracked weapons, fixed on the spot, for fees documented, signed in Schwanli, binding IOU contracts with my thumbprint seal. The wounded prodigies of 3 kingdoms limp to my table, pay whatever I quote, because the alternative is walking home through the waves unarmed, and limp back to the fight refitted. By the last wave, I hold paper on half the young nobility of 3 kingdoms. Chengwei alone, whose luck runs exactly as badly as his courage runs hot, signs for 10,000 horses, 20,000 sheep, and 20,000 cattle. Remember that livestock. It comes back later, pulling a whole plot behind it. Then the inner sanctum, and the realm stops being funny. The cave's heart is a null zone. All cultivation suppressed, all artifacts dulled. Including, and none of us modeled this, my mother's seal. It breaks. Not dramatically, no light show, just a warmth going quiet on my chest, and then the way the cave's still air sits differently on my face, and the way every conversation behind me stops one by one like snuffed candles. In front of my whole inner circle, the young prince of the Land Royal Mansion stands revealed, and there's no Wastrel left to hide behind, just me, actual me, for the first time on this continent, in a stone room a mile underground, wearing the borrowed silence of a dozen people recalibrating everything they know. The room does a group portrait of shock. Su Rui drops a herb pouch. Tao Guang, who prides himself on reading everyone, makes a sound like a struck abacus. The crown prince recovers first, looks at me for a long moment, and starts laughing, not unkindly. The laugh of a man rereading every court scandal of the past 2 years with new footnotes, the male favorites, the beauty queue, the marriage deflections, oh och, and he accepts it whole between one breath and the next. Cousin is cousin, and pours me a drink with a steadier hand than anyone else in the cave has. The hegemon prince's reaction is verbatim, mostly relief. So Luo isn't like that. Mystery solved. Pool settled. Someone pay someone. My own people's reaction is the one that gets me. Su Rui and Tao Guang and Yue Wuxia exchanging one look and then bowing. Exactly as before. Exactly as deep, because the hand that pulled each of them out of the water didn't change shape. Oaths get sworn on the spot, formal, Shanli binding every witness. My secret dies in that cave with everyone who learned it and walks out wearing their faces. Everyone takes it well, except one uninvited straggler who'd attached himself to the national delegation, Wei Jun, who stands at the back of the cave doing the worst math of his life. The person he despised was a girl. The girl took a blade for him. The girl loved him for years in secret while he sneered at her in public, and the girl died of it. That riverbank, that hollow-eyed silence he mistook for another scheme, and he never noticed the funeral, and the woman wearing her face has been looking at him like furniture ever since, because to her, that's all he is. Every cruelty he ever spent on the Wastrel prince refiles itself in his head under a different name, and the name is grief. Give her back, he says, actually says out loud to me in front of everyone. Give her back. Nobody in the cave dignifies it. What would I even return, sir? You had her for years, and you fed her to your vanity a coin at a time, and the person who finally treasured everything she was is standing in this cave wearing her bones and doesn't owe you a receipt. The sanctum itself pays for all. On its altar sits a sealed scroll, and the scroll is occupied. The moment my soul power brushes it, a voice older than kingdoms rolls through my skull, offering me power, treasures, secrets, anything, in exchange for one small tear in the seal. Ming Lei, an ancient 9-headed fiend beast, a soul so old and mean that the cultivator who caught it 1,000 years ago couldn't kill it, only imprison it, and then died leaving the lease unresolved. The voice is silky, the voice is reasonable, the voice has clearly talked its way half out of this scroll before. Counteroffer, I say, and start grinding ink. I write out a Buddhist Salvation Sutra from memory, full text, formal hand, and here's where my bloodline shows off. The calligraphy manifests as a golden dragon coiling over the paper. Don't ask me, my mother left me more than a seal, scripture, stubbornness, and several hours of increasingly indignant negotiation later. The ancient horror inside the scroll accepts the new arrangement, service, not freedom, behave and feed, misbehave, and the sutra bites. Ming Lei, reduced from calamity to contractor, gets installed as the artifact spirit of my mongoose battle beast, which means my little product line now contains an actual primordial fiend who wears a weasel and speaks fluent sarcasm. His first words in his new body are an assessment of his new employer. Shameless, he pronounces, grasping, completely without reverence. Correct on all counts, there's a soul-forged sword in the enemy kingdom I'll let you eat someday. A pause. Acceptable. We're going to get along fine, and my partner receives the cave's true bequest, the ancient cultivator's formation legacy, a lifetime of the highest formation art on the continent poured straight in. It tips him over the edge he's been suppressing for a year. Heaven rank, the advancement his technique has been holding back, finally fires, and the regression it imposed unwinds. The 5-year-old walks into the light of the outer cave, and a man walks out. Tall, cold-eyed, beautiful the way winter is beautiful, at a distance and at your own risk. The delegations take one look at the adult Ye Tianlong, master of the Longjin Pavilion, Dark Emperor of Qinglong, and the entire realm's social order reorganizes around him mid-breath, princes bowing, geniuses going pale. And I stand there holding the memory of 2 years of cheek-pinching, bedtime tucking, and calling this man my future queen in public. And I say the only thing available, Xiao Long Long. Don't, says the Dark Emperor in a voice like a struck bell. Call me that here, not ever. I notice the loophole, and his ears go faintly red, and that's how I learned that heaven rank does not cure everything. The rest of the delegations give the adult Ye Tianlong a 50-pace radius of terrified respect. I hand him a bowl at dinner and tell him he was easier to feed when he was portable. The whiplash on the watching faces is medicinal. Even now, knowing what he is, my hands haven't updated their files. They still reach out to fix his collar, and he still lets them, and the 50-pace radius watches that like a solar eclipse, unsafe to view directly. That night, in the camp we make in the outer cave, the two of us finally have the conversation we've been not having for 2 years, and it starts because I, with the survival instincts of a moth, shove him onto the bedding to check whether the adult body kept the old shoulder scar. He catches my wrists. The room gets very quiet. You do remember, he says, that you promised to raise me as your queen. I was joking. I wasn't. He lets that sit. Eat me and take responsibility, or don't touch me at all. And there it is, laid out with imperial bluntness, not flirtation, terms, a lifetime, or nothing from a man who has never once in his life shared anything he owned. I pull back and I give him honesty because he's earned it. I've died once already. I have a body full of secrets, a family full of graves, enemies I haven't met yet, and a heart I've never tested under load. I won't promise a lifetime as a reflex. He listens, black eyes steady, and then he nods once, like a man closing a negotiation at an acceptable interim position. Then here's the arrangement. If we share life and death, and we still choose each other, then I'll let you eat me. You'll let me. I'm aware of the market, says the most beautiful man on the continent, and blows out the lamp. Reader, I did not sleep well. The realm has one act left, and it opens with a betrayal we should have all seen coming. The cave's null zone and its restrictions have been working on everyone's minds, and in Wei Jun's they find rot to feed. All that curdled regret, the girl he threw away, the family he embarrassed, the wastrel who outgrew him in every direction while he stood still. Somewhere in the dark of the sanctum, he triggers the cave's self-destruct formation, and the realm's exit protocols throw our whole party into the volcanic winter zone. Cultivation sealed, pure survival. For most of the delegations, this is a death sentence. Cultivators with sealed cultivation are just expensively dressed people, and expensively dressed people die of cold and wolves like anyone. For me, it's Tuesday. I've done hard vacuum survival drills where the punishment for failing was actual vacuum. I nap stone knives. I build bows from sinew and frozen wood. I start fire with an ice lens ground against my sleeve while grown prodigies watch like I'm performing miracles. It's a lens, gentlemen. Light bends. This is not sorcery. I kill demonic black bears with leverage, patience, and terrain, and we render them into food, clothing, and tent hides in that order. When Wei Yi takes a fever, I run a night herb route through wolf territory alone, and the wolves and I come to a professional understanding, which is that I walk where I please and they remember an appointment elsewhere. My people cluster around my fires and live. Everyone, others don't. The realm stops being a resort and reminds everyone it was built as a filter. And the delegations that mocked my hot pot prices spend the freeze rediscovering what things actually cost. And Wei Jun, fully gone now, makes his play, a red ball, some salvaged destruct charge from the cave, hurled into the mountain's throat. The volcano answers. In the chaos he grabs for me, and the crown prince both drags us toward a fissure, and his face is nothing I recognize, just an open wound with a grip. Die with me, that's the whole plan. That's what's left of the capital's golden boy. We go over the edge, and Ye Tianlong jumps in after us. No hesitation, no calculation, a heaven-rank powerhouse diving into a volcanic fissure after a sealed, powerless woman, which by every law of this world is suicide. Hold that image. Later, when his peers hear about it, they'll stop teasing him entirely, because there are jokes, and then there's a man who followed you into a volcano. Wei Jun falls past us into the dark and the heat, and that's the last this story sees of him, presumed dead, unmourned by anyone in the fissure he chose. Us? We don't die, because the fissure isn't a grave, it's a door. We land hard on a stone shelf in the deep dark, heat breathing up from below, and when the dust settles, there's a path, carved, deliberate, lit by veins of glowing ore. The cave above, it turns out, was the decoy, the treasure marked loudly enough for the whole realm to fight over, and the real opportunity, the one the old priest's divinations pointed at, is down here, under the volcano, filed behind a suicide entrance no rational person would take. The realm hands it to the people who fell for each other instead of for the bait. There's a lesson in that I refuse to examine. The gauntlet earns its keep, tightrope paths over live magma, rock bridges a handspan wide, cross or cook, and my sealed cultivation means I cross them the honest way, on balance and nerve, with the most powerful man on the continent walking behind me, radiating the specific tension of someone who cannot decide whether to hover. Lava fish in the cooling pools, ugly as sin, edible, and every bite tempers the body like a forge cycle, so we eat like kings of a very strange kingdom. Rock giants that assemble themselves out of the walls and have to be taken apart joint by joint, and each one drops a green energy bead that sinks into the skin and pays you for the labor. And my favorite room in either lifetime. A formation chess hall. Stone boards the size of courtyards, and when you sit, the game swallows you. Full immersion war. You command armies inside a sandbox battlefield, feel the terrain, spend the lives, live the consequences, then wake at the board with your losses itemized. My partner, freshly stuffed with the ancient cultivator's formation legacy, is a monster at it. I lose the first 3 games. Then I stop playing his game and start playing mine. Logistics, morale, supply lines, all the unglamorous murder I did for a living in another universe, and the boards start falling my way, and we sit in that buried hall for days, 2 people with sealed cultivation and 1 lantern, wiping out imaginary nations and arguing doctrine like an old married couple. I remember thinking, clear as a bell, I want this exact thing for troop training. File that thought. It wins a war later. And at the bottom, the altar, 2 golden orbs humming with dormant life, a juvenile true dragon soul and a heavenly phoenix soul, consciousness wiped clean, blank and waiting. To anyone else, holy relics. To the only mech engineer on the continent, they're the 2 most perfect dominant cores imaginable for the battle beasts I'm going to build one day. 1 dragon, 1 phoenix, 1 for him, 1 for me. The symbolism is not subtle. The realm has been reading our pendants. We surface as the realm begins to close, and the closing is a mess. Heaven rank power gets forcibly ejected first. The realm spits my partner out like a watermelon seed, and the last thing he gets to shout across the collapsing sky is an address. Come to Qinglong country to find me. Then it's a foot race. The realm shreds itself behind us in curtains of white light, terrain unstitching, sky peeling, and I haul the crown prince through a disintegrating pocket world toward a gate shrinking like a closing eye. Outside, every rival delegation is already assembled and counting heads, and the count keeps coming up too short, and I'm told the mood was complex. Several parties were audibly hoping we don't make it, already drafting the condolences and recalculating the trade contracts. Zhou Mingyuan was arguing with the gate itself. My own people were being physically restrained from going back in. We come through in the final second, singed, laughing, rich beyond argument, and Wei Yi has the presence of mind to trip and make it look harrowing, while I have the presence of mind to look exhausted instead of like a woman whose storage bag contains 2 divine beast souls. The disappointed parties applaud our survival with the enthusiasm of men at their own audit. The exit interviews are chaos. Treasures are missing. Faces are missing. A volcano happened, and I stand there with a straight face and attribute every unexplained acquisition to the 3 hegemon crown princes, who are too grand to deny it and too entertained to correct it. The realm closes behind us for another cycle, and the continent's clock starts ticking because there's a tradition older than any of us. After every Kunlun opening, the 3 border kingdoms measure what their neighbors brought out and they go to war over the difference. Everyone at every border market says the same sentence that autumn. 6 months, maybe less. Home then, and the homecoming has a hole in it. Uncle Ren, the Xiao Yao king, meets me at Xia City's gates with the governor's seals already boxed for return, and the city behind him running better than I left it, because of course the empire's laziest man turns out to be a superb administrator, the one time anyone hands him something worth administering. He tells me over dinner that he's leaving, seclusion, the breakthrough he's postponed for years, decade after decade of putting his own advancement last behind watching over other people's children. Whose fault is the postponing, I ask, and he laughs and doesn't answer which is the answer. I load him with my partner's advancement pills for the road, argue him into a fur cloak from my own stock, and on his last evening he sits in my garden and plays the zither, an old tune. Badly, on purpose I think, the way you play something when playing it well would cost too much. He doesn't explain for whom, and I don't ask because some of my family's ghosts deserve their privacy, and because I've started to suspect the answer would rearrange what I know about my parents' generation, and I want him gone toward his mountain with his weight lightened, not doubled. He rides out at dawn, purple robes going gray in the distance. The city feels 1 degree colder for a season. Come back stronger, Uncle Ren. The list of people allowed to worry about me is short, and you're on it. No time to feel it. War is coming on a schedule everyone can read, and I intend to be the best fed, best armed, most obnoxiously prepared target in the history of invasions. I gather my cabinet, the seasons, the three, my generals Dong Chao, and put the doctrine in one sentence. We will not win this war when it starts. We will win it now, in the granaries and the workshops, and then go collect the paperwork. The arsenal ramps first, my workshops marrying this world's craft to my old world's blueprints, Duamubo and the old prince arguing over my drawings like two cats sharing a fish, a repeating crossbow that folds down to forearm size and cycles 27 bolts, standard issue for scouts, a 9-headed spear that opens mid-thrust like an umbrella of bad news for the heavy infantry, armor lines, shield lines, the heavy cavalry barding with its weight reduction inscriptions, all of it stockpiling in warehouses under Dong's very personal security. Then logistics, because amateurs discuss tactics and I've actually run a legion, and every war I've ever watched lost was lost in the stomach first. My kitchens invent instant noodles and canned luncheon meat, shelf-stable, boiling water ready, designed for marches, and the first field test nearly causes a riot because the test battalion refuses to hand back the leftovers. I stockpile mountains of both. Yes, I weaponize noodles. That is a literal statement, not a joke about supply. And its time will come, and when it comes, it will take 30,000 men prisoner without a sword drawn. A medic corps trains in field surgery basics, stop the bleeding, splint the bone, carry, and every soldier's pack gets a wound kit and a life-saving pill, standard issue, costed into the budget above weapons, and when my quartermasters query the priority, I make the policy sentence public. No soldier of mine dies of a treatable wound in a ditch. The army copies that sentence onto banners without asking me. Fine, some things should be banners, and because a city is more than its teeth, the peacetime organs go in too. An academy open to every class, commoner kids at desks next to noble ones, and the first term's top student is a fisherman's daughter, which causes exactly the aristocratic indigestion I built the seating chart for. Mo Ying Yu lectures on battle beasts to packed halls. A collection pavilion, a great library anchored by the Atlas's published volume, readable by anyone with contribution points, and the weather formations my formation masters raise over the whole fief keep it spring inside my borders year-round, so the reading courtyards stay full through what the rest of the border calls winter. Somewhere in the capital, a minister reads a report stating that the punchline fief now has better schools, better weather, and better libraries than the capital, and files it under exaggeration, which suits me. Let them keep filing. The library, I want it noted, becomes an accidental weapon. My playboys, hungry for points, borrow their own family's hoarded classics and donate reading rights. The noble family heads arrive one after another, purple with outrage, to reclaim their treasures and leave, every single one having pledged more volumes because I show them the ledgers, lend your texts, earn reading slots to every other family's texts. Within a month, the great houses of the capital are competing to donate their secret libraries to a border city out of pure mutual distrust. Knowledge hoarded for centuries, unlocked by spite. I love this country, and the Four Seasons get promoted while we're at it. Jia takes the medical hall, a poisoner-catching maid now running a 100-bed institution. Chun takes trade, and foreign merchants learn to fear her smile across a contract table. Shu takes the workshops, a Dong takes the intelligence web, and her reports start arriving before the events they describe finish happening, which I've asked her to stop doing because it unsettles the generals. 4 girls bought as servants for a doomed heir, now running the ministries of a city-state. Nobody in the capital has noticed that Xia City has a cabinet. They're still counting my male favorites, 6 months to war. We use all of it every hour, and when the declaration finally comes, the mood in my council hall is not dread. It's the specific calm of a household that has been expecting guests as cooked and would like them to arrive before the food gets cold. With war inbound, I do what any sensible commander does. I invite the enemy over for a shopping trip. The Z City Trade Fair, delegations from all 12 lower-tier countries, including prominently Z and Cho, the 2 kingdoms currently sharpening knives for my border. They accept the invitations, of course. Refusing means admitting fear of a border fief, and besides, their war ministries are desperate for a look inside my walls, which is fine because everything I show them, I'm showing on purpose. 3 exhibition halls, the agricultural hall, new grains and spice crops with sample plots and yield tallies posted, and I watch 12 countries' farming ministers do the same 3-stage reaction, disbelief, recount, quiet clutching of the chest. The industry hall, glass you can see through, paper that doesn't crumble, soap, mirrors, the small miracles that build trade addiction, and by noon the merchant families attached to every delegation are fighting over exclusive import rights in my anteroom, which was the hall's entire purpose, and the weapons hall. My staff demonstrates the folding 27-shot crossbow on armored dummies slowly, then once more for the note takers, then the 9-headed spear which opens mid-thrust like an umbrella of bad news and turns one dummy into a persuasive argument. The Z and Cho envoys watch with the expressions of men mentally rewriting their war ministry's invasion memos in real time, and I stroll the hall making friendly conversation about production volumes. All of it true. That's the beauty. No bluff to call. That hall isn't commerce. It's a vaccination, and the disease is optimism. The intelligence comes back mixed. The fear takes, but Dong's web picks up something worse underneath. Xing country, a medium rank power, a full tier above our whole neighborhood, is leaning on the scales. The Pang family there, in-laws of a certain scarred Liu Wei, has been promised my head as a wedding favor, and they've hired talent to make sure the coming war delivers it, so the border war has a sponsor now. Noted. Filed. We'll get there. The fair closes with an auction, rabbit-type twin battle beasts that make every noblewoman in the hall lose composure, luxury goods, and the crown lots, flying vehicles at 10 to 15 million gold apiece, which is where 2 wolves walk into my sheep pen wearing very expensive sheep costumes. 2 young masters in the 3rd row, faces like paintings, manners like tax collectors. They outbid everyone on everything, casually, brutally, with the bottomless purses of people who have never once checked a price, and they do it with a bored superiority that curdles the whole hall's evening. Delegates from 12 countries watch their dream purchases get sniped by 2 unknowns and start inventing genealogies for them. The popular theory, given my reputation, is that they're auditioning for the famous male favorite vacancy with a wealth display. They hear that theory, they let it stand. Their smirks say small country people, small country imaginations. I take one look at the way they stand, weight-centered, hands idle, the stance of men who have never needed to be careful, and at the suppressed pressure leaking off them like heat off a banked stove, and I start smiling for reasons I keep to myself. After the auction, they make the traditional mistake. They get arrogant with the host, something about how quaint it is, a border market putting on airs, and how in a real country, and they don't get to finish the sentence. I thrash them, publicly, in the exhibition yard, with the 12-country audience ringing the walls. They release their battle beasts, and the beasts are heaven grade, suppressed to pass local inspection, the arrogance of bringing divine tier hardware to a border fair, and Ming Lei's mongoose body handles both of them, an ancient fiend putting 2 divine constructs in arm locks while providing board commentary on their build quality. The young masters themselves I handle personally, with the careful courtesy you show expensive porcelain you are actively breaking, no permanent damage, maximum educational value. The delegations watch the 2 untouchable strangers eat dirt and revise their genealogy theories sharply downward, which is exactly wrong and exactly what I want. When they're sitting in the dust, I crouch down and say, "Now, Gu Zhenyu, Du Mingchen, do your big brothers know you're here? Younger brothers of Gu Yuchen and Du Changfeng, baby princes of 2 super hegemon countries, snuck out of the most guarded palaces on the continent to see the border curiosity their elder brothers wouldn't shut up about after Kunlun. They gape at me, then at each other, then demand to know how I knew. Children, your brothers pout exactly the same way when my mongoose eats their things. It's genetic. And here's the thing about beating hegemon princelings correctly. It's a bonding exercise. Nobody has ever thrashed them before. Nobody has ever dared. Their whole lives are a corridor of bowing backs, and here's a border prince who knocked them down, dusted them off, and invited them to dinner like it was all one gesture. They're obsessed by the second course. By evening, they've moved into my guest courtyards over the strenuous objections of nobody, because who would object? By week's end, they're elbow deep in my arsenal and alchemy workshops, arguing metallurgy with Duanmu Bo and pestering Su Rui for pill techniques, having the first unsupervised fun of their gilded lives. They earn contribution points. They queue for noodles. They get scolded by my quartermasters for untidy bunks and take it with shining eyes like it's an exotic spa treatment. They stay for the whole war, their brothers, when the intel reaches the trial palace, reportedly aged years in an afternoon. Good. Families should share experiences. Before the war lands, one more opening. The War Beast Base, my pride, gets its grand tour for the 12 delegations, and I run it like a menu where half the dishes are marked, ask the chef. The training ground first. 100 soldiers of my Black Tiger Regiment run drills against reactive combat dummies built from materials nobody can scratch. 100 identical Black Tiger battle beasts moving like one animal. He Yunfei's envoys ask silkily whether this is my army's whole beast corps. I smile and say it's no fun knowing everything. You'll find out on the battlefield, and watch their delegation's note taker snap a brush. The assembly hall sealed, humming with machine sounds I decline to explain. The 5-terrain trial park, forest, desert, grassland, ice field, and a sealed castle stocked with live captured demonic beasts. A gift, incidentally, from a certain golden thigh of mine far away, who heard one wistful sentence about my training plans and shipped me a menagerie. And the rental hall, my favorite exhibit, battle beasts by the hour, rooms with 2 beasts each, bind one temporarily, fight the other, or bring your own, and spar both, every type and grade on the menu, priced in contribution points. A young noble volunteers to demo, picks up a rental tortoise, fights the room's fox beast, and loses, switches to the fox, loses again. To beasts with no one controlling them because I build an automatic combat mode into the rental stock, and the hall wants to know how the riderless beast keeps winning. It means your practice hours are lying to you. I tell him pleasantly, your compatibility with your own beast probably doesn't exceed 40%. Train here half a year and we'll fix that. The young man, instead of taking offense, confesses to 30% on the spot and asks about lodging in my city. And around the hall, I watch a dozen heirs of a dozen countries privately regrade themselves and start planning extended stays. When someone asks, worried on my behalf, about wear and tear on rented beasts, I shrug. If it breaks, I fix it. Broken beasts are the one commodity I can't lose money on, though the hall doesn't need to know why. The delegations arrive as enemies in waiting and leave as customers with anxiety. Best case, the Z and Chuan envoys go home and report that invading me is a bad investment. Worst case, war anyway, but every noble house of 10 neutral countries now has a subscription to my economy. Either way, the fare pays for itself. Then the paperwork of doom arrives anyway. Z and Cho declare war on Yin country, jointly, formally, 60 days after my fare. Xing country's fingerprints are all over the timing. Their combined armies double ours. The court panics on schedule, and the emperor makes his dispositions, and they're shrewd. 3 armies, 3 co-commanders, any 2 outvote the 3rd. Weibo with the Imperial Guard, Shen Yuejin with the Li family army, and me with the Lan family army designated as the support force, which every minister reads as a snub and I read correctly as a gift. The emperor is preserving my strength, not sidelining it, and the co-command veto means nobody can order my men into a grinder without my signature. The 3 princes are sent along for battlefield seasoning, which mostly means 3 courtyards of expensive luggage. I march with 50,000, 20,000 staying to hold Xia City. All of us in the black armor my forges have been quietly stockpiling. Gu Jinyu and Du Mingchen invite themselves along, openly skeptical. 2 countries against 1. They say, we want to watch how badly this goes. Watch closely, children. There will be a quiz. The border military town greets us with the warmth of a tax office. The Imperial Guard looks down on us as decorative auxiliaries. The Lei family army has generations of feud with our house and doesn't hide it. When the formal greetings happen at the gate, commanders dismounting, courtesies exchanged, I stay in the saddle and give Weibo and Shen Huijin a nod you could balance a coin on, and my 50,000 stand a little taller behind me because someone finally isn't apologizing for them. The quartering goes by rank, princes in courtyards with servants, me in a small courtyard with 10 rooms, a heated brick kang, and 2 bare locust trees rattling in the wind, which by border standards is luxury, and by my house guests' standards is a hate crime. Because I've brought Gu Zhenyu and Du Mingchen, and the 2 hegemon princelings walk into that plain little hall, look at the ordinary ceramic teacups and ask with genuine confusion whether people actually live like this. People live in much less, I tell them. If you can't endure it, go back to Xia City. I don't have spare staff to fan you. That does it. Pride is the one lever that always works on royalty. They plant themselves on the kang, choke down the garrison dinner of 1 meat dish, 3 vegetables, and steamed buns, eating slowly with the tragic dignity of exiled gods, and by the 3rd day they've stopped noticing. I'm not just hazing them for fun, although it is fun. Someday these 2 will help rule half a continent, and I'd rather they'd once eaten a soldier's dinner in a cold room first. Their brothers can thank me never. The evening I arrive, I walk the camp. Not an inspection, a stroll, checking my men are settled, and it turns into the thing that defines the next month because the camp has 3 armies in it and only one of them is happy. And this is where I unpack the weapon nobody scouts for. My army eats 3 meals a day, white steamed buns, fist-sized unlimited, mutton soup with real mutton in it, breakfast, an actual concept, porridge and stuffed buns before morning drills. They sleep in hide tents that laugh at wind, with iron stoves glowing in the middle, wearing new padded uniforms, cashmere scarves, lined boots, fur hats, gloves. My supply convoys did not carry gold or silk. They carried comfort in bulk because I have commanded starving armies and warm ones, and only one of those wins wars. The first night sets the tone. My cooks butcher dozens of fat sheep in the open, seasonings going in by the double handful, and the smell of mutton soup rolls across the entire garrison town like an argument nobody can win. The Imperial Guard and Leaf family army squat over their bowls of white radish soup, and I watch 1,000 men simultaneously discover that their dinner has no flavor. When I walk my own chow line, a soldier ladles me a bowl unasked, and I drink it standing there with them, and the cook grins so wide at my compliment that the enemy army's watching soldiers audibly cannot process it. A commander drinking line soup from the same pot. Then the night watch rotation puts their patrol squads through my tents to change shifts, and they walk into the warmth and stop dead. Hide tents, iron stoves, soldiers in fur hats playing cards in comfort. One guard squad reportedly had to be ordered out. By morning, word of the land army's stoves, scarves, gloves, and 3 meals has crossed the whole garrison, and the looks my men get on the parade ground have changed from contempt to a complicated hunger that has nothing to do with rank. The other 2 armies eat radish soup and coarse-grained pancakes twice a day in canvas tents that distribute the cold democratically. And for 7 days, across that shared camp, 60,000 Imperial soldiers watch my men line up for seconds of mutton, watch them run their morning 10 laps around the town, and come back steaming and laughing, and something ancient and load-bearing in military morale begins to crack. The soldiers who once quit my army for better postings watch their old comrades eat meat daily and experience regret as a physical illness. Soldiers who once quit the lawn army for better fed postings come sniffing around asking to return. My officers, without needing instructions, deliver the answer, "You left boldly, now dream on." The 2 armies' generals mutter, "Let's see how long they keep it up." My cooks answer with lunch, and the first prince, watching me drink soup shoulder to shoulder with infantrymen and trade dirty jokes over the ladle, delivers his considered strategic assessment that winning over soldiers this way lowers one's status. The third prince, who is smarter, which isn't a compliment, murmurs, "But it's very effective, isn't it?" Yes, it is. And it hasn't even started being effective yet. 7 days in, the pot boils over, and Shen Yuejin makes the mistake this whole act is named after. His soldiers and the Imperial Guard are rioting politely, demanding to know why the auxiliary army eats like wedding guests. Rather than feed his men, Shen Yuejin decides the problem is my menu and comes to my courtyard with Wei Bo in tow to formally request, "Get comfortable with this sentence that I lower my army's food standard so the other armies stop feeling bad." I receive them warmly. I feed them mutton hot pot until they're glassy-eyed. That's not kindness, that's evidence collection. Watch them realize mid-bite what their own soldiers have been smelling for a week. And when Shen Yuejin finally makes his request, I say, "Absolutely, let's discuss it." Then I walk out of the courtyard, summon the Lan family army to assembly with my mystic energy carrying across the whole camp, and repeat his proposal to 50,000 armed men, verbatim at parade volume. The commander of the Leaf family army feels you eat too well and dress too warmly. He has requested this king lower your rations and supplies. What do you think of the proposal? The response is not printable. The Leaf family army's own soldiers, listening from their tents, discover that their commander's solution to their hunger was to make my men hungry too, and their opinion of him drops through the frozen ground. Shen Yuejin stands there, publicly wearing the exact face of a man who has walked into a mirror in the dark and hisses at me later that this was a scheme. Of course it was a scheme. You mailed it to me. I just opened it in public. And then, having established who feeds their soldiers and who doesn't, I flip the whole thing into theater with a happy ending, because a divided camp loses wars, and I need these 60,000 resentful men to love me by spring. I gift 100 live sheep to each of the other armies for their pots. I announce that grudges are for peacetime. Brothers are brothers on the battlefield, and anyone who dislikes anyone is welcome to settle it today with fists in a circle, followed by meat and wine for all 3 armies on my account. The Crown Prince blesses it on the spot. The camp explodes into the happiest mass brawl in military history, and naturally, someone has to open the card. It just so happens, I tell Shen Yuejin, rolling up my sleeves, that this king finds you very unpleasant. You shouldn't hide. I beat him in front of 3 armies, carefully. No visible bruises. Nothing that impairs a commander before a campaign. Just every soft point cataloged and invoiced, so that he spends the night unable to find a sleeping position while looking completely uninjured, which his own servant, hovering with medicine and finding nothing to put it on, must have found deeply confusing. Just rub it over my whole body, he tells the man. Through his teeth, I'm told the words carried through the wall. The feast that night is the best diplomacy of the war. 500 sheep roasting in the open, 100 waist-high wine jars. One rule, drink your fill, but nobody gets drunk. We're still at war. And the Night Watch eats double meat instead and drinks after victory. I open the first jar myself and toast the 3 armies to driving out the invaders and coming home alive, and 60,000 voices answer. Then I get dragged into finger-guessing games by my own soldiers, lose theatrically, pay my forfeits and jokes filthy enough to make veterans blush, and by midnight there are Imperial Guardsmen and Lee Army men and lawnmen around the same fires, comparing scars and stealing each other's skewers. The first prince and Shen Weijin leave early, dignity intact, influence evaporating. The third prince tries to copy my crowd work, wades in with a wine bowl, and discovers he has no common language with soldiers, none, not one sentence, and retreats. You can't fake the line soup thing, your highness. The men can smell it. By morning, the three armies have brawled themselves cheerful, eaten my sheep, drunk my wine, and started learning each other's names. Fine work for one dinner invitation. Weibo comes to breakfast and buys food and winter kit for the whole Imperial Guard at friend prices, cash on delivery. Shen Yuejin arrives the next day, pride pre-swallowed, and buys the same at 20% over, and when his generals protest the difference, I explain the tariff structure. Honestly, this king and Weibo are friends. This king and your commander are not. The surcharge is for my emotional labor, and the rumor mill makes sure every Lee soldier knows their meals improved because of me and cost extra because their commander picked a fight first. He reportedly coughs blood. Medicine can't fix that either. The purchase also breaks something useful inside the prince's faction. Before swallowing his pride, Shen Yuejin consulted the first prince, whose strategic contribution was buy and credit and decide later whether to pay, which against me is the financial equivalent of licking a sword. Shen Yuejin declined the advice with visible pain, paid cash on delivery, and privately concluded, in words that eventually reached me through 3 delighted intermediaries, that his royal cousin couldn't scheme his way out of an open field, a rift right where I like my enemies to keep one. I didn't even have to dig it. Some pits excavate themselves if you just deliver groceries nearby. Then the real war starts, and the first half month happens without me because support force. It goes exactly how you'd fear. The Imperial Guard and Lee family army march out as the main force and get systematically shredded. 20,000 Lee casualties, 10,000 guard, and the reports all describe the same impossible thing, a killing zone in the middle of the battlefield where a formation stands, and soldiers who enter it never come out. They just fall down, screaming at nothing until they stop. The urgent summons reaches me at dawn. My 50,000 load into military trucks, 10 days of marching compressed into 1 day of driving, and the sight of the Land family army arriving by armored convoy does things to both sides' morale that I frankly budgeted for. Weibo briefs me gray-faced. The enemy has a hired expert, some white-haired young master in black robes, who set up the killing formation and gave our armies a 1-day deadline to come die in it or run home. His style, Shen Yuejin's brother mutters, is somehow more arrogant than yours. I praise. Let's go meet him. I walk to the edge of the formation zone alone, over the objections of every general present. Weibo physically catches my arm at the boundary. How certain are you, he demands, and I give him the honest number, and he holds on 1 second longer, and lets go, and that second is the entire history of our friendship in miniature. The zone looks like nothing. An empty field with a wrongness to the air, a greasy cold that has no weather behind it, and too many of our dead on the ground, all of them face up, all of them with expressions I make myself look at, because a commander who won't look at the bill shouldn't sign the orders. I take out the ancient formation disc, the Kunlun Cave's gift, and start calculating, fingers pinching through positions like a fortune teller, which is exactly what the watching generals mutter I look like. My own officers, seeing their commander do finger arithmetic at a haunted field, exchange looks of profound spiritual struggle. Not fortunes, gentlemen, coordinates. The disc names the thing for me, a 7-fiend soul-locking array built on chained spirits and grievance, a slow soul shredder, genuinely vicious work. It also names the countermeasure, 4 gates, 4 seasons, wood fire, metal water, break them in sequence and the whole engine stalls. I'm going in, I tell the commanders. Have the armies ready. When it breaks, we hit their camp while lunch is cooking. How certain are you? Weibo asks. Over 70%. Instinct also, it's in Zosa Darichi Shoutharium. Our lengthy should I come back out and we think of something else, sure. Commanders hate honest math. He lets me go anyway, and I'll remember that he did. I stroll into the death zone like it's a garden path, crimson fox fur cloak over black armor, because if 50,000 of my men are watching, the walk is the message. Inside, the yin energy crawls over me, looking for a grip, and finds nothing. I've walked worse battlefields than this formation has ever pretended to be. I find the 4 gates in the time it takes to drink tea, feed the disc my mystic energy, and let it fly. 4 detonations, white smoke columns like the formation exhaling its ghosts. Done. In the enemy camp, I learn later, the white-haired 7th young master of the Tang family feels his masterpiece break and coughs up blood on the spot. When I walk out of the smoke hole, board a straw from somewhere now dangling off my lip, and call across the field, what kind of monstrous villain sets up something this filthy? Come out and let this king look at you. The two enemy armies' morale does something audible. He comes out. We compare arrogance. He threatens to take my formation disc. I invite him to come bite me. Standard diplomacy. Then he attacks. Profound rank 5th grade. A dark longsword wreathed in green soulfire. Genuinely strong. And I introduce him to Ming Lei. The mongoose takes one look at that sword, refined from beast souls over a decade of collecting, and licks his chops. He swallows the sword key, then the flames. Then when the enraged young master throws the sword itself into a summoning pattern and pulls screaming beast souls out of it, Ming Lei eats those out of the air like festival snacks, grabs the enlarged blade in 2 claws, and swallows a decade of the Tang family's craftsmanship in 1 gulp. Give it back, the young master screams, which is not how swallowing works. He summons his trump card, an earth-grade scorpion battle beast shrouded in black mist. My ancient horror doubles his own size, bats the pincers aside, and eats that too, whole, and the Soul Link backlash puts the young master on his knees, vomiting black blood. He sends 100 soldiers to seize my beast. They stop existing as a formation. He sends 1,000. Ming Lei moves through them like an editor through a bad draft, and I frown and let him, because mercy for the enemy is a luxury I'll spend elsewhere. Meanwhile, our 3 armies on cue hit the enemy camp mid-meal, and I go hunting the formation master personally, 1 golden axe on each shoulder, straw still in my teeth, at a walk because he's watching over his shoulder, and running from a walking woman does something to a prodigy soul. When he turns to make a stand, his backup sword shatters on my first axe like sugar glass. My second takes his left arm at the shoulder. I said this story keeps a PG rating on violence, so he lives, he leaves, screaming, slung over a rescuer's saddle. 2 things travel with him. First, my quiet lift of his storage bag off his belt as he fell, a decade of Tang family refining materials. Thank you for your patronage. Second, my deliberate decision not to finish him, and Xiong Hao asks me straight out, Commander, isn't that releasing a tiger to the mountains? I want the tiger to go home, I tell him, and complain. His family refines everything from beast souls. Every rescue party they send is groceries for Little Nine, and every storage bag is stock for my forges. Why would I close the supply line? My generals look at me with the specific dread of men realizing their commander sees battlefields as logistics with screaming. The routed enemy retreats, first blood to us, and the ledger of it, thousands of enemy dead against our light wounds, none of mine lost. The aftermath party features my new favorite camp game. Everyone tries to lift my axes. Officers, champions, strong men, one by one, they grip the haft, heave, and achieve nothing. Wei Bo, yellow rank peak and proud of it, gets 1 axe to knee height with both hands and the veins standing out in his neck, sets it down with enormous care, and looks at me across it. You swing 2 of these. They're weighted for me. That is not an answer that helps anyone here sleep. The War Council picks its next move, cut the enemy's grain line. The route runs behind their main force, unreachable for any conventional detachment. Fortunately, I don't have conventional detachments. I have 2 bored hegemon princelings sitting in my tent complaining they're growing mold. Heavy responsibility, I tell Gu Zhenyu and Du Mingchen with a hint of doubt in my voice, the hint being the hook. Dangerous, prestigious, 20 contribution points each. 20, they howl. A flying vehicle costs 500. Do I know how long 20 takes to earn? And so we haggle in a war tent over peace rates, and they fight me up to 50 each and feel like wolves of commerce, actual princes of super hegemon countries, negotiating hard labor rates with the enthusiasm of coupon collectors, while I add my one condition with a defeated sigh, fine 50, but then don't just cut the supply line, capture the grain intact. Burning is for amateurs. They shake on it feeling like winners. I sweeten the pot by lending them Ming Lei as a bodyguard, which is also how I keep all 3 of my most destructive assets in one supervised group instead of 3 unsupervised ones. 3 days later, the enemy's entire grain convoy is not burned. It is confiscated, escorts scattered, carts rerouted, and parked behind my lines under new flags, driven in by 2 glowing princelings and 1 smug mongoose, and my army's winter reserve doubles overnight at the cost of 100 contribution points. And my acting. Somewhere in a palace far away, their imperial brothers read this intelligence and per report needed to sit down. Then 50 points. The most noble blood on the continent, hoodwinked into a supply raid for 50 points and the promise of eventually affording a flying car they could buy a factory of. I run a tight fief, and then, with the enemy's granary empty and mine full, I execute the maneuver that gets taught, I would like to believe, in war colleges for the next 100 years. I march 100,000 men to within 500 meters of the starving enemy camp, and we set up tents, not an attack, a neighborhood. I step out of the truck in a purple mink cloak with a hand warmer, wave cheerfully at their scrambling battle battle lines, and call over. No need for nerves. We won't be attacking for a few days. Let's just be neighbors. Their sentries scramble, their horns blare, their whole camp stands to arms, expecting the final assault, and instead they get my quartermasters pacing out tent rows and my soldiers unloading stoves. The cognitive damage is immediate and severe. You can watch it travel along their wall, men lowering their bows one by one, not because anyone ordered it, but because there's no drill for the enemy moving in next door, because their commanders are two people I know from the maze and the tournament. He Yunfei, Crown Prince of Z, my beautiful flute player, currently gray-faced and coughing from an injury I gave him during the grain theft pursuit when I knocked him off his horse mid-rescue. And yes, I felt a little bad, and no, not enough to stop. And Cheng Wei of Cho, my paralyzed maze victim, currently vibrating with rage at a frequency you can hear from our lines, and I have learned exactly how to fight princes. You don't break their armies first, you break their composure, and their armies follow it down. Beauty. I called to He Yunfei with tender concern. You look terrible. This king will send medicine, and I do. Real medicine. Su Rui's best work, delivered into the enemy command tent with my compliments. His generals beg him not to take a pill from the enemy commander. He looks at the bottle for a long moment and says, Lan Yue wouldn't stoop to poison, and swallows it in front of them. That night, he sleeps without coughing for the first time in a week. I want to be honest with you about what I'm doing to this man, because the story is about to make it worse. I flirt with him because it works, because it scrambles his command judgment, and his court can't accuse him of anything since I do it to every beautiful person on principle. But somewhere between the maze, the tournament, the medicine, and the mockery, Z Country's crown prince has started asking his best friend quiet questions about why his chest does things when the enemy commander calls him beauty. Cheng Wei's diagnosis, delivered with zero sympathy. You honey-trapped Lan Yue and got caught in your own honey. I'm a woman, which he doesn't know, pretending to be a man who loves beauties, which he does know, and his heart has filed the whole thing under questions to never answer. War is cruel. Now, the noodles. The enemy is down to half rations, then one meal a day, thin porridge, and counting. Their resupply is at least a week out, and thanks to my princeling procurement team, the original shipment is parked behind my lines being inventoried, and 500 meters upwind sits my army. And at noon, on my order, 50,000 men take out their field kits. Understand that my soldiers have been waiting for this order. They tasted the instant noodles once in Za City at the product trial, and have been thinking about them since. And when the backpacks were issued with noodles and tinned luncheon meat inside, not one man of 50,000 snuck a bite because the order said, wait, that's discipline. That's also 50,000 men who really want lunch. The order comes. Each man produces a bag of noodles and a tin of meat. The cook lines run boiling water down the rows. 50,000 bowls get filled at the same moment. Lids on, 3 minutes. Lids off. The smell rolls over their camp like artillery. Seasoning packet sorcery. Meat fat steam on an empty stomach wind. Enemy pickets stand at their posts, swallowing convulsively. Somewhere on their wall, a man audibly starts crying. My soldiers eat with the unhurried theatrical relish of men who have been briefed that eating is the mission, slurping in surround sound, comparing flavors at volume, going back for the broth. War crimes, someone will call this later. Catering, I maintain. Aggressive catering. You have to understand what this smell is to people who have never met industrial seasoning. It's not food, it's sorcery. Starving soldiers stand at their picket lines swallowing air. Their officers stop pretending to look elsewhere. Even Wei Bo and Shen Yuijin, who have eaten, wander over asking what that is and whether the army can purchase a batch, and I sell them both a supply on the spot, which means by dinner all three of our armies are slurping an aromatic surround sound while the enemy drinks hot water. Then the personal touch. I send Tao Guang into the enemy camp openly under a courtesy flag, carrying 1 steaming bowl and 10 packs of noodles and 10 tins, a care package for He Yunfei, because this king cannot bear for a beauty to go hungry. The scene in their command tent, reconstructed from my plant's report, is exquisite. The crown prince of Zai country stares at enemy noodles while his generals stare at him. He gives the hot bowl away to the wounded Tang prodigy of all people, diplomacy to the last. Then he has the dry packs cooked for his starving generals, who fall on them like wolves, to the last dreg of soup, and He Yunfei eats his own portion slowly, distracted, a man discovering that his enemy's care package has outflanked his entire supply doctrine. The rumors inside their palisade by nightfall, the commanders eat the enemy's noodles while we starve. It isn't even slander. That's the beauty of it. You can't punish a camp for repeating dinner. Then, Yue Wuxia takes the stage. My gentlest beauty walks to the midpoint between camps in a white fox cloak, alone, unarmed, which itself stops every archer on their wall out of sheer aesthetic confusion, and in a voice like spring water announces the terms. Ya City is hiring land reclamation workers. Every enlistee receives 5 bags of instant noodles and 5 tins of luncheon meat. Signing bonus, paid on arrival, warm clothes, full board, no fighting required, ever, farm work only, and the gates of Shu City stand open. He closes with a knife wrapped in silk. Your own commanders and generals love our noodles, brothers. They're eating them tonight. Come taste why. In the enemy command tent, I'm told, He Yunfei spat blood at that exact sentence because it was true. His generals were at that moment licking the bowls from my care package, and there is no counter-propaganda. For a fact, your own officers are wearing on their chins, and the night shift begins. In the small hours, in the dead ground between the camps, Tao Guang's teams meet defectors at the wire, a dozen here, 30 there, men crawling out under their own palisade with their boots around their necks. The first crossing is the famous one. A junior officer who stands up in full view says, loudly enough for his own sentries, that starving to death and getting beheaded weigh the same, and walks across. He gets a bowl in his hands before he's finished flinching. He eats it crying. 40 men follow him by dawn. Each defector gets fed the next morning in full view of the enemy camp. Hot congee, meat buns, seconds, deliberately visible. My cook fires placed for sightlines. Each spoonful is recruitment propaganda with steam coming off it. The enemy command locks down its perimeter, execution for deserters, rewards for informers, patrols doubled, and still the tents keep thinning night by night because my planted agitators inside their camp keep the arithmetic circulating in the ration lines. Starve here for commanders who lied about the grain. Or eat there, where the enemy lord feeds even prisoners, where a man's relative worked off a bandit sentence and now owns farmland, where the city glows gold at sunset. Ask anyone. You cannot execute arithmetic. They tried. Oh yes, the lie. Their command told the troops the grain convoy was delayed by snow. So I park the captured convoy, their own carts, their own banners still on the poles, in full view of both camps, and inform their army at large that their generals have been economizing on the truth along with everything else. The camp riots, and while it riots, I have my engineers raise a giant slab of white crystal, and onto it, from a recording ball, I project Shu City. Golden wheat to the horizon, streets of food stalls, flying vehicles, the academy, the pavilion, ordinary people in warm clothes, fat harvests, no corpses anywhere. Paradise, in moving pictures, at siege distance, with the smell of noodles drifting over it. The wall of starving soldiers watches moving pictures of a harvest with the reverence people usually save for gods. Somebody's sergeant says out loud into the silence, "That's not real," and somebody else answers, "I know those mountains. That's the Zia Valley. My cousin fled there. His letters said exactly this," and the sergeant doesn't argue again. An enemy meat grinder could not have done what that projector did. 30,000 men defect before the campaign ends. 30,000. My fief's labor shortage dies on that field without a single sword drawn. And Weibo, watching the tally climb, says the thing I'd been waiting a whole war for someone official to say. If we can win without filling ditches with our men, why would we ever fill ditches? His veterans hear their generals say soldiers' lives are worth respecting, and several of them, scarred men with decades of ditch arithmetic behind them, get conspicuously misty. The Lan family army's contribution to that particular battle report, total deaths, 0. 50,000 came, 50,000 standing, my old promise kept in public. The finale of the noodle campaign is pure brawl theater, when Cheng Wei, incandescent, demands we fight like soldiers instead of poaching like merchants. I stroll into their camp alone, hands in sleeves, to personally hold the gate open for anyone who wants a bowl. They swarm me. I hold the corridor with Minglei, who doubles in size and announces to the entire enemy army, those who want noodles, "Hurry up, this granddaddy will protect you." And a starving junior officer makes the first run, gets his bowl, inhales it weeping, and breaks the dam. I put Cheng Wei on the ground when he interferes. He Yunfei I handle differently. I dodge everything he throws until he's swaying, tell him gently to go rest and stop straining his injury, and when he won't, I catch him and put him to sleep with a chop to the neck and lower him down easy, because some enemies you break and some you're apparently collecting. Don't look at me like that. 2 commanders down, morale in shreds, defection queues at my soup pots. The allied armies of 2 kingdoms retreat 1,000 li to regroup and await reinforcements. In one campaign season, without one pitched assault, the invasion has lost 1/3 of its stomach and most of its dignity. Somewhere very far away in a sealed trial palace, 4 of the most powerful young men alive pass around my war reports like contraband. This needs a word of setting. Since Kunlun, my Xiao Longlong, and his 3 peers have been locked in a joint trial, their 4 nations inexplicably require of their heirs 9 levels, cleared only by perfect cooperation, and nobody, including them, knows why the 4 hegemons keep training their successors to fight as one unit. That question is a thread hanging off the edge of this whole story, and someone will pull it eventually. Not today. Today, they're on a rest level, reading my war like a serialized novel. Go Mingyuan laughing until he can't breathe. This woman treats war like a game. Gu Yuchuan wanting to come watch in person and being told no by his own bodyguards. Du Changfeng, the alchemist, noting only that the instant noodles sound worth licensing and meaning it, he follows up. And Ye Tianlong reads the part where I sent medicine to a beautiful enemy prince, goes dangerously still, then reads the part where I made the same prince spit blood twice in a week, and files, per witnesses, the first genuinely happy expression of the entire confinement. I miss her, he tells them, unprompted, into the silence. The three of them check him for fevers. The Dark Emperor of Qinglong country permits the checking, which frightens them more than anything in the 9 levels. The war's second half arrives with gray hair and grudges. The two kingdoms sack their pretty princes and send the varsity 2 old marshals, General Chung of Chou and General He of Z, veterans of 50 years of border wars, and Dong's files confirm what my house already knew, the 2 men who murdered my grandfather. The betrayed battle plan the third master sold, it landed on their desks. The ambush that killed the old war god of Yin country, they designed it, and something else, something about my parents' disappearance, hangs off that story with threads I can't see yet. They arrive careful, fortify a canyon camp, and refuse all provocation. Fine. Grandfather taught this country's armies half of what they know, and I'm about to demonstrate the other half. But before that, a small massacre I technically don't commit. The Tang family of Xing country, avenging their one-armed prodigy and pursuing older business, sends a delegation into the enemy camp, 5 black-robed experts, including the family's own young lord. Their orders, and Ming Lei, dispatched by me to eavesdrop, records every word on a crystal ball, are not about the war at all. They're about me. The family believes I carry my mother's supreme treasure, a red jade carved with a spider lily, and their instructions come from a nameless senior guest of their family. The same senior, the recording spells out, who orchestrated my grandfather's death, who supplied the poison that weakened him, who provided the tracking plate that lured my parents into a trap, who watched them choose to fall into spatial turbulence rather than surrender what he wanted. Capture Lan Yue, the delegation is told. Interrogate her about the red jade, then kill her or deliver her. The scene inside that tent, per the recording, deserves its own play. The 7th young master, my one-armed formation prodigy, lies on his sickbed getting savaged by his own kin, his glamorous fiancée announcing she'll petition to dissolve the engagement now that he's damaged stock, his half-brother, the young lord, looking through him like glass. Great family warmth, the Tang. Then, the uncle in charge lays out the mission, the red jade, the senior, the capture order, kill her after interrogation, or fake her death and deliver her, and makes everyone swear secrecy, because not even the upper-class countries know this one. Ming Lei listens to all of it, dutifully records it, and then, because he is an ancient fiend, and I did not explicitly forbid it, steps out from behind the cabinet, a palm-sized mongoose in a tent of experts, and asks if they're done talking. They attack him. Of course, that's the last decision any of them makes. 6 of the Tang family's finest die in their own tent, silently, drained to husks, and my monster strolls home glowing and burping, and hands me the crystal ball like a receipt, along with their storage bags, unprompted, because he's learned what I like. I should scold him. 6 deaths I didn't order is 6 deaths I didn't order. I look at the recording again, the senior, the poison. My parents herded like animals toward a hole in the world. The casual voices dividing up my capture like a shipping contract. And I scratch my monster behind the ears and say nothing at all. 2 facts fall out of that recording and rearrange my life. First, the red jade they're hunting isn't in my luggage. It's in me. My mother's seal, the spider lily on my chest, the thing that's hidden my sex and capped my talent readings my whole life. That's the treasure a hidden power has been killing my family to find, and I've been wearing it through every battlefield on this border. Second, the way the Tang men spoke of my parents' fall, hunted, cornered, but never confirmed, dead, and the strange warm thread in my bloodline that has never once mourned them, tells me something no evidence can. They're alive, somewhere unreachably far, alive. I sit with that for one night, alone, and then I fold it up and put it where I keep things that require me to become more powerful before they can be opened. The war in front of me first, the senior behind the curtain later. He's earned patience of the quality my family taught me, the kind with interest. The enemy camp, meanwhile, wakes to 6 drained corpses and a diplomatic catastrophe, a hegemon-adjacent young lord dead in their care, and pins the blame, with my invisible encouragement, on the 2 mysterious upper country youths in my camp. Gu Jinyu and Du Mingchen acquire, without their knowledge or consent, a reputation as silent soul-drinking executioners. When they find out, they take it surprisingly well, mostly because I explain that terror is free armor, and partly because I pay them 10 more contribution points each for the reputational services. They are the 2 cheapest weapons of mass deterrence in military history. Now for the old marshals and the battle where my grandfather's ghost gets to watch. Their canyon camp is a textbook position, good for attack, good for defense, and they've decided to sit in it until their formations are perfect and then grind us conventionally, which respect is exactly how you should fight me if you must. So my first weapon against 50 years of military wisdom is 100 sheets of paper. I write insults, personally, in columns, call and response format, distributed to the literate soldiers with instructions to teach the rest, and at midday 10,000 men of 3 armies begin chanting in rhythm at a canyon. Old scoundrel Chung, you killed old Prince Lan by treachery, and now you've become an old turtle. Old turtle, old turtle, you call yourselves war gods and you won't come out. Cowards, cowards, go home and farm, go farm, go farm, come out and fight your grandpa Lan or piss yourselves in your tent, pissing yourselves, pissing yourselves. I am told that inside the command tent, General Ching slapped a table in half. Here's the trap under the vulgarity, and it's older than any of us. If they sortie now angry before their formations are set, they fight on my timing. If they endure, then 2 national war gods just sat in a canyon while 3 armies called them incontinent for an afternoon in front of their own soldiers, and their aura of invincibility, the actual military asset, bleeds out through the laughter. There is no third door. That's why it's a good insult. It's not the words, it's the geometry. They choose endurance, teeth gritted, planning to crush us tomorrow with everything perfect. Except the chanting was also a metronome, and while every enemy eye and ear pointed at the noise, Yue Wuxia led 3,000 archers up the goat paths to the canyon rims above their camp, foot wraps muffled, signals by trained sparrow. Because my signals officer trains actual sparrows, pigeons are for people whose enemies don't watch for pigeons. The sparrow lands on my shoulder at dusk, in position. Dawn, arrow rain from the sky they thought was a wall, 3,000 bows loosing in rolling volleys from the canyon rims, and the enemy camp wakes up already losing. Then, the canyon mouth, 10,000 battle beasts of the lawn vanguard hit it in ordered groups, and this is the part the enemy has no answer for, because their beasts fight as individuals, and mine fight as regiments. Defense line beasts absorb the counter volleys with their bodies, agile lines flow over them, flying types drop onto the archer platforms and clear them like shelves, and then my heavy line cavalry. Over 1,000 horses and riders in full black, refined iron barding, every plate inscribed with weight reduction formations, so the armor weighs nothing to the wearer, and everything to whoever it lands on, and only a top-grade cultivator's arrow can even bite it. They hit the enemy's famous shield and spear formations at full gallop, hooked lances prying the shield walls open, arm-mounted, repeating crossbows firing point-blank into the gaps, and the formations that made 2 nations' reputations come apart like a fist through wet paper. That's not luck. I studied both nations' signature systems for a month before this morning. Choose interlocking shields, Z's advancing wall. I drilled counters against them on the formation chessboards in my head until I could break them at dinner. Beautiful systems, solved systems. The difference between a famous formation and a solved one is one commander who does homework, and their side hasn't fought a commander who does homework in 30 years. General Chung does the brave thing, mounts up and comes for me personally, war axe against my twin golden axes, and the first exchange numbs his arms to the shoulder, and the second takes his horse's head. 60 years of warcraft, ending in a tumble into red mud, and my axe edge settles on his neck before his lungs refill. Weren't you the loudest one, old turtle? I ask him, and the fight goes out of the enemy army canyon-wide. Their war god pinned under a border wastrel's boot in front of everyone, and I shout the sentence that ends battles, "Your commander is taken. Why aren't you surrendering?" And tens of thousands of men discover urgent business elsewhere. We take the canyon, their supplies, and thousands of prisoners, whom I do not execute, waste of labor. They're all going to Sha City to terraform my barren hills for wages of food. And given what my fief pays in food, I give them 1 year before they're begging for citizenship. My army's total losses for the biggest field battle of the war. Some wounded, 0 dead. Again, the war reports are starting to read like fraud. They're notarized. General Chung himself gets a private appointment with Ming Lei, and first he gets an offer, because I do things in order. Tell me the truth of the old years, I say, and you'll die whole, with your name intact, a war hero for your country to mourn. He sneers that a battlefield death holds no fear for a soldier. Wrong answer, old turtle, and also wrong category, because I'm not offering you a battlefield death. I'm offering you an edit of history. And when he clams up, we proceed to the involuntary addition. Ming Lei can dig memories out of a living mind the way he digs souls out of bodies, slowly, with commentary. It costs the old fiend real effort at his current strength, not that his pride lets him say so, and it costs General Cheng considerably more. The camp spends a night listening to a national war god scream across the dark, and by morning has formed the healthy consensus that anyone may be offended in this world except the little prince. Even Shin Wei-jin's hardest veterans start using honorifics. I play cards through the noise with Wei Bo, who asks, a little pale, whether we'll interrogate the man to death. No, I tell him, playing a card. Dying's the easy exit, and he hasn't earned an easy anything. What Ming Lei brings me out of that skull is the whole rot confirmed. The nameless senior supplied poison that weakened my grandfather before the ambush, supplied the tracking formation that lured my parents when they came for vengeance. Old Cheng and old He were the local hands, hired treachery, and the senior, even Cheng's memory holds no face for him, only a title of terror and an association with the Tang family of Xing country. The chain runs, both ends confirmed now, from my family's graves straight into a medium-rank country's guest wing. And so General Cheng doesn't get an execution. Death on a battlefield is a war hero's pension, his name mourned, his family honored, and I decline to fund it. Instead, I take from his memories one more gem, a Cho royal family secret so radioactive it glows, and I build his punishment out of it. The crown prince of Cho country is not the emperor of Cho's son. He is the product of the current empress's affair with General Cheng's own son. The old turtle's grandson sits in line for his king's throne, and the old turtle has spent 2 decades pressuring the throne to keep him there. I hand this grenade to Shin Yuejin along with a job, take 2,000 men in flying trucks over the enemy's positions, seize Cho's border city from its undefended side, and detonate the secret in every market square. He flies out that night, giddy like a boy, warfare by airlift being a genre I have just invented for this continent. And I write a letter to Cheng Wei, second prince of Cho, my maze victim, my noodle war sparring partner, currently sidelined in the enemy camp, watching old men lose his war. Getting it to him is its own small comedy. My courier finds his confidant. The confidant delivers it trembling, and Cheng Wei, expecting one of my taunts, opens it braced to be furious for recreation. He reads it once and stops breathing right. The letter contains the throne-breaking secret, plus one more gift from Cheng's excavated memories, the truth that Cheng Wei's mother, the previous empress, didn't die of sudden illness. The current empress murdered her with a slow method built from incompatible foods and flower scents, undetectable by any physician, and the emperor knew enough to look away because her clan had grown inconvenient. He burns the letter in his brazier with shaking hands and writes back 4 lines. He asked to meet me at midnight at the foot of an ice mountain, alone, which for a prince of a country I'm at war with is either a trap or the bravest thing he's ever done. It's the brave one. I arrive to find him roasting 2 rabbits over a neat little fire, this loud spearman prince cooking for his enemy with his guards left 3 ridges away as promised. I eat mine without testing it for poison, first bite, no hesitation, which he notices and which buys more trust than any treaty language ever written. And there, over rabbit grease and a campfire, with a war asleep on the other side of the mountain, the second prince of the enemy, and I negotiate the future of his country. My terms, because of course I have terms drafted, in duplicate, blood oath contract, Schwanli binding, 20 years of non-aggression between Cho and Yin. Annual tribute, 50,000 warhorses, 500,000 cattle and sheep, scheduled minerals. He chokes. I point out that a throne makes it affordable and no throne makes it moot. Mutual defense, each helps the other if war comes calling, and I decline to specify which war I'm planning for. He'll find out when Xing country does. In exchange, I put him on the throne of Cho. The plan I sketch him is the one that happens, almost to the hour. The bastard's secret detonates in Cho's capital. The old emperor, poked in his deepest suspicion, must investigate. The empress and her crown prince, cornered, do the predictable thing and launch their coup early, seizing the palace to force the succession. And on coup day, Cheng Wei, officially bedridden with battlefield injuries in a tent 500 li away, walks into the capital with a hand-picked strike force, ferried by 2 flying vehicles I lend him, personally rented to be returned clean as the legitimate eldest son come to save his father from usurpers. Purge, gratitude, throne. Ming Lei rides along as insurance and eats the coup's ringleaders whose souls, given what they'd been doing to loyalist families in that palace, I signed off on without much struggle. Before he leaves that campfire, I hand Cheng Wei one more thing, unpriced, off the contract, the full account of his mother's murder, method, dates, and the names of everyone who knew and looked away. He goes very still over the dying fire, this loud, brash man, and when he finally speaks, his voice has rust in it. Why give me this free? He asks. You price everything. Because, I tell him, a man walking into a palace coup should know exactly which debts he's collecting. Revenge with clear eyes cuts straighter than ambition. He looks at me for a long moment and says I'm nothing like the rumors, and I tell him the rumors are load-bearing. Please don't fix them. It runs exactly like that, 20 days from rabbit dinner to coronation. The bastard secret detonates, the Empress's faction jumps early, Cheng Wei arrives mid-coup like the judgment of heaven with my flying trucks and Shen Weijin's strike force and one very well-fed mongoose, and the succession question of Chu country resolves itself in a single night. Cheng Wei, Emperor of Chou. First act, withdrawal of all Chu forces from the war. Second act, a very quiet 20-year treaty with a border fief his court has learned not to ask about. Third act, private, a small shrine to his mother and a certain Empress Dowager's title posthumously revoked, which no treaty required, and I respect him for. One kingdom down, by mail mostly. The other kingdom's old marshal, General He, tries the honorable last stand. He also tries first, writing to all 9 neutral kingdoms demanding they jointly sanction me for my treatment of prisoners, unbecoming conduct, dangerous precedent, and the 9 kingdoms whose noble houses are all holding Saw-City trade contracts and library reading slots reply with lightly perfumed variations of, "This is a private war, do stop meddling." My trade fair was never about the merchandise. It was about this exact letter, pre-answering it 2 seasons in advance, so it ends on a field, conventionally, almost respectfully. Z country forms up, we form up, banners cracking in the frost wind, and General, he rides out to meet me in front of both armies, because whatever else the old murderer is, he's not a coward. And because after everything, the poison, the treachery, the decades, he wants the ending to look like an honest war story. I ride out to deny him even that. He knows what I know by now. His face, when we close, is the face of a man meeting a debt he'd convinced himself was written off. We fight on horseback, 30 rounds, his saber against my axes, and he's good. 50 years of border war in every feint, tricks my grandfather probably shared with him back when they were young officers on facing hills before he sold all of it for a scheme and a promise. And it doesn't matter. I've been fighting profound ranks since the maze, and I'm not fighting his 50 years. I'm fighting his next half second, over and over, until one arrives late. On the 30-somethingth exchange, I leave his saber a half beat behind and take his head. 100,000 people go silent at once, which is a sound of its own. I hold it up so both armies see, and I say the words again. The enemy commander is dead. Why aren't you surrendering? And Zai country's invasion dies right there in the frost. 60 years of border predation ending in one swing. I don't joke here. There's a place where the jokes stop, and it's the length of one slow ride back across a quiet field with my grandfather's name in my mouth and no one left alive who owes it anything. Grandfather, both of them, paid. The routed Z army leaves behind its acting deputy commander, one crown prince with a flute, whom I ride down at a canter and invite with my most charming smile to not leave. Beauty, come to my camp as a guest. Yanfei looks at his scattered army, then at me, and laughs, soft and a little broken. All right, he gets a guest tent, good food, courtesy, his flute returned with a joke about confiscating it if he plays sad songs, and once he's rested, a contract folder. My soldiers are baffled by the arrangement. The enemy deputy commander strolling our camp at liberty, dining at my table, but they've stopped questioning their commander's methods on the grounds that the methods keep winning. And anyway, half of them have privately concluded I'm courting him, which is camouflage I don't even have to pay for. Because Chu got a coup, but Z doesn't need one. A Yunfei already holds half his country's real power. His position is secure. His father dotes on him. What Z needs is arithmetic. Their old war god is dead. Their army routed. Their ally is now my ally. And if I choose to march north, nothing between here and their capital argues otherwise, so I offer him the dignified version. Tribute restructured is trade. Grain, cotton, minerals, annually, at values matching Cho's payments, but on paper, it's Zai country purchasing weapons, battle beasts, and Sha City exclusives at preferred rates, with guaranteed minimum deliveries and priority purchase rights over the other 9 kingdoms. His face gets to call it commerce. My ledgers get to call it winning. He reads every clause twice, asks the sharp questions, extracts the guarantee clauses. He's the best negotiator I've faced in this world, wasted on a flute. And then he signs in blood oath and asks the real question. Why arm the countries you just beat? Because, I tell him, leaning in, of the clause you skimmed. Mutual defense. The 3 of us, Yin, Cho, Z, are now a block. and blocks beauty don't sit still. Medium-ranked countries are not myths. One day there'll be a map on a table and a knife in my hand, and you'll want to be holding the fork his breath actually catches. Ambition is the one seduction that works on everyone. He leaves the next morning with his personal guard, which he buys back from my prisoner intake at fair market price. I'm not running a charity, and at the gate of my camp, he pauses, reins in hand, and says, without turning around, that if I'd been born in Zai country, his father would have adopted me by force. Highest compliment his culture has. I tell him if I'd been born in Zai country, he'd be paying me tribute already, and he laughs all the way down the road. And that's how the crown prince of a defeated kingdom and I part, allies on paper, something less catalogued in fact. The war formally closes with staged peace talks in a neutral pavilion where the tribute clauses stay secret and both defeated kingdoms perform dignity for the international audience, envoys reading elegant nothings while the real contracts sit in my storage bag with blood signatures. The armies withdraw, the garrison town empties, and along the whole length of my border, in villages that scheduled their lives around raid seasons for 60 years, the town's light lamps for the first autumn in living memory with nothing to fear from the dark. My patrols report one more thing. In several of those villages, people have started hanging small wooden fish by the door because a rumor got around that the little prince likes fish and it might bring him past. Collect that, Ledger. That one I keep. Final accounting of the Three Kingdoms War. Enemy, one war god captured and unpersoned, one war god dead on the field, one crown prince converted to emperor and ally, one crown prince converted to trading partner, and possibly something his court poets should never find out about. 30,000 defectors gained, tens of thousands of prisoners turned laborers, 2 20-year treaties paying annual tribute, Yin country, borders intact, prestige resurrected, the land family army, the force the court wanted, disbanded 2 years ago, marched 50,000 in and marched 50,000 home, 0 dead. Say it again slowly in any officer's mess on this continent and watch the room go quiet. Ming Lei comes home from the Shoku at profound peak, fat on treasury treasures and traitor souls, does one lap of my tent and declares the whole war barely a snack. He also, per the princeling's immediate tattling, helped himself uninvited to several profound grade beasts and materials from Chou's royal vaults on the way out. And the new emperor Cheng Wei's first diplomatic communication to me is technically a complaint about my weasel. I remind Ming Lei that we don't eat allies. He points out they weren't allies yet at the moment of consumption, which is, infuriatingly, sound contract law, and I drop the matter and keep the beast fat and the emperor slightly robbed. There's a version of me that could discipline an ancient fiend into full etiquette. She would win fewer wars. My 2 princeling interns come home with enough contribution points for a flying vehicle each, a shared reputation as soul-drinking executioners they've decided to enjoy, and the fixed conviction that my fief is the only interesting place in the world. Their imperial brothers, reading the reports in their sealed trial, conclude, correctly, that their baby brothers are ruined for palace life forever, and I come home with a list. The senior behind the Tang family, my parents alive somewhere past the reach of maps, a red spider lily burning quietly over my heart, hunted by something with no face, not today's problems. But the war taught the continent something it will take a while to unlearn, and it taught me something too. Whoever that senior is, whatever tier of the world he watches from, he moved against my family, through hirelings and cutouts, and still missed. Next time, he'll come himself. Good. Saves me the travel. The road home has 2 stops and both of them are debts. Stop 1, Nantong City, and this one belongs to Tao Guang. 2 years ago, I promised my steward freedom and revenge. Freedom he took by earning it. Revenge we collect now, together, because his story has been sitting in my files like a splinter. The younger brother who hired the assassins, the fiancé who married that brother with a child already growing, conceived while Tao Guang was still alive and planning his wedding. The mother who blessed the whole arrangement and buried a stranger's ruined corpse under her son's name without checking twice. We arrive with 300 Lan Army elites in 3 military trucks and a full complement of playboys who invited themselves the moment they heard someone bullied Steward Shai Gaolin announcing they've come to support the family, by which he means watch and jeer, by which he means both. Nantong City has never seen a flying convoy. Half the city follows us from the gates out of pure spectacle hunger, so the audience assembles itself. The city lord, Wanding Jiambo, has been pre-briefed by the third prince's faction, whose man he is in the strongest possible terms. Do not provoke the little ancestor. Whatever he does, whatever it costs, and greets my arrival bent like a folding chair. When the Shi family later screams for him to arrest me, I get to watch a man try to bow in 2 directions at once, and it's worth the whole trip. And the Shi family, when their disowned dead son walks through the smashed front gate, chooses, and I will never stop being amazed by rich people, to gaslight him. The matriarch looks looks her firstborn in the face and announces that her son died 2 years ago, and this imposter may take 1,000 taels and go 1,000 taels for a life. Tao Guang doesn't even flinch. He just gets politer, which is how I know the last thread burned through. You've got the wrong person, he agrees, serene. Your son died 2 years ago. Then we do it properly. I have the actual assassins, purchased from their sex ruins long ago and kept fresh for this occasion, marched in to testify. I have Lan Chen's evidence file, the hired killing, the adultery timeline, the seized farmland, the tax fraud, the bribes. I have the city lord conduct the trial in the family's own great hall with half of Nantong pressed against the gates listening, because sunlight is the point. And when Brother Tao Hai screams that this is power suppressing the innocent, my playboys, who have matured into a Greek chorus of pure menace, remind him that the innocent don't sweat like that. The trial runs all afternoon, and the family fights every inch with the desperate creativity of the guilty. The mother tries filial piety. How dare an unacknowledged swindler bring ruffians into a grieving house? My playboys point out correctly and loudly that she can't have it both ways. Either he's a stranger she owes nothing or a son she sold. Pick a story, madam. The brother tries jurisdiction, demands transfer to the provincial governor, whose palm he's been greasing for years, and city lord Gan, who hates that governor with the pure flame of bureaucratic rivalry, discovers a deep new commitment to local justice. The fiancé tries tears, the soft, practiced kind, aimed at the man who once melted for them, and Tao Guang looks through her like window glass, and I watch something in her face understand, for the first time, what she actually traded away. Then the assassins testify, then the ledgers open. Then my soldiers carry the hidden account books out of the family vault and match them entry by entry against the bribes and the seized farmland and the tax fraud in front of a street that includes several hundred people the Shu family bled over the years, whose commentary does not require encouragement. Verdict: everything proven. Sentence: execution for Tao Hai, whole clan exile for the rest, assets confiscated, and then Tao Guang standing over the brother who bought his death while the man grovels and swears it was all their mother's idea, grants the one mercy that isn't one. Sharpie Amar says to Sidr Marcino, commute the execution. Let him go north with the family to the labor camps, alive, healthy, and surrounded for the rest of his long life by relatives who know exactly whose greed cost them everything, in barracks where his name is the reason for every blister. The escort gets quiet instructions, special care. No one dies on the road. No one dies at the camps either. Longevity is part of the sentence. His former fiancée catches a sleeve on the way out, asks how he can be so heartless. He looks at her hand until she removes it. His mother screams that he's an unfilial monster. He bows to her precisely the way one bows to a stranger's coffin and walks out beside me into the sunlight, and I watch 10 years of weight leave his shoulders between the gate and the carriage. 70% of the confiscated Shu fortune goes to the three armies as war compensation, a distribution I run through Weibo and Shen Yuejin's hands specifically so that when the capital's censors start screaming about my unauthorized raid, they have to impeach all three of us, including the two most decorated commanders of the war. I believe the technical term is human shields. They figure it out too late and eat the windfall anyway. Stop 2 is the capital itself, and the capital has decided to throw a parade. We enter on horseback, ceremonial, and the streets are packed to the roof lines, tea houses overflowing, children on shoulders, handkerchiefs and sachets, and flowers raining on my column until my guards are wading through perfume. My name chanted by the same city that used to chant it as a punchline. The wine shops that ran betting pools on my disgrace are selling commemorative cups. The matchmakers, I'm told, have relisted me at the top of the marriageable rankings with a note reading difficult, worth it. Understand what this city expected from this war because it's the secret engine of all this joy. Last time 2 kingdoms invaded together, Yin country bought peace with half the Kunlun harvest and a decade of humiliation, and the border families had already evacuated inland this time, waiting for the same. Instead, the invaders are gone. Tribute flows inward, and the army that did it, the army the court tried to disband as a relic, came home without one dead soldier to mourn. There isn't a family in this kingdom without a son, a cousin, a debt to that arithmetic. 2 years ago, I was the joke prince. Today the story runs ahead of my horse, the commander who broke 2 kingdoms, fed 3 armies, and brought every single one of his soldiers home. Somewhere in this crowd, people who once watched a heartbroken girl get beaten on a riverbank are cheering a war hero without knowing they're the same person, and the previous owner of this body, wherever she is, I hope she's watching. This parade is hers too. This was always the promise, and I keep my promises loudly. The palace does the formal version. The emperor, radiant, grants me the full princely title, King Lan. No longer heir, but master of my house. bonus, plus 10 years of tax exemption for Shia City. The Ministry of Revenue experiences grief in real time, publicly, and their new minister actually stands up to suggest the exemption is excessive, at which the emperor asks, in the tone of a man polishing a blade, whether his decree was child's play to be revoked mid-sentence. The ministry discovers urgent agreement. Then the censors make their run at me over the Non.1 raid, led by one venerable old inquisitor who has survived 3 reigns on seniority and volume, abuse of power, unauthorized seizure, embezzlement of confiscated property. He builds to a magnificent finish and demands my rewards be revoked. I correct his vocabulary. Not embezzled, censor, divided. This king donated the proceeds to the 3 armies as war compensation, took 30% for my own men, and the co-dividers, since you're taking notes, were the Wei heir and the Li heir. Do address your memorial to all 3 war heroes at once, and mind your wording next time coming to court with the wrong verbs at your age. Aren't you embarrassing yourself? The old man's rhetoric fails him. Then his color changes. I stroll over and take a handful of his collar to explain at close range what happens when people covet the pensions of my soldiers' widows. And somewhere in the middle of my explanation, he faints dead away, upright like a folded fan. I blink at the emperor. This has nothing to do with me. He startles easily. The imperial physician diagnoses an attack of anger, no lasting harm. The emperor, checking the old man over with grandfatherly concern, observes that sensorial work is clearly too taxing at his venerable age and prescribes retirement, effective immediately. Then the Son of Heaven turns to me and delivers the only reprimand I get all day. Don't be so impulsive. If you scare someone to death, what about your reputation? The court, as one body, decides to have heard none of this. Then I do the thing nobody, not even the emperor, sees coming. I stand up in that court and gift back Xia City's entire former tax stream voluntarily as a personal fund for the emperor's own treasury to spend on the country as he sees fit. And I hand the throne, both alliance contracts, the tributes, the trade clauses, the 20-year block formally submitted state property. I watch the Son of Heaven read the treaty terms twice, and I watch his eyes go wet, and I understand I've done something no amount of battle beasts could do. Every emperor lives braced against his most capable subject. The secret memorials warning him about me have been arriving for months. Be wary of Xia City, clip the lawn wings before they blot out the throne, and he's burned every one. And today, I've repaid the burning. I just showed him mine are the one pair of hands in this kingdom that will never reach for his cup. He calls me the blessing heaven owed him, in open court, voice not entirely steady. In the study afterward, when the chief ministers read the alliance contracts, the left prime minister, a man who has impeached me twice, is very nearly in tears. We came prepared to cede land, he keeps saying. We were drafting the concessions, and instead, the defeated are paying US. I stand there and make the required modest noises, and privately note which faces in that study look proud, and which look hungry, and which look afraid of me now. All useful inventory. The court, which came in sharpening impeachments, files out composing praise, and the Empress Dowager, when I visit her garden, walks with me under the winter blossoms, tells me she's leaving to travel the world. Her new cultivation has finally opened to her, and holds my hands with a grip that could crack walnuts. Go further than this kingdom, she says. Your wings shouldn't be caged here. When your opportunity comes, take it and don't look back. The Emperor and I will hold the ground behind you, which is the kind of blessing that sounds like prophecy if you know what's coming. And by now, you and I both know what's coming. One more door to kick before the story lets me rest. The Yue family. And while I rest, the palace garden hosts a quieter scene I only learn about through Dong's web. Consort Yue and a beautiful matron of the Yue clan taking winter tea, watching the Empress Dowager stroll with me at a distance and stitching their next season of schemes. Their darling Yue Ming, a nephew trained abroad in secret, is to be positioned for the family's future, while the inconvenient Mo Li, who wastes himself in my Xia City, gets quietly deleted from the succession. The dislike in that pavilion has real money behind it. File it. The Yue household's account comes due within the week, and they're the ones who call in the debt. Word reaches me over morning juice, delivered by Lan Chen, wearing the face of a man bearing quality gossip. The capital's playboys have spent the week settling scores with every relative who ever sneered at them. That part's routine. My veterans decompressing. The headline is Mo Li. Steady, careful. Mo Li, my quiet ally, the man who plays a decade-long game against his own family, has beaten his father openly in the ancestral hall. I spray my juice. Alma oik too, because if he snapped, something crossed a line even his patience couldn't hold, and Lan Chen confirms it. The stepmother has arranged a marriage for Mo Yingyuo, the groom, the Lu family's legitimate grandson, a talented refiner and a professional lecher, 10+ concubines, several bastards, mistresses in 3 districts, For gentle Mingzhu, my academy's beloved battle beast lecturer, the woman who found her spine in my city, it's not a marriage, it's a disposal, and the family brought her back to the capital by quiet force to see it done. I call for Tao Guang and the car. The Yue mansion's gates are already dented. My playboys got there first and are loudly holding space, each one now anchored by a mortified family elder sent to retrieve him. Inside the full theater, the family head, mid-tirade, stripping Mo Li of his young lord position, Mingzhu on her knees, promising to hang herself at the gates if they punish her brother, her father barking that the betrothal is sealed and no rebellious daughter will unseal it, and reaching for his sword to, quote, rid the family of a scourge. I walk in on that sentence. Suck. The gay family head certainly has a grand display of power. The hall freezes, and I want to note, before I set fire to a great house, that on paper my position here is terrible. It's their family, their betrothal, their law, parents' orders, and matchmakers' words, ironclad, which is why I don't argue on paper. I produced 2 employment contracts, Mo Li's, Mo Yingyu's, both signed to Xia City. During the contract term, they're my people. No one, and here I look around the room like I'm pricing it for demolition, is allowed to bully my people. The stepmother sweeps forward in full grieving virtue mode. She's kept her stepchildren like her own. This is slander, so I stop being polite and start being the Longyan Pavilion. Lan Chen opens the dossier and reads. Dates, the affair with the family head before his first marriage, the mistress years, the recipe of incompatible foods and flower essences that sent the first wife, Mo Li's mother, my Mingchu's mother, into her fatal, sudden illness. The allowances withheld, the illnesses induced, the talent suppressed. Item by item, in front of the assembled clan, the model stepmother's 20-year performance gets peeled off in strips, and the family head's complicity with it. The man who climbed to his position on his first wife's family and then let her be removed like scaffolding. He breaks first, roars slander, and swings at Mingzhu, at his own daughter, mid-sentence, to shut the moment down. I catch his wrist in front of her face. You family head, you've grown tired of living, hitting my person. The crack his wrist makes is very loud in that hall. The kick that follows puts him through a decorative screen. Then the ancestor comes out, the Yu family's hidden peak, Xuan Tier 5th grade, robes and fury, pressing his cultivation down on the room to remind everyone what a great house keeps in its back courtyard. I shrug his pressure off like a borrowed coat and let him feel mine, because the war advanced me further than anyone's been told. Xuan Tier 8th. His aura flinches, his face does arithmetic, and suddenly the old man is very interested in negotiation. Fine. Terms, winner takes the paperwork, and I write the stakes out on the spot and make him sign before we fight, because verbal agreements in this family have the lifespan of snow. If he wins, I leave and the Yu family handles its own affairs. If I win, the siblings go free and my addendum stands. We duel in the courtyard with the whole clan watching from the galleries. The old man opens with his full pressure, and his battle beast both. No face-saving restraint. He wants this over fast and humiliating. It's over fast. I take his beast out of the fight with 2 moves my mongoose taught me, and then work the ancestor himself the way I worked Shen Yuejian, thoroughly, invisibly, every soft point receded, dragging it out just long enough to look competitive, because even now I'm doing him the courtesy his family never did my friends. He lands once, glancing, and I let the crowd see me let him. When he finally sits down in the courtyard dust, nothing on him will bruise and everything on him will hurt for a week, and his eyes tell me he's itemized both facts. He signs. Mo Li and Mo Yingyue removed from the family register, free, all ties severed, the word father legally struck. And one addendum I insisted on personally. The Liu family betrothal is sealed. Is it? Match-made, dated, unbreakable, orders of parents, words of matchmakers. Wonderful. I wouldn't dream of breaking so sacred a contract. Then the Yui family will honor it with the stepmother's own daughter, Mo Meihua, she of the whip and the sneers, delivered to the lecher's household on schedule. Do not do to others, madam, what you would not order for your own. The stepmother faints, twice, the second time after the Liu family, delighted to keep the alliance and unimpressed by the substitution's pedigree, downgrade the offer from wife to concubine and send several hundred guards with the sedan chair to make sure the goods arrive. I don't attend. I'd said I'd come to a wedding and a concubine intake isn't one. And anyway, I've already sent the Liu family my actual gift, 2 collection pavilion reading slots and a trade channel, because they solved my problem with their own greed and deserve a tip. Mingzhu, freed, does something better than thank me. Her half-sister, arriving home mid-catastrophe, takes one look at the situation and spits the word she's used on her elder sister since childhood, and gentle, quiet Mo Ying-yue, academy lecturer, model of grace, patience of a tulip, slaps her flat. The sound rings off the rafters. Shuju comes up swinging and gets caught by the wrist because a year in my city came with cultivation resources her family never wasted on the invisible daughter, and slapped again, precisely, on the follow-through. Before I left this family, I was your elder sister and endured you, Mingju says in her lecture hall voice. I've left. Try cursing again. The hall holds its breath. Shuju doesn't, and I watched 20 years of a girl being taught to apologize for existing burn-off in one exhale. And yes, my city breeds this in people, the playboys, the maids, the gentle ones most of all. I'd apologize for the epidemic, but I'm the proudest I've been all year. That evening, the siblings moved their nothing into my mansion, and Mingju stops at the gate, looks back at the Yue family's roofline once, the way you check a healed wound, and doesn't look again. Molly takes the dossier from my hands like it's made of glass and thanks me with his eyes wet, and I give him the last piece, the part that matters. The evidence trail on his mother's murder is old, but not cold, and I'm not going to finish it for him. His mother, his hunt, his hands. Sha City's resources are behind him whenever he reaches some debts you don't outsource, and the look on his face tells me I've read him exactly right. Two siblings walk out of that mansion carrying everything they own, which is nothing, which is also the first thing that's truly been theirs in 20 years. They move into my mansion that evening. The capital adds a new line to my legend, the little tyrant who breaks families, and doesn't notice because the capital never notices that every family I've broken was already a weapon pointed at someone I keep, which brings us at last to the announcement that reshuffles the entire continent and closes this chapter of my second life by opening the next one. An imperial summons, the great hall full, and the emperor beaming like a man holding a winning ticket. Word has come down from the medium-ranked countries who had it from the upper-class countries who had it from the summit of the world. The Julong continent will hold a war beast competition for the young generation. Everyone under 30, every kingdom, every tier. Lower-ranked countries send 5 champions to the medium-ranked selections, like survivors advance to the upper-class round. And the finalists compete in the super hegemon countries themselves at the top of the world before the 4 powers that rule everything. The hall buzzes. I go very still because I can feel the shape of this from 3 moves away, and the shape is a ladder, and I know exactly who's standing at the top of it. The Emperor's dispositions are brisk. Yin Country will hold open national selections in 20 days. Anyone with talent may enter, fair combat, no bloodline passes, and 4 champions will be chosen. 4, not 5, because the 5th slot is pre-assigned by unanimous agreement of throne and ministers to me, who will also please serve as head judge, since making me compete against our own children would just be cruelty with extra steps. For once, the court doesn't even grumble. 2 beheaded war gods by a lot of consensus, and I look at that competition bracket the way I look at everything, as infrastructure. Within a day, my machine is running, free lodging at my mansion for every traveling war beast master who can't find a bed in the flooded capital, plus 1 hour of sparring and pointers with me daily, which turns my courtyards into the most oversubscribed academy on the continent overnight. Flying vehicle shuttles from every major city, so no talent misses the deadline, funded by me, staffed by my army. 100 families hired out of the slums, trained in my recipe book, dressed in green, cooking for the crowds, the first crew of a street food industry that will outlive the games. And behind it all, the real ledger. 4 slots will be chosen, and hundreds of brilliant war beast masters won't make the cut, and every single one of them will have spent a month eating my food, riding my shuttles, sparring in my courtyards, hearing about a golden city in the border wastes where talent is the only aristocracy. The competition selects 4 champions for Yin Country. It recruits a generation for Shi City. The Emperor thinks I'm being generous. I'm being generous the way a river delta is generous. Everything still flows to my sea. 20 days of joyful madness follow. Hidden clans crawl out of mountains that haven't answered a census in a century. Whole families of reclusive beast crafters walking into my courtyards with heirloom toolkits and suspicious eyes. Old hermits materialize in my sparring yard at dawn. Tess, the little king who feeds strangers, get thrown into my ornamental pond with full courtesy and climb out thoughtful. My daily open hour becomes the hottest ticket on the continent. I spar all comers, correct stances, diagnose beast designs at a glance, and every session ends with a few more brilliant strangers asking careful questions about this Shea City place. The slum cooks earn their legend in the same 20 days. 100 families who last month were invisible now feed the capital's greatest gathering in green uniforms, and their kanji line becomes an institution, nobles queuing behind porters, everyone's money the same color. When the games end, I tell their head cook, "You'll You'll all have shops of your own along the new roads. She doesn't believe me. Her disbelief is fine. My roads don't require faith, just gravel, and the road crews are already hiring at wages that empty the beggar's quarter in a week. To get rich, build roads. Every world I've lived in, same rule. And through all of it, I keep glancing north, past the border, past the medium-ranked countries, to the top of the map. Because here's what my Longyin channels bring me. In a sealed report, I read 3 times and then burned smiling. Far away in the Palace of Trials, 4 young sovereigns finally cleared their 9 levels and walked free in record time, driven. 3 of them complained to anyone who'll listen. By the 4th one's inhuman pace. On the way out, a sacred ground of the 4 nations offered them its lottery, an elemental awakening with 1,000 to 1 odds. 3 walked away with nothing, as expected. Ye Tianlong walked out with a new element burning on his fingertips. Wood attribute, pale green fire dancing on his hand, alchemist grade, 1 in 1,000 odds bent over his knee, like everything else that argues with him, complete with a full Pillcraft inheritance poured into his head by the sacred ground itself. The man was already the continent's finest formation master and a first-rank artifact refiner. Now he refines elixirs. His 3 peers reportedly asked whether he intended to leave any professions for the rest of the continent, and he reportedly considered the question seriously before declining to answer. And when Zhou Mingyuan needled him about the War Beast competition, whether the great Emperor Luo would deign to compete, he said, per my source's slightly hysterical footnote, that he doesn't need to enter any competition because the person worth waiting for will fight her way up the ladder to him, and he intends to be standing at the top of it with elixirs of his own refining when she arrives, and she has never once been late to collect anything she wanted. I'll wait for Lan Yue, the Dark Emperor of Qinglong told the 3 most powerful young men alive at the top of the world with new fire in his hand as if it were a scheduling note, and 2 of those 3 powerful young men immediately packed bags and snuck toward the medium-ranked countries to watch me climb because apparently I'm the best entertainment 4 thrones have ever produced. Their little brothers are already in my guest rooms comparing contribution points. The whole summit of this continent is leaning over the railing, watching a border kingdom's Wastrel prince take her first step up. Let them watch. Let everyone watch. Honestly, I've never once minded an audience. 2 years ago, I woke up bleeding in a ditch, wearing a dead girl's heartbreak, in a family being eaten by its own, in a kingdom nobody could find on a good map. Her love had thrown her away. Her relatives were scheduling her murder. Her army was starving in drafty tents. Her fief was a graveyard with a wall, and her name was a joke told in wine shops. Today, that girl's name is cheered in every city of a kingdom whose enemies pay it tribute. The relatives are evicted, jailed, or explaining themselves to the Empress Dowager, which is worse. The love that threw her away fell into a volcano chasing what he finally understood he'd had. Her army eats 3 meals a day and has never buried one of my soldiers. Her fief glows gold at sunset over streets where freed slaves argue with dukes' sons about noodle prices and wins wars with catering. Her joke of a name is now attached to a royal title, 2 tribute treaties, and a standing warning circulated among the criminal classes of 3 nations. And the deadliest man alive, the one who once promised to kill me over a stolen pendant, is standing at the top of the world's ladder with new fire on his fingers, holding that pendant's twin, telling emperors he's waiting for me specifically. The competition opens in 20 days. Somewhere out there, a faceless senior is still hunting the red flower over my heart, and somewhere past the edge of every map, my parents are alive and don't know their daughter is coming. And in my storage bag, 2 golden orbs sleep side by side, a dragon and a phoenix, because I still owe a certain emperor the strongest battle beast on this continent, pinky sworn, and I intend to deliver it in person. Climb the ladder, win the crown, build his beast, kiss the emperor, find my family, build the villain for all of it. Ask my enemies how betting against that list has gone so far.